In a school setting, a boy claims to hate games with all his might. Mocking Daewon-ha, a boy asks if he's playing again. His classmates make fun of him for playing on his phone during class time. They keep teasing him because of the multiple phones connected at the same time. Daewon gets confused and irritated since he has all the phones at the request of his classmates. Our 18-year-old hero claims to be a servant of games and angrily says he doesn't want to do this. He gets even angrier when they sarcastically say he's really good at games. Arenju, also 18 years old, insists she's terrible at games no matter how much she plays. The nerd is impressed to see that the goddess of their class also plays the same game. He realizes that all the boys in class have a crush on Urin, and so does he. Urin says she's betting with her friends to see who scores more points, and she's losing. Even though the protagonist is a failure, he's amazed that Urin is talking to him. Shy and awkward, the boy offers to play in her place at that moment. Friendly, the girl says it's not necessary since the game-obsessed nerd looks very busy. It's the first time our protagonist is speaking with her, and he says life is a game. Arenju laughs at that. Feeling moved, he thinks he's getting closer to her, but when he tries to give her a tip, she asks what he's talking about. Then she asks if they're friends, and Urin says she was actually waiting for her friend. Urin heads to the cafeteria and says goodbye to Daewon, who's left disappointed by the crushed expectation. He's certain she's way out of his league and doesn't even know his name. But at that moment, the girl says goodbye and calls him by his name, which surprises him. Just then, the game notifies him that Daewon's character has been eliminated. He realizes his character died while he was talking to Aranju, but he's shocked when his hero suffers a penalty and drops a very powerful sword. After all, that's Sholu's favorite sword, and he'll be furious if he finds out. Right then, Sholu shows up extremely angry and slams Daewon's head into the desk. Sholu Min, from the gamer nerd's class, says he shouldn't have taken his eyes off the screen. Injured and completely in shock, our hero begs Sholu for forgiveness. Cornered, the protagonist says he'll give his collectible sword to Min, who starts to calm down. Still wearing his psychotic expression, Nin says that doesn't erase Daewon's mistake. He slaps Daewon in the face, and Daewon-ha says that for people like Min, life is like a game. After all, he enjoys stepping on people weaker than him and showing off his strength for no reason, climbing higher ranks, and in his eyes, people like him are just prey to level up. Min tells the nerd to do better since the only thing he does in life is play video games. Sholu says he's back to playing Roast RPG again, but his team is very weak, so he demands that Daewon deliver the Fire King's sword to him within a week. In shock, the protagonist asks if he's joking and how he's supposed to get the weapon in that time. Sholu is sure he stopped watching his phone to talk to Aranju. He says he'll motivate Daewon to get the special item within a week and during the holiday. He says that if Daewon fails the mission, he'll beat him up and strip him in front of Aranju. He leaves the classroom laughing and meets his friends, who start planning to drink with the girls. Defeated and hurt, Daewon-ha is lying alone on the classroom floor with his phone in hand. He gets increasingly irritated with the game and says he hates it, but only when he's angry. In truth, he's just a gamer otaku who finds his greatest joy in games. During the break, he won't see the bullies, and with his mom traveling, he'll get to play as much as he wants. With a totally relaxed expression, he explains it's because he's max level. Hunting became too easy once he hit max level, so he stopped playing. In reality, Daewon-ha is a pathetic loser, but in the game, things are different. He wonders if his life were like the game, maybe he'd be someone else. He decides to stop thinking such pointless thoughts and focus on his game. Suddenly, his avatar in the game is eliminated, and he wonders how that happened. It gave him a bad feeling out of nowhere, and then Roast RPG got an update. Seeing the game's difficulty level and the drop rate for special items, he becomes desperate. Since our hero started the game, 18 hours have passed and he's been drinking a lot of energy drinks. He manages to defeat the Flame King and knows he can now obtain the item after playing all night. Thus, 37 hours pass since the nerd began playing, and he still hasn't slept. In the game Daewon-ha, he becomes furious seeing only weak items dropping. According to logic, increasing the difficulty should raise the chances of rare items appearing. However, they lowered this probability, and Daewon-ha knows it's because of the pay-to-win system. Since the protagonist started playing, 64 hours have passed. He throws an object in anger from not having found the item in time. He feels frustrated for having used everything he had and still not getting the item. He collapses onto his keyboard and starts laughing from despair and exhaustion. Daewon-ha feels like he's dying from sheer physical and mental fatigue. A few more hours pass, bringing the total to 144 hours of playtime. Daewon-ha says that on top of the low drop rate, fighting the monster solo takes too long. Because he's at a low level, no other players want to form a party with Daewon. Knowing there's only one day left before classes resume, he imagines the worst case scenario. He begins to cry, realizing the item boost pack he bought is about to expire. Face to face with the monster that drops the magic sword, he's certain the task is impossible. Just when he thinks it's the end, a mysterious player appears to help him, an in-game addict of max level who once defeated the great demon with a single blow. The mysterious player asks if our protagonist is looking for a party. He says he needs someone to hold off the monsters, and Daewon thinks he's a lunatic. Seeing he can't miss this opportunity, Daewon humiliates himself to become the man's vassal. While the mysterious warrior considers the request, our hero doesn't stop begging and whimpering. The mysterious player accepts Daewon-ha as his companion and allows him to join him. Time passes and our hero acquires the longsword of the Fire King. Right after, he's surprised to easily obtain another unit of the rare sword. In fact, he realizes it's a god-tier sword. After all, it belongs to the fire god. He understands that his 7 days of effort weren't in vain and wonders how much he could sell the item for. But thinking it over, Daewon decides not to be greedy and calls his friend's attention. Since it was all thanks to the strange and patient Chuni, he decides to give the sword to him. Chuni is grateful, having been hunting for the sword for a long time. Our protag finally decides to rest after completing his mission, and his eyes grow heavy. As spring break comes to an end, he chooses to nap before going to school. The moment he gets up from the chair, he suddenly collapses to the floor, completely drained. Confused, he realizes that the lack of nutrients and excessive caffeine consumption lead to death. Several news stories spread around the world about the young boy who died due to gaming. The addicted nerd understands he's leaving this world because his body couldn't handle the gameplay. In his final moments, he apologizes to his mother for passing away before her. He feels like an idiot for dying as a servant of online games. He concludes he's dying from playing too much and wishes to live a life like those in games. In his last breaths, Daewon curses Chulwoo-min even after death. He finishes his thought wishing he could have written a will if he had known the end was near. He wonders if he truly passed on, since his thoughts haven't stopped for a second. A virtual game window appears showing the message that Daewon is a new player. The menu says his class will be decided based on his personality and previous life. The analysis is completed and ranks him as a normal class for being a valuable gamer servant. Seeing he's considered important, he's surprised when a prompt appears asking if he accepts a mission. Even in shock, within his thoughts, he accepts the offer. Finally, the window says he will be transported to coordinates set by the administrator. Suddenly, he wakes up in a panic at his desk in the classroom surrounded by his many phones. In shock, he wonders if this place is the classroom he usually attends. As the girl with a crush on him says goodbye, he realizes this is the day before break. Seeing this kind of rewind in time, he gets scared, and the girl finds his reaction strange. Arin notices a shadowed expression on his face and asks if he really made an effort to help her. Before she can do anything, her blonde friend hurries her along, and they leave the scene. Completely perplexed, he wonders what's going on. After all, he had died. He asks himself if it was a dream, but calling all that a dream would be madness. Even though it feels like a dream, a character info window suddenly appears in front of him. Even in this so-called dream, he's just a level 1 gamer servant, and a debuff of powerlessness appears. When he sees this powerlessness status on his character menu, he is in shock. Finally, the window says that all the game experience he's had will be linked to him. He wonders if it's the experience from all the games he's beaten as a gamer servant, because that's a lot. If every game he's ever played is included, his experience will be massive. Before he can find out his experience or the terms of the deal, Chulwoo-min appears and attacks him. That moment when Chulwoo-min attacked him because Daewon lost his character. Suddenly, our protagonist remembers. That was the moment everything began. Because of that bully, Daewon went through terrible things that led to his death. When Chulwoo threatens him, our protag feels that he's terrifying, even in a dream. He wonders why he feels more irritated than he did that day, and Chulwoo asks what that look on his face means. While getting beaten by the white-haired boy, he doesn't even care, assuming it's a dream. Even while telling himself it won't hurt because it's a dream, he feels intense pain. Taking several extremely painful blows, Daewon starts questioning whether this is truly an illusion. Chulwoo-min keeps landing hits on the gamer servant Daewon, who keeps getting beaten up. Eventually, he stops hitting the nerd, who falls onto the classroom desk. Chulwoo says the more he thinks about it, the angrier he gets, and he's not going to stop hitting him. Badly hurt, our protagonist thinks he'll be knocked out before Min's anger even fades. Arin returns to the classroom looking for her phone and finds the nerd all battered. The girl is shocked at the sight of the beaten up boy. At that exact second, Daewon looks into Arin's eyes and then takes another punch. He wonders why she came back to the classroom, and right then, the punch lands on his face. That last punch sends our hero flying and crashing through desks and chairs. Chulwoo-min grabs him by the tie and calls him weak, telling him to stand up. The feeling of getting pummeled in front of the girl he likes is worse than Daewon ever imagined. Arin screams at Chulwoo-min to stop while Daewon feels like a pathetic, powerless idiot. Annoyed, the girl grabs the white-haired bully's arm, trying to stop him from hitting defenseless Daewon. The moment he lets go of the weak nerd, he says his ear isn't a trash can for her nagging. Insane, Chulwoo pulls her hair and asks if she thinks she's all that just because people call her pretty. She screams for him to let go of her hair, or she'll call a teacher. While Daewon watches the scene, Daewon feels a powerful urge and impulse inside to help Arin-ju. Chaotic thoughts race through his mind, but he can't move to help her. Completely unhinged, Chulwoo-min raises his hand to strike Arin and tells her to shut up. At that exact moment, our protag clenches his fist, ready to punch Min, even if he regrets it later. Consumed by fury at this injustice, he knows he has to act and punches Min in the face. But right after, the bully grabs his hand and, extremely angry, gets ready to hit back. Daewon accepts that even if he tries something, it won't matter. He'll just get beaten again. Before that can happen, his experience as a game character is calculated. Daewon reaches max experience level and is promoted to the rare class of Promising Gamer Servant, then promoted to the heroic class of Honored Gamer Servant, and later to the legendary class. Finally, he acquires a specific ability from his legendary class, Superior Gamer Servant. This ability is the Crushing Blow, which he uses to unleash hundreds of punches on Chulwoo-min, who ends up completely beaten with a swollen face, spitting out tomato sauce. Arin-ju is in shock and covers her mouth, stunned by Dawn's actions. Our protag notices that the ability is the same as his characters in the virtual game. A message from the administrator says this is a reward for the favor Dawn once did him. Quickly, he connects the dots and realizes that speech is from Chun the patient. That favor he's referring to was when the protagonist handed over the god tier item. After that, a notification appears for Dawn saying he defeated the monster Cholwu. He receives 200 experience points, reaching an indescribable number. In fact, our gamer servant hero had already reached the maximum experience level, and so our protagonist is promoted to the final class of the secret gamer servant. Back in reality, Dawn Ha is shocked by his absurd and terrifying strength. He wanted to live life as if it were a game, and suddenly that has become reality. His stats start to reach the maximum level, and he wonders what is going on. Since returning from death, he realized he could use abilities just like in virtual games. Renju is stunned by Dawn's sudden strike that took down Cholwu Min. The girl asks where our protagonist learned those techniques. Then Renju warns Dawn Ha about his injuries and wounds on his head. She turns to go find the school nurse, and Dawn wonders if he hit his head. His death, along with the fact he's returned to the past, begins to flash through his mind. Game system windows start appearing in front of his eyes. On top of all that, the skill working exactly like the ones from games feels strange too. He also remembers being obsessed with games since childhood. His intuition tells him this feels a lot like the book he used to read when he was a kid. It's a setup very similar and common in fantasy games, only more developed. The protagonists in that type of story always defeat every monster they meet. They also receive buffs with no exceptions. Not only that, Dawn Ha is also shocked by his maxed out flawless attributes. Another window appears indicating there are still more bonuses to receive for being a gamer servant. He's shocked to see that all his attributes and stats are sealed and reset to 0. He can't believe that at the final class he's become a weakling again and feels it's unfair. He completed an event mission after unleashing his rage and defeating the monster, and now will get a reward. He realizes this was the event mission he accepted the moment he died that day. Suddenly, the golden key listed as the reward in the mission window appears before him. After completing the mission, the system notifies him of receiving the golden key prize. Other students comment on Dawn Ha's injured appearance in the classroom. They say it was Cholwu Min, and that they saw him looking very upset going home the previous day. They guess that Cholwu couldn't vent his anger during the fight and even yelled at the nurse. However, they don't know who hurt Cholwu Min that badly since everyone was on lunch break. No one saw it firsthand, and they're spreading rumors, wishing they had filmed it to post online. Our protagonist looks at the golden key several times and only sees an ordinary object. It's a legendary item that, according to its description, opens a place when used. Our hero is in disbelief seeing that it's used just like a regular key. He puts the item in his pocket and decides to leave it aside for now. After all, his curiosity isn't just about that anymore. He wants to uncover the administrator's identity. When he saw the way the administrator spoke, he immediately thought of the mysterious player from the game. The fact that he called himself the one who brings the end, and Your Highness, makes Doan wonder if he's the administrator. He's eager to get home and contact the mysterious player to ask if it's really him. Suddenly, another mission appears and the panel says he will receive an invitation and must accept it. Doan doesn't understand what kind of invitation he'll receive that night or how to get there. At that moment, someone rushes past our protag and knocks him to the ground. After the crash and the shock, he wonders what just happened while feeling the pain. The boy who knocked him down apologizes, saying he wasn't looking ahead while walking. Dawn says he's fine and asks if the boy is okay, as his nose starts gushing ketchup. The nerd offers to get a tissue to clean the boy's nose, but the boy refuses the offer. Again, the boy refuses Dawn Ha's kind offer, though Dawn insists on getting a cloth for him. He finally accepts and Dawn advises him to be more careful when walking in the hallway. He still can't believe this guy got a nosebleed just from a bump. He notices that the kid is even weaker than he is. The moment our protagonist enters the bathroom, a classmate calls his attention. Shin Jamin is holding a vape in the bathroom and says he needs to talk to Dawn. Dawn greets Jamin and asks if he's started playing the game, but Shin replies that he doesn't play. Shin says he asked because he saw the whole scene of Dawn beating up Cholwu Min. Thinking about it now, he remembers Shin was at the door in his past life when he was threatened. That makes him wonder why he's talking to him now, and if this is some sort of revenge. Jamin comments that he's a servant with secret powers and asks if it's just a disguise. Our protagonist couldn't stand being beaten up that time and doesn't want it to happen again. However, Shin Jamin grabs his tie and says that Dawn Ha is funny. Shin says that tonight he's going out drinking with girls from a nearby girls' school, and he invites our hero to come along, leaving Doan shocked by the invitation to go out at night. He notices it's the same thing that was written in the mission window and wonders if it referred to this. The problem is that would mean going out with Cholwu Min too. He plays dumb and asks if Shin really invited him, and Shin rudely confirms it. Dawn wonders why he's being invited out of nowhere and suspects there's a reason behind it. Our protagonist knows that completing missions in a game means earning rewards. Besides, rewards make characters stronger, and that's a fact. He decides to accept since it's a good chance to gain experience as a game character. But then he reconsiders, thinking it's not a good idea to go where the bullies will be too. So he makes up an excuse, saying there's a memorial tonight for his late grandfather. He gives up the chance to stop being a loser. It's just easier to avoid that kind of life. He also notices a warning that the mission will be dangerous, which gives him a bad feeling. Shin accepts the excuse and says next time he'll save Dawn Ha's seat at the bar. Our hero pretends to be looking forward to meeting Jamin, and their conversation ends. As the boy exits the bathroom, the nerd leans on his knees to catch his breath. and concludes that nothing good comes from going out with bullies like them. A system window notifies that Daewon will be punished for refusing the mission. A punishment warning appears saying that the pain will begin, and he gets scared. Something strange starts happening in our protagonist's body. We see several fierce, massive bulls in a green valley. They snort and charge ferociously at Daewon, hitting him in a very sensitive area. Meanwhile, at school, a few students enter the bathroom to relieve themselves, until they notice Daewon collapse on the floor, wetting himself from the pain, and assume Cholwoo beat him up. Lying on the floor, the nerdy servant feels the sharpest, most unbearable pain of his life. The game's notification window informs him the pain will last for another 59 minutes, crying as he feels the most excruciating pain of his life. Crying from the agony, another notification pops up asking if he really wants to refuse. From inside the bathroom stall, Daewon screams due to the astronomical pain. Meanwhile, in the city at night, we see Shin Jae-min walking through the streets. He gets excited when he sees our protagonist and says the boy arrived early at the meeting spot. In the end, Daewon accepted the mission because he couldn't endure that pain for a whole hour. When asked about the memorial, Daewon lies and says his grandfather was busy. Our hero feels like he's going crazy for coming this far and is overwhelmed with nerves and tension. Shin says that he and Daewon are going to have fun tonight, but finds his expression suspicious, like he's hiding something. Just as he suspected, our hero feels like he should have run away while he still had the chance. At that moment, the prodig grabs his phone and pretends his grandfather is calling so he can escape. However, the girls Shin Jae-min mentioned arrive and are chatting among themselves. All the girls talk about other guys, except for one very beautiful girl who catches Daewon's attention. Attracted by the beauty of the girl who just arrived, he ends up deciding to stay at the bar. He tries to convince himself that he stayed because he was invited, not because of her looks. Seeing his classmates drinking alcohol, he wonders how they managed to drink so much. Shin says a friend works at the place, and whenever he brings his group, they get drinks. Taking advantage of the topic, Jae-min asks how much alcohol Daewon can handle. He replies that he doesn't get drunk, and Shin concludes that he's an alcoholic, even though he's never drunk before. Jae-min tells Daewon not to worry about money since he'll cover the bill at the end. Our protag is surprised by Shin's kindness and starts thinking, maybe he's not that bad after all. While waiting for his wallet to arrive, one of the girls they brought starts singing karaoke. Shocked by this situation, Daewon doesn't understand, and Shin is happy when Jae-han arrives at the venue. Yoo Ji-han is his rich servant who came to the bar to pay the bill and says he paid another one 2 hours ago. At that moment, Daewon remembers bumping into him earlier and realizes he's the rich servant. Shin Jae-min questions whether Ji-han really thinks they're only staying out for another 2 hours. Out of nowhere, with an insane expression, Jae-min scares and threatens Yoo Ji-han, yelling at him. Our hero is stunned by Jae's sudden shift in atmosphere and personality. Shin asks if the two know each other, since they go to the same school, and Daewon says no. Noticing that his rich servant is frozen in place, Shin advises him that he should have a drink. However, just as he goes to pour the drink, he accidentally spills the alcohol on his pants. Pretending it was a mistake, Shin apologizes and says Ji-han should have worn darker pants. Being the target of bullying, Ji-han agrees that he should have come in dark pants. Thinking back on what happened earlier, our prodig recalls the ketchup on Ji-han's nose. And the bathroom he came from was the same one Shin Jae-min had been in. He realizes Shin beat up Ji-han and regrets getting involved with this delinquent. The pretty girl who caught Daewon's attention wonders what's wrong with him. The girls invite Jae-min to sing, but he refuses and says he'd rather get drunk. Shin talks about singing serenades, but they say it would ruin the atmosphere of the place. Then he suggests it could be funny to watch Ji-han dance while singing. Daewon gets irritated by the sheer humiliation being forced upon Ji-han to dance and sing serenades. One of the girls tries to stop Shin from making his servant do that, but he doesn't care. Shin Jae-min says that Ji-han loves to dance and asks threateningly if that's true or not. Ji-han can barely answer and looks sadly at Shin, who places a hand on his shoulder. Then he tells the rich servant that he's embarrassing him in front of the girls. Immediately, Ji-han stands up and says he'll dance, and everyone gets excited about it. Daewon, feeling sorry for him, wonders if the servant has no pride at all. Then he realizes he'd probably do the same thing if it were necessary. Unable to watch this scene of humiliation, the nerd asks to leave the room and go to the bathroom. He knows the only reason Shin doesn't mess with him is because he's a servant with secret power. Possibly due to that sealed status, Daewon currently has no abilities. He's certain it's only a matter of time before he gets caught, and that he's going to be screwed when it happens. Besides that, if it weren't for the penalty he received, he would have fled the mission already. While thinking about it, he concludes that since he came to the bar, he's fulfilled the mission now. He decides to leave before getting involved in bigger problems, and feels sorry for the rich servant. He knows he must escape since he doesn't have the power to save anyone, not even himself. In Daewon's mind, he reflects on how both bullies speak to him in the same way, and he realizes the rich servant is in the exact same situation as he is. After taking too long to return from the bathroom, Jae-min notices his absence and asks why. When asked about the whereabouts of something, Jae thinks he's referring to the girls. Daewon asks where the pants of the rich servant Yoo Ji-han are. Shin Jae-min says he felt bad for spilling on them, so now he's washing them. Our prodig feels fear after asking that question and seeing Shin's expression, but decides to confront him. He acts like a true servant with secret powers and commands him to hand over the pants. He thinks that by insisting in such an authoritative way, Shin Jae-min will have no choice. At that exact moment, someone arrives at the bar saying it took a while to settle some business. A tattooed and muscular man holding tomato sauce asks who that kid is. Shin tells Do-won to greet the man and mentions that he's his friend's older brother. The protag is in shock upon seeing the size of this high schooler who looks like he's in a gang. He also becomes extremely frightened by the red marks on his face. Shin Jae-min asks what our protagonist wanted to say to him. Not knowing what to do, Do-won feels distressed by the sensation of being trapped in this situation. To escape this tense moment, he asks the bully for the microphone. Relieved, he feels safe and sane and thinks he shouldn't hide his power. After all, he was nearly eliminated. The dangerous invitation mission is completed and a chain mission begins. A virtual window appears, explaining that he must strike Shin with the microphone within 30 minutes. If he does it within the required time, he'll receive a copper key as a reward. Our protagonist refuses to do it because he feels a paralyzing fear. However, a message appears saying that if he doesn't complete the mission, he'll suffer a penalty. When he reads the word penalty, he immediately remembers the bull torture and gets scared. Shin says his friend Man looks like a killer now, and the girls comment on his face. Man Chun says it must have splashed when he beat up people along the way. Man Chun Yuk, also 18, sitting on top of Jihan, complains about him trembling. The guy threatens him not to let him fall, and Shin Jae-min laughs hard at the humiliating scene. Do-won considers this even worse than the mission to hit Shin in the head with a bottle. With a threatening tone, the muscular guy says what's funny is that Do-won beat up Chol Woo-min. Shin says Do-won is strong, but Man Chun sees neither potential nor strength in the protagonist. He feels stuck at a crossroads because he thinks they'll eliminate him if he completes the mission. But he also feels he'll be eliminated if he refuses and suffers the penalty. If Do-won could still use his skills like that day, he'd have more courage. Looking at his skill tree, the crushing blow is sealed and inactive. Our protagonist feels doomed because of that seal and starts to panic in the bar. While that's happening, the mission notification window shows only 15 minutes left. At that moment, Shin Jae-min decides to ask Do-won a question out of curiosity. He asks why Do-won allows bullies to treat him badly if he has the strength to take them all down. Our hero doesn't know how to explain and answers that he gained this strength because of a game. Shin says he doesn't need to answer, he must have his reasons, and that he called him there for a purpose. Do-won thinks it's something big, like a threat to stop messing with Shin's friends. Excited, Shin asks our protagonist to join him and says they should stick together. Our protag takes the comment the wrong way and wonders if Shin likes boys. Shin says he needs Do-won's strength to take over the Gwanak district. The nerd doesn't understand why the bully wants his help to dominate an entire district. Shin says he'll get benefits, like drinks and cigarettes. He'll also earn money, property, and other things, like women for example. Jae-min puts a hand on his shoulder and says Do-won can have anything he wants if he helps him. Do-won doesn't intend to accept in exchange for such shallow things and says he doesn't want anything in particular. Our protagonist doesn't want to team up with those delinquents. However, Shin Jae-min asks if he wants to remain just a gamer vassal. Shin asks if he wants revenge against the bullies who intimidated him and says he can do that now. Do-won ponders the idea of overpowering these people and swapping places with them. He thinks that if he teams up with Jae-min, he'll never be treated in such a humiliating way again. Shin goes to the bathroom and tells Do-won he can think about the offer in the meantime. Do-won believes it's divine will that gave him all this power to change his life. He thinks he can live a second life with popular people and not as a gamer servant anymore. Amid these delusions, Yoo Ji-han calls our protagonist's attention. He asks if the golden key that fell from Do-won's pocket earlier is his. The protag hadn't noticed he dropped the mission reward because he was distracted. Our nerdy hero thanks Ji-han, who says he has something that might sound strange to say. He gives Do-won advice not to hang around Shin Jae-min. Do-won doesn't want to keep living like a loser and doesn't want to miss this chance. Yoo Ji-han says all this because he felt Do-won isn't a bad guy and apologizes. At that moment, the notification window indicates only 3 minutes remain to attack Shin. In a panic, Do-won realizes he didn't notice the time passing and is afraid of extreme punishment. He stands up and considers that if he can endure this 1 hour, it will be the highlight of his life. However, not wanting to embarrass himself in front of the girls, he decides to leave the room until it passes. Suddenly, we see a green hill with a herd of elephants. There's a story that says when elephants face their own death, they choose to walk away from the herd and accept their fate alone. Just like our protagonist at this moment, who went to isolate himself in a distant room. He covers his mouth with a cloth and braces himself with anguish and fear for the punishment. The notification window alerts that only 30 seconds remain until the punishment is applied. Do-won would rather fail the mission than stay close to Shin Jae-min. With 20 seconds left, he decides this is the best way to escape his life as a gamer servant. He knows this is the only option and prepares for the pain that's about to strike him. The bully who looks like a gangster asks to sing a karaoke song since he's drunk. The girls make fun of Yuk's song choices, calling them too old and dramatic. However, the girls notice the microphone suddenly disappeared from the table. Shin Mei comes back from the bathroom with a stomachache and thinks the school snack made him sick. While he's distracted by the stomach pain, Do-won appears behind him holding a bottle. Quickly and suddenly, he smashes the bottle over the bully's head by surprise. Shin is struck and passes out instantly, unable to handle the blow. The mission Judge of Injustice is finally completed by our nerdy protagonist. He comes to the conclusion that he'd rather live as a loser than become a bully like them. Excited that Shin was knocked out with one hit, he decides to dump the body in a deserted spot. Before leaving after attacking Shin, he worries about Jihan being in the same room as the tattooed guy. Then suddenly he looks down and is surprised to see Shin Jamin's phone on the ground. Meanwhile, in the bathroom, the tattooed guy is drunkenly singing karaoke. In the middle of his emotional singing, he notices something odd that grabs his attention. A message from Jamin arrives calling him a pig and saying he sings horribly. The tattooed guy is enraged after reading Shin Jamin's message. Dawn uses Shin's phone while he's unconscious, treating it as a bonus move. In the message, our hero asks the tattooed guy to stay alone and wait for a fight. At that exact moment, while planning his escape, a huge presence appears behind him. Looking up, our protagonist sees the tattooed gangster glaring at him from above. Dawn-ha is in shock and wonders why the brute is there. A new mission appears, saying Yuk is enraged by the provocation and will start a fight. Right after this window appears for Dawan, the brute kicks him in the back, sending him flying. The force and the fall make the gamer servant hit his head on the ground and get thrown. Yuk crouches in front of Dawan and says those messages couldn't possibly be real. After all, Jamin doesn't text Yuk Man-chun when he's drunk. After saying that, the massive figure grabs the nerd by the collar and punches him hard in the face. While beating our protagonist, the gangster says Jamin actually liked him. Then he grabs the nerd's head and slaps him hard across the face, saying it was disgraceful for Dawan to repay someone like that who once reached out to him. Before the gamer servant nerd can finish his sentence, the gangster slaps him again. He says Dawan is just a loser and doesn't understand why Jamin wanted him in the group. When the brute asks why Shin Jamin is passed out on the floor, he quickly notices something strange and says he already suspected what had happened. Then he looks in Dawan's pocket, notices the crumpled microphone, and calls him a coward. Dawan says the real cowards are people like him who intimidate the weak and steal from them. But before he can finish his speech, he's thrown across the room by the giant. At that moment, he crashes into a wall stacked with bags of flour. Yuk says it's not his fault Jihan is weak and that Dawan will be the next servant. In great pain, our hero lies motionless, thrown onto the pile of flour sacks. Then he notices the golden key right next to him and holding it in his hand wonders where to use it. A tip from the administrator says the key should be inserted into a lock. However, our protagonist remains confused as he hasn't seen any lock in the area. Suddenly, his skill window opens and a new hidden technique appears. He then sees the shape of a keyhole and quickly inserts the golden key into it. Next, he turns the key to unlock it and something shines before his eyes. The brute asks if Shin Jamin is alive and if he's okay. Shin says he's hurt and Yuk mocks him for getting beaten up by a weakling. Dawan returns and says that if he doesn't face Yuk now, he won't be an honorable man. Yuk Man-chun finds it interesting that Dawan-ha has pride as well. Our hero is hiding the fact that the system ordered him to face Yuk, or else he'll be punished. Man-chun gets really excited by his opponent's courage and pride and charges forward. Just as Yuk rushes toward the nerd, Dawan is surrounded by a strange and powerful aura. Our protagonist wonders why the system of this game gave him powers, and why it's leading him into dangerous battles like the one he's about to face. He realizes the reason is because they want to see him, and in that moment, he moves to punch Yuk. He shouts that the giant is doomed now, while a strong blue aura flares around him. During that moment, our protag remembers his childhood and a nerd who played arcade games. He had a unique and unusual style of playing those games that made him a legend. Everyone would get excited when Master Zobarano won at video games. That boy's weapon was literally being a slave to virtual games. Little Dawan, at 10 years old, was deeply impressed by the boy's skills. The boy's special ability was having vassals thanks to his crushing technique. His Hawk technique made him unbeatable in video games. This ability, Hawk's Descent, costs 120 mana points and is a kick that knocks out the target. Seeing that he unlocked the ability to use this head kick, Dawan thinks it'll come in handy, even considering the weight difference between them and how strong Yuk's punch is. He imagines he can win with just this ability against his enormous and pig-like opponent. Then suddenly, a notification window alerts our protag that he's out of mana. He's shocked by the sudden news, and Yuk's punch gets closer and closer. He realizes there's nothing he can do and just takes the full punch right on the chin. He goes flying and lands on the ground behind his enemy, Yuk Man-chun. Yuk wonders what's wrong with the nerd who yelled like he had an ace up his sleeve. On the floor, wounded and groaning in pain, Dawan becomes completely furious with the game's insane system. After all, he has only 100 mana, and Hawk's Descent costs 120 points. He can't understand it. He thinks maybe the golden key was a reward for being beaten up by Chulwoo Min. When he stops to think about the golden key reward, he reaches a conclusion. He remembers the reward for the mission where he hit Shin Jamin with the microphone. He recalls that the reward for that mission was a bronze key. Looking around the room he's in, he wonders where the key is since it's not visible. He remembers that the key from the Jamin mission fell right beneath the window. Knowing that he completed that mission in the bathroom, he thinks the key might still be there. With no choice, he decides to take the risk and go there. But before he reaches the door, Yuk grabs him. The brute punches our hero in the ribs and asks where he thinks he's going. Looking again at our protagonist, he senses that maybe Dawan isn't a weakling after all. Then the gamer servant collapses, and Yuk calls him a rat. He feels his body at its limit and can barely stand up after being knocked down by Yuk. He decides to retreat and escape the situation. He's going to look for the key. Still unsure of what to do, he sees the enemy placing his hand in front of the path. Just as he starts to run, the giant puts a hand on his face, getting in his way. Yuk Man Chun knocks Dawn down again and says he should stop getting back up and trying. Dawn starts laughing and the giant puts his foot on Dawn's head, asking if he's gone insane. Our protagonist asks if Yuk doesn't think there's something funny going on here. He asks if Man Chun really believes he caused all this chaos alone without a plan. The brute claims he's just bluffing to stay alive, but Dawn keeps persuading him. In the end, our hero says he was just buying time, and the elevator opens behind Yuk. Our protag shouts for whoever's inside the elevator to attack the bully with everything they got. Yuk the bully is shocked by Dawn's outburst and becomes afraid. But when he turns to look, there's no one inside the elevator, and that leaves him frozen. This fills him with rage toward the gamer slave Dawn Ha. He turns around ready to attack the boy, saying he's going to eliminate him, but Dawn is already gone. Meanwhile, the protag runs through the hallways with all the strength he can muster. Dawn didn't expect the elevator strategy to actually work and says Yuk is really dumb. Now that he managed to escape, he's in a panic looking for the bronze key. However, in the middle of his run, he collapses to the ground like a sack of potatoes. He soon gets up with great effort, fighting against the weakness in his legs to keep moving. At the end of the hallway, far behind the protagonist, stands the hulking bully Yuk. Cracking his knuckles with a manic expression, the tattooed gangster orders Dawn to stay still. Our hero thinks this is the end, since he no longer has the strength to run or escape. Just when he feels it's all over and glances to the side, he finally finds the bronze key. As soon as he grabs the item, a description appears saying it unlocks sealed attributes. Outraged, he wishes the game had done this from the beginning and asks to see the character info. When he looks at the character status menu, he notices a key symbol in the middle of the status window. At that same moment, the big guy starts charging at him, filled with rage. Quickly and suddenly, before being caught by Yuk Man, he inserts the key into the lock. He urges the system to hurry, adrenaline rushing through his body. A choice must be made to permanently boost one of his stats. He knows that to use his abilities, he needs more mana, and it seems he's made his decision. So he shouts out his choice to increase his mana points in the character system. Meanwhile, the gangster gets dangerously close to landing a powerful punch. His mana points are unlocked and increased by 100 points. Just before being hit by Yuk Man Chun, he dodges to the side, avoiding the attack. Our protagonist places his foot on Yuk's thigh and prepares to unleash the Falcon Drop Strike. He jumps over the man, soaring above him, lightning circling around his leg. The secret class skill, Falcon Drop, is activated by Dawn Ha. An aerial kick from above strikes the enemy directly on the head, charged with electricity. The skill-powered kick hits perfectly, smashing the brute on the top of his massive head. A lot of tomato sauce spurts from his nose, and his eyes roll back from the pain. At that moment, a message appears for Dawn saying he has defeated the monster Yuk Man Chun. His enemy falls to his knees and then collapses unconscious on the ground, defeated. While our hero feels incredibly cool and lands lightly with his feet on the ground. His reward for winning the battle is the missing silver key. Even completely exhausted, Dawn Ha grabs the silver key he received. Now that reality hits the gamer servant, he can't believe he actually won this fight. Just as he thinks he can finally go home, Shin Jamin wakes up and appears in the hallway. Very angry at Dawn Ha, the delinquent Shin asks what happened between them. In shock, our hero stammers when he sees Shin has woken from the knockout. Then someone else appears. A giant man from the karaoke bar asks why his brother Yuk is lying on the ground. Yuk Manok, 19 years old, works at the karaoke bar and is Yuk's older brother. He gets furious at Dawn. Right away, our protagonist remembers Shin mentioning Yuk Man Chun's older brother. Face to face with the giant, muscular man, Dawn feels like this is truly his end. Other delinquents show up, asking what that loud crash was a moment ago. The tattooed, strange boys notice Man Chun, the brute, unconscious on the floor. Again, our prodigal remembers Shin saying he used to drink at this bar with his friends. Realizing he has only 80 mana points and 12 health left, he knows he has no strength to run, let alone mana points to activate any of his special abilities. Exhausted and injured, Dawn Ha states that he's totally screwed now that he's cornered. Dozens of Shin Jamin's delinquent friends block Dawn from escaping the place. Yuji Han is out on the street at night, alone, wondering if it's really okay to be wandering like this. He knew the message sent from Shin Jamin to Yuk Man Chun was fake. Yuji Han had been dismissed by the bullies, who had another matter to deal with. But he knew the only one who would dig his own grave in a place full of gangsters would definitely be Dawn. After all, it was his first time there, and he still didn't know the rules. Also, the last message telling everyone to go home seemed like it was meant to save Jihan. Worried about Dawn Ha, the boy hopes he'll be okay and get out of that situation safely. Shin Jamin asks why Dawn did that. He never wanted to be his enemy. Meanwhile, in our protag's mind, he can't see any way out of this situation. The gangsters threaten him, saying he won't escape, and he thinks he's going to be eliminated today. A karaoke staff member announces that the police have arrived and that everything went wrong. The man says someone called the police from the first floor and tells everyone to escape using the stairs. All the gang delinquents are disappointed because they wanted to beat up the nerd. Carrying his brother over his shoulder, Yuk Manak says Dawn Ha is incredibly lucky. Shin Jamin threatens our hero, saying they won't forget what happened there. Relieved that he's alive, our protagonist thinks he should also run away through the stairs. But at that moment, he feels something happening in his body, like an internal shock. Only one day after experiencing death, he was beaten by Chulwoo Min and Yuk Man Chun. On top of that, there are the side effects from using two abilities that his body can barely handle. The moment all the accumulated stress leaves his body, Daewon simply passes out. Slowly waking up and seeing a woman in front of him, he wonders what happened. He asks the girl where he is, and she asks if our protagonist is finally awake. He recognizes her as one of the 3 toughest girls, and she says he should have woken up sooner. When he tries to ask why she's there, the tough girl covers his mouth to keep him quiet. Seeing that they're in a bathroom, she tells him to keep his voice down. The tough girl says they're in a women's restroom, so he needs to speak softly. Whispering, our protagonist asks why they're there. She says the police are still at the bar and mentions they won't come into the women's bathroom. Daewon asks who made the report, and she says she reported the underage drinking. Our protag is confused. After all, she was drinking too, and asks if she did it to save him. The girl says she saw our protagonist when he was fighting Yuk Man. She says she thought he was just a loser, though it seems he doesn't care about collateral damage. Thinking she might have fallen for his charm, Daewon asks how he can repay the favor. At first she refuses, but after he insists, she asks him to grant her a wish. Getting really close to say it, the gamer servant turns red from embarrassment and is left speechless. The next day comes at dawn, and Daewon wakes up with his mom calling him. As soon as he picks up, his mother starts scolding him and yelling loudly. He asks why she's mad. After all, he hadn't talked to her for just 1 day because he was tired. But his mom says it's actually been 3 days since they last talked. Now that she knows he's okay, she says she has to get back to work. Meanwhile, he's shocked by the information that he slept for 3 whole days. After the karaoke night, our protagonist really did go straight home to sleep, which is understandable, considering it was the first time he ever fought in his life. Another reason is that he dealt with 3 delinquent bullies in 1 day, even if Shin didn't fight him. Now that some time has passed since the fight, Daewon feels like the victory was easy and no big deal. He feels very strong and extremely hungry, and now that his body and mind are recovered, the first thing he wants to do is log into the game and contact the administrator. But when he searches for the mysterious player, the one who brings the end, there are no results. He didn't think things would be easy, but still, it was unexpected that his account had been deleted. Daewon figures that mysterious man doesn't want to communicate with him. He never responded after all. The mysterious game admin only communicates with Daewon through the system. If that's how it's going to be, our protagonist decides to learn the whole system on his own. The 3 things he knows are: the system is similar to an RPG game. There are levels, stats, and classes, so he's no different from a game character. Also, the system treats delinquents like monsters, and defeating them grants rewards. It's just like hunting monsters in a game and receiving items in return. And the third point is that using the keys makes him stronger, so he starts searching for the item. When he picks up the silver key, he sees its description saying it unlocks a passive ability. The 3 types of keys unlock different things, and the abilities unlocked will not be sealed again. The first ability was the Crushing Strike, and it was sealed afterwards since it was unlocked through class effects. Later it was unlocked again using another specific key, and the other piece of information he has is about the penalty, though his biggest problem is actually something else. The real issue was becoming the target of Shin Ja-min's gang of delinquents. Now that things have turned out this way, he decides to deeply meditate. He chooses to think about it for the rest of spring break and goes to answer the door to get his food. A new system notification says that the girl wants to go out with him and that he should accept and satisfy her. When the nerdy and introverted gamer reads this, he's shocked, thinking it was just his takeout. He slowly opens the door and finds the woman he met earlier on the other side. Daewon asks why she's there, and she says it was promised to her that her wish would be granted. The woman takes off her coat and says she's going to explain what she wants now, and tells Daewon to take something off. This leaves our hero in shock, especially since the mission title says he will become a man. Still without an answer, wondering if this is really what he thinks it is, she tells him to hurry up and take it off. Again, the girl insists he take his clothes off, and the nerd is embarrassed. After all, he's never done this before. A system notification appears in front of him, asking if he will accept or not. Completely stunned, he asks the tough girl to repeat herself, and she repeats the phrase for him. This makes him wonder if people can really just do this out of nowhere without even talking first. Taking off his clothes, Daewon gets excited that his first time has finally arrived. The girl quickly asks if his other clothes are in the room, and he doesn't really understand. He realizes she doesn't want to do anything yet and gets embarrassed, and she tells him to turn off the heater. Daewon asks why she didn't turn it off herself, and how she found his place, and she says she didn't have his number. She says she found his address while dragging him across the ground 3 days ago. After all, she discovered it by looking at the apartment card in his phone case. She asks if those nerdy clothes are the only ones he has, and Daewon says his mom bought them. Daewon can't help but feel that the day to finally do something intimate has arrived. But when she says they need to go shopping, the mission title changes, and he understands. Even so, he gets excited about going shopping with a girl for the first time. Some time passes, and inside the clothing store, the protag feels confused. He doesn't understand why people wear clothes like this and use fake tattoos. The girl says he can't look weak, especially since they'll be spending the day together and going somewhere afterward. Even uncomfortable with this fashion style, she says this is what she wants, and he obeys. While he's trying on another outfit, she looks for more options among the many clothes. Daewon comes out looking very different, with black pants, a black jacket, and black boots. He feels strange as it's the first time he's dressed in a cooler, more stylish way. Excited, he forgets about the mission for a moment, until he sees the objective is now to take her out to eat. The system makes it feel like a game, and Dawn feels like asking the girl out isn't that hard. Feeling confident, he says he's hungry and invites her to eat, and the girl agrees. At that moment, our protagonist feels a bit of frustration toward himself and wants to punch himself. After all, they didn't talk for 30 minutes, and he wonders if she didn't like the food. When he stops to think, he realizes he doesn't know her name and asks. She replies that her name is Cyan. The conversation dies again, and he misses having his mom around because things used to be easier. Cyan asks if there's anything else making him curious about her. Saying he knows nothing about her, he asks what he should ask first. She simply replies that he'll learn more about her with time. After all, they'll be seeing each other more. Standing up from the table, she tells him to hurry up because they still have things to do. The mission updates again, and now, to become a man, he needs to take the girl to the movies. Dawn feels happy for experiencing this for the first time, and then invites her for a coffee. He then sings a song for Cyan, and it makes him question the purpose of this mission. He thought the system only made him fight bullies in exchange for rewards. The sixth step of the mission begins, and he takes the girl to an arcade. Thinking it through, he realizes this is a date and tries to impress her at the arcade. With heavy breathing and sweating, he feels his charm might work on her. While the girl looks at plush toys, some nerds try to invite Dawn to a club. As soon as our protagonist sees the plushie machine, he walks away, saying he needs to go to the bathroom. Dawn excuses himself from Cyan. 10 minutes pass, and the nerd returns with a dozen fish plushies to impress Cyan. Confidently, he says it'll be tough if she ends up falling for him hard. At that moment, he sees the girl returning and smiles as soon as his eyes meet hers. Just when he thinks it's the happiest day of his life, a man shows up and pulls his hair. The bully asks who Dawn thinks he is to call Cyan's name in such a loving way. Dawn starts crying as the delinquent yanks his hair with force. Our protagonist wonders who this guy is and how he knows Cyan. Somehow, Dawn recognizes him from somewhere. He feels familiar. Cyan yells at the guy, named Sehun Kang, telling him to let go of nerdy Doan. Our prodag thought everything was going well, until this happened and ruined everything. The gamer servant waits for the system to notify him that he must defeat this bully. At that moment, Cyan shocks everyone by saying the shy nerd is her boyfriend. This stuns both of them, and Doan blushes as she tells Sehun to leave. The beautiful girl helps Doan up and tells him to ignore Sehun as they walk away. However, before leaving, our hero wants to go back and pick up the fish plushies he dropped. Still processing the news, the bully can't believe Doan is Cyan's boyfriend. Afternoon arrives in the city, and the gamer nerd can't stop thinking about what the girl told him. Distracted in the street, lost in thoughts about that word she said, he gets carried away. Until Cyan says they've arrived and tells him to follow her no matter what happens. When she says it was promised they'd spend the whole day together, the system prompts him to enter the building. Once inside, the girl presses the button for the 7th floor. Dawn feels certain that she's taking him somewhere to get intimate. Seeing the elevator's destination, Dawn asks if they can slow down so he can prepare. Cyan tells him the only thing he needs to do is stay still. She'll handle the rest. Our prodag wants to convince her to change her mind so he won't fail the mission. Seeing that the rooms on the 7th floor are closed, he asks why they're there. As they move further into the hallway, the nerd realizes he's at a gathering of bullies. He then sees a room full of people with a microphone in the center, which confuses him. A sort of judge strikes a gavel and tells everyone in the room to stay silent. He announces that the regular meeting of the Gwanaku City bullies will now begin. He adds that it's their first agenda and brings up the Kirokwar incident. This man says the topic of this first meeting is how to deal with Dawn-ha. The delinquents in the room think the kid looks way too normal to have beaten 3 gangsters. Our hero is in shock hearing the men present talk about eliminating him. They hold a vote to see who wants to defeat Dawn, and everyone raises their hand. He's completely stunned to see that everyone agreed to take him out. At that moment, it's decided that Dawn-ha is now the target of all 497 members of the Gwanaku bullies. The mission ends, and a message appears saying that a man thrives on the thrill of risking his life. Bullies is a term teenagers use for school-based groups involved in criminal activities. They are loyal to their instincts, love to show off, and live a carefree lifestyle. The main reason they enjoy it without worry is because they always move in groups. There are many ways to control and lead these groups. In the Gwanaku district, bullies use intense and mature methods to manage their crews. Dawn wonders what's wrong with these delinquents who don't seem to think about anything. In shock while reading the system message, he tries to understand the process of becoming a man. There's also a warning that in chain missions, the reward is only obtained in the final mission. Seeing how strangely Cyan acted, he asks if she set him up in an ambush. The man in a suit holding a hammer declares the matter closed, and Dawn tries to figure out who he is. Cyan Sunbae tells him to wait and says they need to move on to the next item on the agenda. The bullies make rude comments toward her and ask who the guy by her side is. With his back to the delinquents, Dawn is terrified of them and of being taken out in that place. Cyan and the leader intend to discuss a second topic, which is a seat on the Council of Delinquents. When the man in the suit mentions a representative election, Dawn thinks they're politicians. Cyan says she found a perfect person for the role, even though the nerd is trying to run away. Speaking like a congresswoman, she nominates our hero for the position of representative of Boromaidan. However, she doesn't pretend. Cyan says Dawn has name out loud in front of all of them. Our hero is shocked by the girl's risky move to throw him into this world. All the bullies think it's madness to nominate the guy who was just being discussed to become their representative. The judge of the group asks if it wouldn't be risky to promote a guy who attacked them. Cyan proves otherwise and says if he defeated 3 guys in one day, he can be part of the group. One of the delinquents mocks Unsung after she says that defeating members of the group counts as qualification. Unsung Ha, the representative of Silendong at just 18 years old, agrees with her. Afraid, the gamer servant says he has no intention of joining the gang of delinquents. Cyan tells him to consider how dangerous his situation is, being just an 18-year-old boy. Seeing all those criminals raise their hands to approve eliminating him if they see him on the street. She argues that if he joins the council, the delinquents won't be able to punish him. Dawn thanks her for the concern, but the girl says she's not doing it for him. After all, some other jerk wants the position, and she'd rather it be Dawn than that guy. As the elevator opens, the man who attacked him earlier at the meeting with Cyan appears. Immediately, our hero remembers seeing him at the arcade. Kang Soo-hoon appears, asking why Cyan didn't tell him about the assembly. The Boromaidan associate realizes she made up the boyfriend thing to hide. Kang Si-hoon says that even though she was against him becoming the representative, that was excessive. Suddenly, he puts his hand around the boy's neck and begins choking him, asking what she wants there. Feeling like he can't breathe, Dawn feels crushed like under a boulder and begs to be released. The judge orders them to stop, saying this is a formal meeting, and announces Dawn as the new leader of Boromaidan. Kang Si-hoon tries to argue that he will become the area's representative, and Cyan fights back. The delinquents think Dawn Ha is a weakling, while others start checking out the girl. Seeing there are 2 people nominated for the position, the judge notes things have reached another level. Kang Si-hoon releases our hero, and the man says they'll be forced to do something about it. All the bullies start standing up, and Dawn tries to say he does. Taking advantage of his enemy's back turned, he quickly uses Falcon Drop and delivers the aerial kick. The other delinquents are impressed seeing Dawn's special ability up close. However, Kang Si-hoon is known as Granite of Boromai and has extremely high endurance. Shocked, our protagonist wonders if the attack was too weak, since it was blocked so easily. Kang Si-hoon defends the protagonist's special technique and says the move startled him. But he finds it strange. After all, even the brute Yuk Man Chun was knocked out with 1 strike. With insufficient mana, he can only use his abilities once and can't win without them. This means our hero is in trouble, and at that moment, he's caught in a chokehold. The chokehold lifts the gamer nerd off the ground and fills him with fear. Automatically, he pats Kang Si-hoon to let him go, but it doesn't help. He says he'll only release Dawn-ha once he knocks him unconscious that way. At that moment, the protag understands why this bully felt so familiar to him. After all, the man changed so much that he could barely recognize him like this. He remembers a summer 5 years ago that was extremely and especially hot. During that season, he was also strangled. An extremely chubby boy used to choke our protagonist in the same sadistic way. Back then, they were both 13, but Kang Si-hoon was already very overweight and a bully. At the time, fainting games were common, and it happened to him often. Kang would even do it while they were eating and made the boy finish all his food. Even when they were in the bathroom doing their business, he wasn't released until he was done. Because of that, Dawn passed out multiple times and lived in constant fear of blacking out again. But even more than that, he feared the situation he'd wake up to afterward. Because of Kang Si-hoon, he went through countless humiliations in front of the whole class and girls. Since then, he's become especially nervous around women and turned into a complete loser. In the present, Dawn collapses to the ground, nearly unconscious, wishing people like Kang would suffer. He wonders how Kang Si-hoon managed to lose weight, get good looking, and attract girls. The more our protagonist thinks about it, the angrier he gets at the bully. He can't stand the idea of losing to him and hears the delinquents calling him weak in the room. As soon as he gets up, the bullies say he doesn't stand a chance. Thinking about that word he just heard, our hero asks himself what his chances of winning are. After all, the skill that could help him win was blocked immediately by Kang. Against Si-hoon's chokehold, there's nothing he can do but tap out. Once the bully declares himself the representative of Boromaidan, the nerd doesn't know what to do. Just as he's about to give up, he stands back up and faces the bully once again. Kang Si-hoon says if he insists, Daewon-ha might end up much more hurt. Taking off his jacket, the nerd gamer says that from now on, he's going to beat up the gangster. The moment he comes up with a plan and throws his jacket to the ground, everyone stops to watch. No one can believe the number of punches being thrown by the skinny nerd boy, but they're incredibly weak punches, easily blocked by Kang Si-hoon without any effort. Straining himself, our hero feels he just has to keep going a little longer to make it work. He remembers 7 hours ago when he was searching his pants for an object. The reward he got after defeating Yuk Man Chun was a silver key, a heroic item. He also recalls that this item unlocked passive abilities, and he did that earlier. The passive skills unique to his class were activated at that moment. One of them is the critical hit, which can break through defense with a 1% chance. This passive skill doesn't consume mana and can ignore defense to land a critical attack. But he feels it's cruel. The odds are so low that it hardly ever happens. It means that only 1 out of 100 strikes will be a critical hit. In his current situation, he realizes there's no choice but to land that critical hit. Since he has no other options, he uses the strategy of throwing punches nonstop. All the delinquents start laughing, and Cyan Sunbae feels embarrassed by the scene. He knows that if he keeps punching, one of them will land as a critical hit, and he's close to 100. Seeing that his opponent is distracted, he knows this is the best chance, and he's nearing 80 punches. It makes him question whether the critical hit should have activated by now. Blocking every punch up to the 100th, Kang Si-hoon thinks Do-won-ha looks ridiculous. Finally, he reaches the last and 100th punch, and that one lands right in the center of Kang's chest. He starts sweating cold, thinking it didn't work, and his opponent asks what he's even doing. In games, there's a random number generator, an irreplaceable factor. The random number generator gives everyone a chance to succeed at something. That satisfaction of achieving success in real life is much harder to obtain. At 13 years old, Do-won-ha used his English class money to pay for game upgrades. Exactly because of that feeling of satisfaction, gamers challenge the odds every day. At the time, he used the English money, and the RNG didn't help him. He didn't get the item he wanted. Even knowing the next failure would be the end, Do-won-ha in the past decided to take the risk. The random number generator also equally brings a chance of despair. Back in the present, our nerdy hero finally lands a punch on the bully's chest. He wonders why it didn't work, since he landed every one of the 100 punches. In theory, one of them should have been a critical hit and knocked his opponent out, but he fails and gets caught. His rival grabs him by the neck and throws his body upward, intending to slam him down. Kang says he needs a destructive blow to win, and demonstrates it with Do-won. Do-won hits his head with massive impact on a pile of bricks, and is badly hurt. Kang thought he had a plan with that combo of punches, but it was just a bluff. Even if there had been strategy, Kang lost 130 kilos cutting and drying every part of his body. After saying the nerd wouldn't even scratch him, Do-won tries to say something. Lying on the floor, injured, he says that back in middle school, Se-hun Kang was a fat, stupid jerk. Se-hun Kang doesn't remember him, and Do-won says it's typical for bullies to forget their victims. He says the victims carry that pain for life, while bullies just forget it ever happened. Making the bully stop and think, our protagonist regrets talking so much. He asks what he's supposed to do since Kang doesn't even remember him, and tells him to back off. Desperate, he starts delivering several instinctive, irrational kicks, shouting for him to stay away. Completely ignoring the request, Kang grabs the foot of the gamer nerd. Then the thug throws him far away, making him crash into tables and chairs. Looking down at the weakling on the ground, he asks if he's still the same. He asks if Do-won-ha remembers every single toy he played with as a child. Cyan Sunbae is upset seeing the boy in such a miserable state. A man in a suit, a district representative, tells the weak nerd to give up the fight now. Han Unsung, the representative of Silundong, says this match is a waste of time. He says one side has already lost all will to keep going. Our hero feels incredibly guilty for relying on a 1% chance to win. He's certain he has no chance at all against this monster, but he knows that if he gives up, the other delinquents will take him out, and he doesn't know what to do. Han Unsung coldly says the fight is already over. Do-won-ha slams his hand against the floor and yells that the fight isn't over yet. Then he starts getting up with great effort and declares that he hasn't given up on fighting. His opponent finds him annoyingly persistent and asks if he's not tired of getting beaten up. Cyan can't believe that even without a chance to win, Do-won still won't give up. Even broken, our protagonist furiously walks toward the exit after Kang. Distracting him to escape as quickly as possible is the best solution Do-won can find. Threatened by the bully, he's already thinking about moving to a deserted island far away. Do-won makes a flimsy excuse and knows he needs to run for the exit as fast as he can. Without thinking too much, he decides the moment has come and begins sprinting through the room. But accidentally, he drops his jacket and trips over the piece of clothing, losing balance. Nearly falling on top of his enemy, he tells himself he should never have taken off his jacket. As he stumbles, he uses the palm of his hand to regain balance and activates a critical hit that sends the bully flying. After receiving an incredibly strong critical and being launched by just a tap, Kang crashes into the wall. Kang Si-hoon falls, head bowed, leaving the elevator door dented behind him. The delinquents can't believe they just saw Kang Si-hoon get launched like that. Cyan Sunbae is speechless after witnessing Do-won-ha's powerful strike. The gangsters say they know what happened and suggest that Do-won focused energy in his palm. They call it the Flame Dragon Emperor's Iron Palm that destroys skeletons and organs, when in reality, the system simply notifies our hero that he landed a critical hit. He's proud of hitting him in the chest and didn't expect much, since it was just a passive ability. Just when he thinks he's finally won this fight, Kang Si-hoon coughs and starts getting up. Severely injured, Kang is in disbelief that Do-won-ha has this much strength while pretending to be weak. Getting up after such a powerful hit, Kang becomes furious and says he's going to eliminate Do-won. Everyone in the room notices that the nerdy boy is now trembling from head to toe in fear. Then he gives a small smile, and the delinquents in the room find it very strange. Our protagonist doesn't think the feeling of despair is fair. After all, most gamers experience it, and even then, they never stop trying. The nerdy servant thinks it's better to try everything and get no results than to simply give up. He remembers a user who succeeded using the random number generator. Seeing another player's success, our hero felt inspired to win in the game too. He kept trying to get the item since he still had the literature tutor's money to spend. Despair turns into hope, and that's why players around the world put their faith in RNG. That's what Do-won-ha does, trying to land a full force punch on Kang Si-hoon's face. Our hero runs and yells that he'll hit his enemy again, right in the middle of his chest, saying he won't fall for it twice in a row. Kang protects his chest with his arms, but the bully doesn't notice the punch changing direction and aiming for his face. At the bottom of the sea, a species lives at a maximum depth of 6 meters and weighs nearly 2,000 kilograms. Approximately 85% of its body is made up of muscle. This is the ocean's top predator, the feared and mighty great white shark. We see two boys playing in the water, but they are far from the beach. If one day you ever come across a great white shark by chance, you should kick its nose. No matter how strong it is, the nose is its weak spot. The same goes for humans who train their bodies. They don't train their noses, so it remains a weak spot. Even if it's a grazing attack, aim for the nose. It'll be highly effective. Landing squarely in the center of Kang Soo-hoon's face, Dawn feels it was a critical hit. After taking such a powerful and effective blow, the bully stumbles back a few steps. Dawn-han needs to risk more decisive strikes and stop relying on the 1% critical chance. A lot of tomato sauce comes out of Kang Soo-hoon's nose as he screams, though not yet defeated. Consumed by rage, he vows to wipe Dawn off the face of the earth and keeps repeating it, until our protagonist appears behind him, wrapping his arm around his neck and shouting insults. He yells that Kang will be the one eliminated, then grabs his nose and starts choking him. Our nerdy hero shouts he'll only let go if Kang asks to be released, otherwise he'll pass out. Meanwhile, he pulls the bully's nose upward with all his strength and fury. All the criminals in the room are stunned by the scene and acknowledge Dawn's strength. Cyan Sunbae is in disbelief, witnessing this bizarre display of the nerdy boy's power. Choking the bully, our hero makes him cry, and he eventually begs to surrender. As soon as his enemy finishes saying he gives up, Dawn-ha releases the chokehold. Collapsed on the floor, defeated, the bully tries to catch his breath and regain his strength. Dawn, also injured and exhausted, comments that he finally managed to win this time. But behind him, an electronic component is just about to touch a puddle of water. Before he can finish his sentence, the exposed wire touches the water and sparks fly. Just as he yells that he won, the short circuit causes a massive explosion behind him. Hearing the blast and seeing the flash of flames, our protagonist is startled. The other bullies are shocked by the sudden and very real explosion. They begin scrambling to escape, desperately trying to get into the elevator before the fire spreads. They remember that last time, the police raided the karaoke bar, and now there's a real fire risk. Outside, everyone who was in the room manages to escape the blaze. Dawn-ha thought he was going to die in the flames and feels relieved to have made it out alive. But one of the gang members asks where Cyan Sunbae is. After all, she's nowhere to be seen. The bullies wonder if she's still upstairs with Kang Soo-hoon. District Chief Han En-sung remains silent, staring at a fire hydrant on the ground. Heading back to the stairs, Dawn feels outraged. She should have run when she saw the fire. Even though he doesn't really know Cyan, he decides to rush up the stairs to find her. Though he only knows her name and she's not important to him, they made a lot of memories that day. He finally remembers her promise, asking him to stay by her side all day. As soon as our protagonist reaches the upper floor, he opens the door and calls out for Cyan. Saying he came to save her, he immediately notices someone putting out the fire with an extinguisher. When he sees the fire under control, he gets embarrassed, and the man asks why he came back. Deeply embarrassed, Dawn makes up an excuse, saying he came back to ask if he could go home. The man in the suit says the assembly will be rescheduled for another day due to the fire. Finally, the man says that the new representative of Bormaidong is Dawn-ha Sunbae. Our hero thinks that being part of the Council of Bullies is just a dream or an illusion. Cyan says that even though it's confusing, she did it for a bigger reason and that he got rid of the bullies. He agrees that if he hadn't become a representative, he would have been hunted down by the council and things could have been worse. As they arrive in front of the girl's house, they say goodbye and Dawn wishes her to take care. Dawn grabs a plush fish he got from the arcade because it seemed like she wanted it. Cyan wonders what it is, and Dawn says he saw her staring at the plush toys. Remembering the moment, the girl said she wasn't looking at the toys. In fact, she was looking at the wanted criminal poster stuck on the window. Dawn-ha is shocked by this blunder, but even so, Cyan thanks him for earlier. Holding the fish and smiling, Cyan thanks him for running back to save her. The nerdy gamer boy turns completely red and can barely respond to the girl's goodnight. The system says he became a man, but he thinks he became a bully, and the mission finally ends. At that moment, a notification says he completed 8 missions in a row and will earn points for it. Seeing that the encounters were worth it, he wonders what key he'll receive now as a reward. Upon seeing the mission system reward, he is completely shocked and doesn't react well. The day dawns peacefully, and Dawn gets ready to go to school after a long time. He decides he should arrive before everyone else and complete an important in-game task. Arriving at school, he grabs several wires and screens to build his gamer slave station. He knows he needs to install these components in his new classroom and starts looking for his spot. When he enters the room and sees someone sleeping, he's surprised to realize he arrived earlier than him. With the tech pieces in hand, he decides he needs the best gaming setup in the whole school. As soon as he spreads the components on the desk, he worries he made too much noise and woke the man up. When he looks at the student ID card, he sees that it's Han En-sung. Dawn-ha feels that the name sounds familiar and it triggers a memory from the day before. He remembers Cyan saying that Han En-sung is the representative of the Silundong district. Cyan said he's the most dangerous bully of all the districts in Gwanak. Han En-sung says he doesn't need to be scared since he's part of the Council of Bullies now. But suddenly, the most dangerous bully throws his tech components to the floor. Han threatens him, saying it would be easy to take care of Daewon right then, and Dawon remembers Cyan's advice not to confront him. This also makes our protagonist wonder why he's already facing a boss so soon. Dawon says he's part of the Council of Bullies, and they shouldn't fight since they're on the same side. Han asks why Dawon thinks they didn't get rid of him, and Dawon says it's because he became Borome's leader. However, Han justifies it by saying that one of the rules allows council members to fight each other. After all, deciding the hierarchy based on power is pretty crucial. Stretching his arm back, Han Sung says this is revenge for Dawon messing with Silum. Getting ready to take a full punch to the face, the protagonist closes his eyes and clenches his teeth. Out of nowhere, the white-haired bully lets go of the weakling and says he's not interested in Silum. Han Sung knocks our protagonist to the ground and looks down at him. He says they should do this together now that they're on the same side. Han says he'll warn the other members because no one from Silum Dawn will hurt him now. The regular school period begins and the students start looking for their seats. Dawon is exhausted and shocked from such a hectic start to his first day of class. He then notices that Han isn't in his class and wonders why he waited for him there. But the protagonist looks to the side and realizes that's not the only thing bothering him. During the break on the first day of his second year, Dawon feels uneasy. Also during the third period break, he sees several people doing other activities, and he wonders why no one is forcing him to play games during recess like usual. After all, that had never happened before, and what's even stranger is that his class is very peaceful. When a semester starts, there's usually a lot of noise and bullying all over the school. The bullies gather and choose an easy target to gang up on and harass for the rest of the year. They threaten all the students, implying that anyone can become a target at any time. Suddenly, just when everything seems peaceful, a window shatters and a student is thrown through it. If there's a competitor in the classroom, while some try to rise to the top, others aim for personal gain. During this period, the school is ruled by the law of the jungle, where only the strongest survive. Annoyed by the bullies acting like wild animals, he heads to the bathroom to clear his mind. As soon as he enters the bathroom, Jamin recognizes Dawon, and they stare at each other. Dawon had forgotten that he studied at the same school and assumes he's still mad about the karaoke incident. Suddenly and nervously, our hero raises his hands in fear of getting beaten up by Jamin, but instead, Jae congratulates him for becoming the representative of Boromon. Strangely excited, the bully is happy that Dawon is also friends with Unsung. Dawon notices Jae is acting weird, and when questioned, Jae escapes using a poor excuse. Leaving as fast as he can, Jamin asks Dawon to say good things about him to Unsung. Back in the classroom, the gamer slave finds it odd that no one is bothering him. He realizes that Han Unsung wasn't lying and actually talked to the other bullies. His once distant dream of living in normal school life is finally coming true. Our hero feels he should be overjoyed, but instead, he's uncomfortable. At first, he thought the missions were forcing him to face off against bully bosses, but recently and suddenly, he became a member of the bully council. This makes him question the system's true purpose and whether it's using him in some larger scheme. While Dawon wonders if he's overthinking, someone comes over and asks if he's gaming. He thinks this is pity for his previously miserable life, and now the pretty girl is offering him a gift. Arenju gives it as a thank you for what he did for her earlier. Dawon is in shock and wonders if he's dreaming after receiving the gift. But when he opens the gift box, he finds a small octopus and is left confused. Arin says octopus is good for recovery and energy, and Dawon was badly hurt that day. He thanks her and says just seeing the octopus gets his heart racing, and Arin thinks that's great. Arinju says Dawon should eat the octopus alive since that's the best way to recover. Just then, a strange red-haired boy asks Dawon to play the game for him. The pretty girl asks the gamer nerd if he knows the boy, and he replies that he doesn't. Then in the school's dark photography room, we see a conversation among bullies. One bully says Han Unsung has never done this before, working with other guys. He asks his friend if he's curious, and Kim Gi-jin knows Han has his reasons. Han Unsung says he expected Dawon to be useful in a physical confrontation, but instead of attacking or defending in a dangerous situation, he went beyond that. Kim Gi-jin says Dawon probably did it to make Han go easy on him or gave up out of fear. Han says that wasn't the case. Dawon was clearly trembling, and he was looking at something. Kim thinks it's just luck, but Han saw something special in him during the assembly. Silum Dong associate Kim Ji asks if that's why Han is working with him. After denying his companion's question, Han says the questioning ends there, and he adds that it's much more fun to get to know Dawon in person. The protagonist gets annoyed and walks toward the strange boy, and Arinju notices his odd behavior. He stands in front of the weirdo and tells him to get up for interrupting his time with Arin. A strong, tattooed man wonders if Class 3 of the second year isn't being a bit too quiet. His colleague shows him a card and says it's all because of one particular person. The tattooed man finds it amusing to see that So Sung-woo is in the same class as Dawon. He agrees with Hang and thinks they might get to witness something interesting since So Sung is a bloodthirsty guy. Dawon then introduces himself to the boy and asks if he hasn't talked to Han Unsung. Trying to sound brave, he tells So Sung to play the game himself if he wants to survive. Dawon knows no one in Silum Dong can harm him, but So is from the Bong Chingen Dong district. After being threatened, So stands up filled with rage and questions Dawon's threat. Keeping his composure, Dawon says that if So has hands and eyes, he can play on his own. Messing around, So Sung asks if he should talk to Unsung about this situation. Noticing the strange boy's eyes filling with hatred, he stops mocking him. He gets scared by the boy's dark gaze, but then he grabs Dawon's phone out of his hand. Sung said he asked for it because he heard Dawon liked games a lot. but Daewon says he doesn't. Daewon realizes he didn't need to worry so much and even managed to show off in front of Arin. But at that moment, his annoying friend kicks Arin out of the classroom, leaving him speechless. On the school intercom, it's announced that it's time for the second-year students' lunch break. This makes the nerd think that if he leaves now, he might be able to eat with Arin since they're close. He thinks about looking for the prettiest girl in school until someone grabs his arm. At that moment, he notices the shy boy he saved at karaoke trying to talk to him. He's impressed to see the timid boy there, and then they head to the cafeteria together. In the middle of the hallway, So Sung-woo walks, and all the students move aside in fear. Just as the red-haired boy is heading to the line to get his lunch, something happens. A huge, muscular man jumps in front of him, blocking the way. This massive guy says that since he's a third year, he should eat before the second years. Blocking the way with his huge body, he claims that the second years don't care about it anyway. Calling his classmates, he says they can cut the line since the teachers aren't watching. Daewon is surprised to see him and asks what he's doing there, and Jihan explains he's in class 3 too. Jihan says what Daewon just did was really risky and tells him to be careful. He says the way he treated So earlier was dangerous and asks if he doesn't know who he is. Daewon says he spent the whole year just gaming and asks what the deal is with So Sung-woo. Jihan explains that Sung is different from the others. He doesn't hurt people without a reason and doesn't care about hierarchy. He adds that So has a calm personality and doesn't get angry for nothing. But he counters Daewon, saying that he's not completely harmless. He changes suddenly. That moment of change always comes when someone cuts in front of him in line. The third-year bully asks if So is angry just because the seniors are eating before him. After that, he insults So Sung-woo, who starts to look visibly irritated by the taunts. With a dark gaze, he asks the huge third year if he's faster than him. The bully gets angry at the disrespect and claims his hand is faster than So's eyes. But before he can slap him, Sung-woo punches him straight in the stomach, landing a clean hit on the arrogant and obnoxious tyrant. That enrages the guy, who then tries to punch Sung-woo in the face, but So dodges it. As he ducks, he flows right into another punch with his body's momentum. The bully So Sung-woo dodges all of the older guy's punches with ease. This makes the senior wonder how he keeps dodging everything. He hasn't landed a single hit. Sung-woo shouts that he asked a question and then throws several punches in a row. All the students watch the scene in silence and total shock. The third-year student falls to the ground, and So Sung says he wasn't faster than him. He's furious that someone slower than him cut the line, and the man faints. Our protagonist watches the scene from a distance with the other students, all terrified of So. Daewon-ha and Jihan start sweating cold, seeing the brutality and coldness of the bully. On his way home, Daewon wonders if it was really necessary to do all that just because of the line. Daewon doesn't know much, just some rumors about So being part of an athletics club. The hero knows he has to be careful because So gets mad when someone cuts in line, though he's usually calm. He's happy as he carries the octopus home and knows not to cut in line when So is around. Knowing how not to piss off the red-haired guy, he thinks his school year is going to be easy, until the system notifies him of a mission saying he has to run and overtake So. In the middle of the court at the exit, Daewon starts yelling to himself, frustrated by the absurd mission. He wonders what's going to happen after he races So and assumes he's going to end up fighting him. He avoids thinking about it. After all, he has 10 minutes to complete the mission and doesn't want to fail. Motivated, he decides he must find So Sung-woo as soon as possible to complete the mission. Coming from an alley in the middle of the street, we see a nerdy boy with broken glasses asking for help. The boy apologizes for running and says he was late for his tutoring class. Begging for mercy and lying on the ground, the four-eyed boy says he didn't mean to bump into him. With a grim look, So Sung-woo simply asks if the nerd is faster than he is. A few seconds pass without a response from the four-eyed boy, and Sung-woo grabs his backpack. He turns and walks away from the alley without further hurting the weak, nerdy boy. The boy bursts into tears from desperation, and more ketchup drips from his nose. Our hero shows up with a tissue and tells the boy he shouldn't cry over this. As the boy thanks him and uses the tissue, the protagonist asks him something. He asks if the four-eyed nerd wants revenge on So Sung-woo. Without a second thought, the boy says he does want revenge, but admits he's too weak for it. Seeing that there are only 2 minutes left, Daewon says he understands the feeling. He used to be weak too. Daewon feels something growing in his chest as he comforts the frail nerd. He says the boy shouldn't be afraid anymore, because from now on, So won't be able to do this again. After grabbing the keychain, he feels like throwing up, but decides to finish So Sung-woo. Before that can happen, we see what occurred 6 days ago with Daewon-ha, after he said goodbye to Cyan and wished her a good night that day. He remembers the mission that turned him into either a man or a bully, and the secret reward he got after completing 8 missions in a row. That's when a keychain appeared in front of him as a reward for those missions. He finds the prize strange and wonders if he should really be getting so many keys. He understands that he received 4 bronze keys and 1 gold key for completing several missions. Daewon thinks about using the gold key, but the system warns that all keys are used at the same time. The system also says that once the first key is used, the others will disappear. Even if that hadn't been mentioned, the protagonist would have used all of them simultaneously. Unlike the gold key that unlocks random skills, now he can choose one attribute to permanently increase. It says he can boost an attribute based on the next boss he'll face. Even though he's dying to use it now, he decides to save the item for later. He decides to wait for the next mission to appear, but the 2 minutes left spook him. Dawn asks the loser if he knows So's weakness, but the boy says there's none. Leaving the alley, our protagonist starts running to finish the mission against So. Stopping at a nearby corner, he feels his heart about to explode. But realizing he doesn't have much time left, he decides to use the keys where no one can see him. He first uses the gold key and hopes it's something useful. He acquires a low mana cost skill that hits the target's blind spot. He's happy because he can use it more than once, but still doesn't have much mana. So he uses one of the bronze keys to unlock and increase his mana points. His mana increases by 100 points and is finally unlocked. He's confused about which key to use next and what attribute to boost now. He knows So is a former track team member and that his fighting style is speed-based. That makes him decide to invest the remaining keys in the same attribute. Suddenly, a bus speeds past as a girl runs after it. She accidentally bumps into someone, apologizes, and keeps chasing the vehicle. We see that she bumped into So Sung-woo, then boards the bus thinking she's safe. Before the doors can close, the bully appears behind her with a sinister look. Just as he's about to pull the girl off the bus, Dawn-hye intervenes and pulls him back. At that moment, the system notifies that his chase mission has been successfully completed. Our protagonist feels satisfied for finally having done it. Then he notices So Sung-woo's twisted expression and asks if he accepts his apology. Suddenly, a new chain mission notification appears in the system. The first part of the mission is to defeat the bully monster So, which worries Dawn. Accepting that the fight is inevitable, he quickly uses one of his skills, and blue lightning flashes. Charging forward with a punch from his blind spot skill, he lands a hit on So Sung-woo. Our protagonist believes that attacking is the best possible defense at this moment. After the blow lands squarely, the red-haired bully feels pain and groans. His expression changes in an instant, his eyes fill with rage, and he curses at our protagonist. Finding it all very scary, our hero starts running like there's no tomorrow. His strategy is to flee and then land more surprise blows on So Sung-woo. Within seconds, the bully catches up to our hero and stretches out his hand to grab his backpack. As soon as he grabs Doan's backpack strap, he throws himself down and pulls it off his back. The fact that So can run that fast even after taking a full hit surprises Doan. This makes him suspect that the blind spot punch costs less mana because it deals less damage. Before Sung-woo can ask whether Dawn is faster, Dawn throws in more hits. Using surprise attacks repeatedly, Dawn claims he was faster than him. Seeing the bully start coughing after the combo, he thinks maybe he doesn't like to fight. Taking off his backpack, Sung-woo says the boy actually managed to really piss him off. Our hero notices that the backpack is so heavy it sinks into the ground. He suspects it's full of rocks. Shocked by the backpack's weight, So charges at him. Quickly and abruptly, the gamer slave prepares another blind spot skill, but this time he's surprised by a well-timed dodge from the bully. So demands Dawn repeat what he said while landing several punches to his face. This leaves our protagonist in shock, and ketchup starts coming out of his nose. He tries again to land his skill, but the man dodges and realizes he's faster than before. At that moment, the gamer understands the heavy backpack was limiting his speed and agility. With the same dark and evil glare, the bully dares Dawn to repeat it if he has the guts. At that very moment, he takes a full punch to the chest and is sent flying away. Falling to the ground, he can't land properly and starts bouncing endlessly. After getting badly beaten by So Sung-woo, our hero realizes he's gotten much faster. He wonders how many times So has used his skill and considers using the Falcon's drop. After all, dodging such a powerful technique is hard, but he's afraid he'll run out of mana. Dawn wonders how he'll deal with someone so fast without any basic fighting knowledge. The shadowy bully asks if our nerdy hero would rather end up in a coma or paralyzed. Immediately, he grits his teeth and realizes his enemy is far too dangerous. Even without knowing if it will work, he decides to take the risk and chooses neither. Once again, our hero uses a combo of 3 blind spot strikes, and So Sung dodges them all. While dodging, he says those tricks and punches won't work on him, but before he can attack the gamer, Dawn tricks him and manages to land a surprise hit. He lands a backhanded punch squarely on the red-haired bully's cheek. Dawn decides to humiliate him, saying that right after claiming nothing would work, he got hit. He adds that it wasn't even that fast of a move, and still, he managed to land it on So Sung-woo. In fighting games, there's a basic rule necessary to survive. That rule is to land a slow strike among fast ones, and also a big hit among several small ones. Our protagonist calls this a feint, and it worked perfectly against So Sung-woo. After all, everything he knows about fighting comes from games, and he had to bet on that chance, and it seems to have paid off. As soon as he unlocked his attributes, he figured he wouldn't be able to beat So in speed. That's why he spent all his points on attack instead of speed. Now his hands have become heavy blunt weapons with an attack power of 31. Thinking of it like a game, this makes Dawn feel that victory is near. Among all things in his life, at least in games, the protagonist never loses. Imagining this fight is just like a game, he knows what the first thing to do is. He needs to analyze his enemy's attack and movement pattern. From the way So Sung-woo is fighting, he decides to use another blind spot strike, but misses. However, our hero has already figured out that after dodging a strike, So throws a fast punch. First, he needs to defend himself and avoid getting punched in the face. Then look for an opening to land a counterattack, but So throws a kick instead. This catches our protagonist off guard, and he takes the kick straight to the face, sent flying. As soon as he receives the powerful kick, He immediately falls to the ground and slides across it. Steadying himself on the ground, the dark bully says with conviction that Daeun-ha will never beat him. At that moment, the nerd remembers he was part of the track team and knows how to kick too. He feels that if he had been hit in the head instead of his forehead, he would have been taken out. Daeun decides to end this fight quickly. Dragging it out will only hurt him more. Our hero attacks swiftly and without pause, already anticipating So's dodges, until he finally manages to feint and land a solid, powerful blow to his stomach. But in truth, the bully caught his arm and stopped the strike from hitting full force. Seeing his hand trapped, he suddenly takes an upward kick to the chin. The kick is so strong that a lot of ketchup bursts from the protagonist's mouth, and he seems about to faint. Mocking Daeun-ha's tricks, the bully follows up with a punch to his face. He finishes with a kick that sends him flying and says his tricks were never going to work. With a look of pure hatred, he tells our protagonist there's no turning back now. Our protagonist lies on the ground like a defeated weakling, coughing. He feels the kick to the chin was so powerful that he can barely move. Crawling, Daeun knows he needs to act fast before he ends up dead. He opens his skills window and starts searching for something to use against So. He notices his health is nearly gone, and both attributes only recover when he rests. Thinking quickly about what to do with his remaining points, he sees he only has one blind strike left, but something catches his attention and he goes silent, reading the skill's description. He sees his enemy preparing a kick that resembles a soccer move. Taking advantage of the opening, he uses his blind spot skill and sweeps So's leg. So takes the hit directly on the heel and feels intense pain from Daeun-ha's kick. The moment his attack works, our protagonist smiles, happy that he pulled it off. Unlike the hawk strike, which has to hit the head, the blind spot attack works anywhere. Because of the skill's description, he kept trying to use just his fingertips to attack So. Finally, our protagonist realizes the skill isn't limited to his hands. He knows this is his only chance to use the skill, and his chance to win the fight. He thought of a specific strategy, and to carry it out, he needs to do something specific. So Daeun-ha blocks So Sung-woo's vision by pulling his hood down. The moment he manages to cover his eyes with his jacket, he decides to throw a punch first. However, the evil bully predicts the attack and pulls our hero to the side. Spinning on his own axis, he then lands a kick to push him away, making the gamer slave fall to the ground in a ridiculous and humiliating way, injured. The bully picks up an unknown object, dragging it along the ground until he has it in hand. Finally, So Sung-woo wields the object, saying he should have used it earlier. During school track competitions, the bully felt immense pressure to be the fastest. To him, it didn't matter how he reached his goal. What mattered was coming in first. He remembers the days he didn't win the races and came in second, feeling devastated. As soon as he got home, he had to endure his father's beatings because of the loss. His father was narcissistic and had never lost during his school years. He couldn't accept a loser son. But after an accident, he lost the use of his legs and was forced into a wheelchair. He told Sung-woo to keep in mind that he would finish what his father had started but never completed. To meet expectations and not disappoint his father, he fought hard every single day. Even after learning to walk, he ran until he puked, and his backpack was always full of sand. Despite all that effort, nothing changed. He kept finishing in second place. That made first place and its glory feel so far away for Sung-woo. When he thought about giving up, he remembered his father's harsh words, full of disappointment. But in that moment of defeat, So Sung-woo saw a new solution. So in the middle of the night, he called the school track team's #1 runner to talk. The innocent boy came to talk and took a fatal strike to the face. So Sung-woo started attacking the runner who was better than him using the tournament trophy. He decided that anyone better or faster than him would be destroyed. So after eliminating his opponents in a bloody way, he would become the fastest of all. With a heavy object in hand, Sung-woo tells Daeun that he has already put someone into a coma. Because of that incident, he was expelled from the track team and abandoned by his father. He goes on saying that all the bad things in his life were his father's fault. He got away without punishment that time because of the adolescent protection law, and now raises the brick to attack Daeun. But in that moment, a flask is opened, and Daeun says what is essential to win a fight. What's necessary to win a fight is the use of items, and right then, he throws the octopus at Sung-woo's head. He's surprised the octopus was still there. After all, he had hidden it in his hood when he grabbed it on the bus. He thought it had fallen somewhere, but Sung pulls the live animal out of his hood with his hands. Throwing the octopus far away, Sung-woo had no idea Daeun-ha would do something like that. However, in that moment, the octopus's black ink starts dripping down the bully's head. That puts the bully in a panic, making him drop the brick and try to wipe the ink off his face. Daeun says an octopus releases ink when it's squeezed, and now Sung-woo's vision is finally blocked. With mana left for only one blind strike, he knows he needs to deal more damage to win. Our hero seems to form a plan and charges at the blinded Sung-woo, preparing a strike. Very angry, the evil bully screams that he can't see anything. Taking advantage of the situation, the protagonist throws a downward punch and hits him on the head. In his mind, he thanks Arinju for the gift that saved his life in this fight. As he lands a headbutt with a special skill, he dedicates his victory to Arin. At the moment the red-haired bully is hit with the blow, he's sent flying. He crashes to the ground with his vision still blocked by the ink, and ketchup comes out of his mouth. Bragging about his victory, our protagonist says he was stronger than he looked. At that moment, the running mission is completed, and So Sung-woo is defeated. As a reward, our protagonist obtains another set of keys. He's surprised to see he got another set of keys and feels like this was the hardest battle so far. Just as he's about to say that, he feels a strange sensation go through his whole body. Suddenly, his body seems like it can't stand upright anymore, and he thinks it's because of low health. He also notices that his health points are slowly decreasing. He remembers the moment he collapsed in the karaoke bar because of weakened health, but Daewon-ha is afraid of collapsing in front of Sung-woo and him eventually waking up. Looking for a way out of this suffocating situation, he opens his game attribute screen. Using his golden key, he unlocks more health points and his HP increases by 500. Seeing his health rise, he lets out a relieved sigh and falls to the ground, realizing he's safe. After using one of the keys, our protagonist decides to use them all at once, including another golden key. Using the golden key again, the system notifies him that a new class and skill have been unlocked. The new skill costs 200 mana points and delivers multiple massive powerful attacks. He finally regains his multi-punch skill that he had lost earlier. He notices, however, that the mana cost is a bit too high. In the end, he decides to use his other keys to increase his mana point. After using the keys, he thanks the octopus. After all, if not for it, he would have been eliminated. Dawn decides to take care of the octopus since it was a gift from Aren and names it Fofucho. However, at that moment, a stray cat grabs the sea creature in its mouth. This leaves our protagonist completely shocked, and he starts chasing after the stray cat. With tears in his eyes and rage in his heart, Daewon shouts for Fofucho, his pet octopus. Hours pass, and our hero holds a photo of the octopus, apologizing to Aren. With several injuries on his face, he apologizes for not saving Fofucho in time. Meanwhile, our protagonist's mother asks if the first day of school was good. When he says he almost died, his mother replies that she also has to deal with those things. Dawn says he knows she's busy with business trips and asks where she is. His mother says that she's currently living in the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. He gets confused, and she replies that it's just the UK and hopes he's eating well. Before hanging up, his mother asks him not to forget his father's death anniversary. She says she won't be able to visit the grave due to her schedule and asks Daewon to go in her place. Finally, his mother says she has a lot to do and bids farewell to her son, Daewon-ha. Meanwhile, our protagonist looks at a family photo from his childhood days. After staring at the picture and a framed piece of paper, he decides to eat, thinking of fried octopus. In an abandoned building, we see two people having a conversation. One of them says that Sung-woo was defeated by the representative of Boromai-don. The man holding a tool asks if that's what happened, and his underling confirms it. Ji Bak-chang, second-year representative of Bongshin-don, told them to keep things discreet. So Sung-woo, tied to a chair, hears the words directly from his superior. Jess says that if the Bongshin rep finds out they lost to Boromai, he'll be furious. Kicking Sung-woo's chair across the room, he says he gets pissed when a weakling ruins everything. Baek says they agreed to take care of him after his father's death, but he treated them like fools. Seeing So's open backpack with sandbags, he asks if he still hasn't moved on from track. The bully questions if he hasn't gotten over his father either, and says he hates all this obsession. Ji-baek tells his subordinate, Il-seok, that he'll handle this situation himself. He asks his vassal to bring Daewon-ha, the representative of Boromai-don, to him. Meanwhile, the day passes, and by morning we see our protagonist at school. Jahan comments to his friend Daewon that the red-haired bully didn't show up to class today. His friend says he usually never misses class, and Daewon wonders if it's because of their fight. Thinking about why he's absent, the protagonist says it'd be better if he never came back to school. That makes him think that, after defeating Sung-woo, he'll finally enjoy a peaceful school life. Suddenly, someone bursts into the classroom and shouts Daewon-ha's name. This student says that some strange people entered the school looking for him. He asks the gamer what the hell he did, until someone else shows up, saying they found him. Several intimidating bullies enter, asking if this is class 3 of the second year. Before the student can answer, the thug starts slapping him in the face. Our protagonist is completely shocked and starts sweating with fear. A very tall, bald man says it's a pleasure to meet Daewon-ha, Sunbae. Hearing the man call him Sunbae, he assumes he must be from the bully club. Creepy, the bald man says our protagonist needs to come to Bongshin with them. Daewon refuses, and his instincts tell him he'll be eliminated if he accepts the offer. Right away, the bully says they'll take him by force, but first, they'll ask him something. He asks if the protagonist can handle the 10 bullies currently in the classroom. Daewon thinks it's impossible to fight 10 guys alone and wonders if there's a way to escape. Suddenly, someone enters the room and tells the idiots to come to him instead. Han-un asks what these Bongshin thugs are doing in his district and his school. The bald one finds Han-un-sung's presence at the scene unusual. One of the student council members approaches angrily and mocks Han-un-sung. Before he can say they've united to beat up the nerd, Han kicks the guy in the face. Leaving the kid with broken legs, he starts screaming, and Daewon is left in shock. Han says they can't take the nerd, and if they want to, they'll need to answer a question first. The bully Unsung asks if these 10 guys can handle him alone. Daewon-ha is stunned and wonders if it's even possible to hurt someone that much with one strike. Another council member gets mad at the white-haired man and charges at him. Before he can get close, Han swiftly and suddenly punches him in the face. The underling ends up with a bruised face, while the bully Unsung keeps a serious expression. A chubby guy behind him lifts a chair to hit him by surprise from behind. He screams and slams the chair, but Han dodges and prepares a strike to the fat guy's neck. As soon as he hits the fatty's neck with his elbow, the guy goes flying across the classroom. The chubby guy hits the wall with his back and quickly breaks through it. Another gang member gets scared of An Sung and begs him not to come closer. Meanwhile, another gangster behind him says not to get any closer if he wants to get out alive. Then two underlings charge at An Sung alone, saying they've cornered him. The chubby one is convinced they've already won against the thug and starts laughing. Han pulls off an unbelievable dodge, standing upside down on the table and preparing a kick. With just one powerful kick, he hits both enemies in the head, knocking them down instantly. He looks at the two lying on the floor, defeated, and says this is a problem. The bald guy starts getting annoyed, seeing his subordinates being taken down. Soon, the white-haired man orders everyone to go at him all at once, and they obey. Using extremely fast moves, In Sung easily defeats them all at once. He throws all the enemies away, making them crash into the classroom furniture. Dawn Ha and Jihan are shocked by Han Un Sung's overwhelming strength. They realize he's the most dangerous of the council's bullies after all. He took down 9 people at once. With only one person left standing, the protagonist sees that everyone from Silendong is against In Sung. The last member of the Silendong Council, Ji Baek, strikes a fighting pose and gets ready. In Sung says he's the last one left and charges at him with a punch to the chin. But before hitting the bald guy, he stops and waits for something. He says the Silendong council members should clean up the whole mess. Turning his back on the enemy and walking away, he tells him to clean that chaotic scene properly. Very angry, the bald guy asks if he really thinks he'll get away unscathed. Holding himself back, he says the Bongshin district won't let this slide. Before leaving, the white-haired thug calls out to Doenha. At that moment, he invites the protagonist to join him in the cafeteria during break. They go together to the cafeteria, and Daewon thanks In Sung for the help in the classroom. Doenha feels happy and relieved to be on the same side as Han Yun Sung, but suddenly, he startles our protagonist by whispering in his ear, asking what his intention is. In truth, he's asking what his intentions are as a member of the Council of Bullies. He's also curious about the reason Daewon fought So Sungwoo from Bongshin. Thinking before speaking, Daewon knows that if he gives a good reason, Han won't ask again. Pretending to have a wicked personality he doesn't actually have, he says he's a bully hunter. However, the nerd later realizes that En Sung is also a bully and hopes he doesn't take offense. Noticing a strange reaction from the white-haired man, he wonders if he should kneel. However, En Sung lets out an unexpected laugh and says that was a funny comment. Walking away, the elite member of the Council of Bullies wishes Daewon-ho good luck. From that day on, the protagonist became afraid that Bongshin Dong's goons would come after him. But luckily, that hasn't happened at any moment so far. Besides that, he didn't have any schoolwork and spent his days at the internet cafe playing games. He overhears conversations between gamer boys about taking games seriously and spending money on them. Daewon sees himself in them. He used to spend money to improve himself in games too. Feeling nostalgic, he starts getting emotional, and the boys leave the place in the meantime. Suddenly, a beautiful girl arrives with the noodles he ordered on a tray. He's surprised to notice that the internet cafe's waitress is actually Arinju. Daewon then asks if she works there, and she says she just helps her father sometimes. Knowing that the father of the girl he likes owns the internet cafe gets our protagonist excited. Seeing the nerd's reaction, Arin misunderstands and thinks he's just after free stuff. Meanwhile, several people gather around a very skilled boy's computer. The gamer nerds talk about punishing a kid in the game, and Daewon-ha finds it weird. Some kids arrive asking to use each other's avatars, and the older ones laugh at them. While working at the cafe, Arin-ju thanks the customers and asks them to come again. Arriving with a tray, she sees a sad boy who says someone stole his character's items. Arin asks what happened, and the kids explain everything was stolen while they were in the bathroom. When he sees the girl looking sad, our protagonist says he saw the older ones doing it. Arin asks if Daewon saw what happened, and he says he did, but he didn't understand the situation. The desperate gamer kid begs our hero for help. Crying and sobbing, the little boy pleads with Daewon-ha to help him get his items back. The moment he hears the kid's plea, our hero receives a mission from the system, just as he expected. The mission asks him to defeat the thieves who stole from the child, and the reward is a key. But the protagonist is surprised to see that he must defeat 4 thieves, not just one. In shock and sweating cold, he knows he's not capable of beating 4 people alone like Han. Before he can refuse, the system says that a secret mission comes with a secret bonus. Outside the internet cafe, we see the 4 thieves putting the child's items up for sale. The delinquents talk about going drinking after making money with the stolen game items. That same thief is struck in the head with a blind spot attack and gets injured by Daewon-ha. The man falls to the ground, and our hero says that, as a gamer, he was pissed off seeing that scene. Meanwhile, the system shows him that the secret reward is dating Arin-ju. Excited after learning about the secret reward, he calls the thieves out for a fight. We see the gamer boy desperately asking for our protagonist's help, including Arin-ju herself and another child, while Daewon stares at the secret reward. Placing a hand on the kid's head to calm him, he tells him to keep playing and wait for his return. In a heroic pose, our protagonist says he'll return from the mission before the kid's food gets cold. Seeing that his surprise attack worked on the thieves, he calls them all to fight. He threatens them, saying if they don't come at him, he'll come at them himself. But inside, Daewon-ha is confused about what to do after knocking one of the thieves down. He's even more surprised when he sees the delinquent getting up after the hit. Angry, the thief asks what just happened, and Daewon wonders if he even got dizzy from the strike. The thieves see he's a student and say they've never seen a kid get involved like this. Realizing that his sneak attack and threats didn't work, Daewon starts running away. The delinquents chase after him, saying he's not getting away from this that easily. They see the high school student enter a dead-end alley and start laughing. When one of the criminals reaches the alley, he doesn't see our protagonist. They all find it strange. After all, all, they're sure it's a dead end, but he's not in sight. Then they notice a trash can nearby and start laughing, certain he's hiding in there. They mock him, pretending not to know where he went, saying they can't see him anywhere. Threatening our protagonist, they say dinner's going to be roast chicken, and he'll be the one served. But he's not in the trash can. Instead, he's on a ledge, ready to launch a surprise attack. When one of the delinquents looks up, he takes a falcon drop kick right to the face. The criminal who gets kicked in the face falls to the ground, defeated, crushing the trash can. At that moment, the system notifies our protagonist that the first thief has been defeated. Dawn feels relieved to have finally taken one of the criminals down. In shock, the other thugs are scared and start to wonder if he's really just a student. They ask who he is, and Dawn strikes a cocky pose, thinking they're afraid of his kick. Trying to scare them, he says that if they knew who he was, they'd regret doing this. He plays his trump card and says he's the bully representative of Boromandon. They don't believe there's such a thing as a bully council, and his tactic doesn't work. But before one of the delinquents can attack, he uses his blind spot strike on the guy's neck. Hit by the move, the guy starts coughing due to the punch knocking the air out of him. Dawn-ha says that compared to Sung-woo, this criminal is slow like a turtle. Noticing the criminals are scared, Dawn knows he just needs to approach slowly. They try to hype each other up, saying there's no reason to be afraid. After all, the nerd is alone. Two of the thieves start running to flank and trap our protagonist from the sides. Dawn-ha says that in games, numbers don't matter, and attacks both of them at once. Confident in his victory, our hero says hitting both of them was extremely easy. He also notices that the four delinquents are terrible at fighting, which is making things easier. But our protagonist knows that without his skills, he's very weak, so he's staying cautious. He knows he can't mess up and has to keep scaring the delinquents a bit longer. One of the thieves has the idea for all three of them to run at the same time to surround the target. When the countdown ends, Dawn interrupts and asks if they know how to deal with weak enemies. The criminals don't understand, and that's when our hero says it's simple. Gather them and attack all at once. So after gathering and surrounding them, Dawn-ha uses his multi-strike destruction. With a sequence of strong consecutive punches, he manages to defeat each target one by one. As his enemies fall to the ground at the same time, he remains standing, slightly tired. The sensation in his body is similar to when he defeated So Sung-woo. After taking someone down, Dawn-ha feels like he does in a game when defeating a target. He feels a dangerous shiver and fears losing his humanity because of that feeling. One of the criminals on the ground, now toothless and injured, begs for Dawn's mercy. He promises to return everything he stole and says he'll stop committing crimes. Seeing him ask for forgiveness, Dawn feels like a villain and tells him to return every stolen item. Our protagonist decides not to throw away his humanity. After all, he's not a bully like the others. Taking his jacket back, the protagonist says he can't spare the last thief. After all, his mission isn't complete yet, since that one hasn't been defeated. So he runs and attacks the enemy with a flying kick to complete his mission and get the reward. Hitting the delinquent with a double-footed flying kick, ketchup comes out of his nose. As he hits the ground, the system notifies that all thieves have been taken down, and the mission to eliminate all four thieves is finally completed by Dawn-ha. When the black key reward appears, our hero gets really excited. However, he gets even more hyped about receiving his secret reward, Oranju. The four thieves return to the internet cafe and on their knees, promise never to steal again. The kid who was robbed forgives them, and the delinquents promise to change their ways. Dawn-ha says that if he catches them stealing again, he'll crush them, and they agree. At that moment, a man named Min Yu-kyung starts calling one of the thieves who doesn't answer. Arin thanks him, saying they were having problems with thieves, and he commits to always helping. Arinju asks Dawn-ha to wait while she goes to get more food for him. She says she'll get the food as fast as possible, and our hero gets overly excited. Thinking about his moment with Arin, she makes a comment about her tight clothes, which excites Dawn. Suddenly, we see a little girl falling on the classroom floor. Two older girls bully her, calling her a loser and blaming everything on her. At that moment, another child stepped in front of her to defend the girl. It was Dawn-ha in his first year of kindergarten, and that was the day he met Arin, because in truth, Arinju was the first girl to punch Dawn-ha in the stomach. She was the leader of the girls in kindergarten and asked Dawn if he wanted to be their target. Afraid of the popular and mean girl, our protagonist avoided making eye contact with her. After that dark period of bullying, they were separated and went to different schools. After 3 years passed, our hero didn't expect to ever see her again. That happened on a day she kindly picked up something Dawn had dropped on the floor. The Arin he met in high school was different from before and didn't remember Dawn. She kindly picked up his electronics and gave them back. Again, he got a punch in the stomach from Arinju, but this time it was different. He got praise. In the present, Arin says she'll come back to talk to our protagonist after changing clothes. As she says she's going to change out of her tight outfit, Dawn gets excited about the secret reward. Excited, he throws himself into the chair and starts thinking about his mission rewards. Looking at the silver key in his hand, he decides to use it before Arin returns. As he uses the key, he hopes it won't be a random and weak skill like last time. Our hero unlocks the Weapon Master skill, which boosts his proficiency with weapons. This scares the protagonist, who's afraid of fighting with weapons and accidentally killing someone. But he reads and realizes he can only use the skill if his enemy is also armed. As he's reading the system's skill description, Arinju asks what he's doing. Suddenly, his expression changes and he becomes dazzled by how beautiful the girl looks in her dress. Dawn-ha compliments her outfit, saying it suits her really well, and Arin thanks him, relieved. Arin asks what the nerd wants to eat, and he chooses a steakhouse. She says she loves eating spicy rice cakes, and Daewon says he loves that dish too. The girl says it's a different kind of food, and he agrees, thinking it'll go well with the spice. Daewon is surprised by a dish that consists of noodles with chocolate and mint and finds it strange. He wonders how to eat that, and right away Arin makes a sad face, asking if he didn't like it. He pretends to like it, even stuffing his mouth and saying he can't stop eating it. Arin changes her expression and gets happy, asking if he really liked it, and Daewon says yes. She notices that he's not chewing, and Daewon feels happy to be on a date with Arin. Daewon realizes it's his second date with a girl, and the last one was forced by a mission. That makes him question if a date as a secret reward might have something behind it. At that moment, he asks the girl if she plans to take him to some strange place. Answering his question, Arinju says she'd like to take our hero somewhere. As they go to another location, we see the two having fun and making a lot of noise. Nervous, Daewon feels his body weird and hot, like he's on fire. Then we see they're just playing a game of stacking wooden blocks. When it's Arin's turn, he says she's way too good, and we see a huge tower. Arin says she's not good at games, but she's very confident at Jenga. That's why she wanted to play with him. However, at that moment, she knocks down the tower, and Daewon suggests trying other games. They decide to play a lie detector game, and Daewon asks if she considers herself pretty. A little insecure, Arin says yes, and the machine makes a sound that indicates it's true. After the tense moment, she confidently says she really does consider herself a beautiful person. Suddenly and quickly, she places her hand on the toy again. Daewon thinks of another question and feels like he can't let this opportunity slip away. He decides now is the time to ask the most important question, if she has a boyfriend. While she doesn't answer, our hero gets extremely nervous and tense about the possible response. Shattering his expectations, the beautiful girl replies that she does have a boyfriend. Pretending everything's fine, our protagonist dies inside. Thinking it over, he figures it's impossible for a gorgeous girl like her not to have a boyfriend. However, she says the toy doesn't work. After all, she only told lies the whole time. That makes Daewon incredibly relieved, and they both say the machine was broken. The two begin deciding what game to play next and pick one. After that, we see the thieves looking for him and the girl, saying they saw the two together. One of the delinquents starts mocking nerd Daewon for being on a date with Arinju. His friend notices his whole body trembling and tells him to calm down while looking for Daewon. That friend says he'll destroy the guy who left him in that injured state. The scared friend strokes the thief's head in a weirdly affectionate and irritating way. Meanwhile, Arinju and Daewon are still out and haven't noticed how much time has passed. Our hero feels closer to the girl and is happy to see everything going well with Arin. The girl points to a claw machine and asks if the protagonist wants to play it with her. A vendor calls out to customers to play the hammer and nail game, with teddy bears as prizes. Arinju tries to win the bear and fails, while Daewon says he'll give it a shot. The vendor says he's weaker than her, but Daewon knows the trick to win the game. Daewon knows he just needs to stretch his arm, align the hammer and nail perfectly, and strike vertically. This inspires the gamer nerd to win the stuffed bear for Arin, making it the perfect date. But just before he can do it, Daewon stops and begins to coldly observe something. Arin doesn't understand, and he's stunned to see a message from the system pop up. The task asks him to strike Arinju on the head with the hammer as hard as he can, within 5 minutes. The girl asks what's going on, and Daewon can't believe the situation he's in. This mission requires him to slam the mallet into her head, and the reward is a dungeon map. After all those missions that asked him to defeat bullies, he's in shock at having to do this. Our protagonist can't believe the system is asking him to hit Arinju. His body starts to tremble, and he knows that if he doesn't complete the mission, he'll be punished. But he can't bring himself to hit the girl with the mallet, so he slams it on the table instead, pretending he failed the game. He'd rather suffer the system's punishment than do that to her. While whining, he notices a booth behind him advertising a Royal Castle-style game. The game is played using a toy mallet to win a random prize from the shop. Seeing that the booth next to it has a toy hammer, he takes Arin there. As the vendors try to attract a crowd, Daewon volunteers to play right away. They say the person who wins rock, paper, scissors gets to use the hammer while the other defends. In a rush to play and complete the mission, Arinju notices Daewon's anxiousness. After all, the task has a time limit, and there are only 3 minutes left. So he and the girl play rock, paper, scissors, and by luck, Daewon wins. Quickly and impulsively, seeing that he won, the protagonist grabs the toy hammer instantly. In his mind, he apologizes to the girl he likes and tries to hit her with the mallet. Curious to see if he hit her, he widens his eyes, but Arin defends herself by putting a pan on her head. Next, they play Janken again, and Daewon wins just like before. He quickly tries to hit the girl on the head with the mallet, and again she blocks it with the pan. After that attempt, Arin uses the toy hammer and tries to hit Daewon, who also defends. This makes him wonder how she's so good at the game, always predicting his moves. Arin is happy to find another game she's good at, which makes our protagonist anxious in that moment. Daewon starts to panic, seeing that there are less than 10 seconds left before he fails the mission. Excited, the girl starts preparing for another round of the hammer game. Before letting her finish the Janken, he takes advantage and hits her on the head with the mallet. His desperate and irrational act leaves people on the street in complete shock. Our protagonist, seeing what he just did, knows he just messed everything up again. But at that exact moment, the system notifies that the mission is complete. Another message indicates that the mission reward will be received, and he gets a bag. With the shop reward in hand, he says the hammer broke, and the vendor tells him to keep it. Night finally falls and the sky darkens as the two friends walk down the street. Sweating nervously, the protagonist feels regret and thinks he should have failed the mission and taken the penalty. When he asks if Arin is mad at him, the girl starts laughing uncontrollably. Seeing the girl laugh non-stop and loudly, he wonders if he hit her too hard on the head. Laughing, she says it didn't hurt and that she'd never taken such a loud, strong hit before. Ruining the lighthearted mood, the girl says her dad is calling and she has to return to the internet cafe. As she says goodbye, she tells Daewon she had a lot of fun thanks to him, and he says the same back. Getting really close to him, Arin says they'll play more games together next time. Finally turning her back and saying goodbye, she tells him she'll see him at school later. Without knowing what else to say, Daewon simply nods. But just then, a strange man asks what game the two of them played together. Startled, Daewon pushes him, and the strange man tells someone on the phone that he found the target. The person on the other end tells him to hang up, and Daewon realizes they're after him. The man says he came looking for Daewon because he beat up his younger friends. Hearing the man say he's out for revenge, our hero thinks he came to fight. That worries him because he used his skills recklessly against the delinquents. As a result, the gamer slave no longer has any energy points left for abilities. This gives him the feeling that if he fights now, he'll definitely lose the battle. However, when the scared man looks Daewon in the eyes, he says he's lost the will for revenge. Walking away, he says he has more important things to do, and Daewon feels relieved. The man asks if Arin went to the internet cafe, and Daewon says yes, then asks why he wants to know. That sinister delinquent says he's going after her to play a fun game too. He says that if she played with someone like Daewon, then she must be willing to play with anyone. When the jerk is about to say something obscene, the protagonist grabs his shirt. With hatred in his eyes and in complete silence, he grips the man's jacket tightly. Furious, Daewon threatens the man, telling him to shut up and just follow him. Sun Mingyu asks if he's scared, and a new mission appears, indicating they're about to fight. A few seconds pass, and the man, irritated by the insults, starts attacking Daewon. After our protagonist misses his strikes, the delinquent lands a punch straight to his stomach. He mocks our hero for the story about how he took down the 4 bullies earlier. Humiliated by the delinquent, Daewon thinks that critical strikes might not trigger, but he sees no option. He's out of mana points and is relying on the critical hit. He's determined to try anything until he lands a hit to keep Sun Mingyu away from Arin. The man mocks him, saying something Daewon would have said about not letting him touch his girl. At that moment, Sun pulls out 2 golden brass knuckles and says he won't tolerate that. Seeing the weapon in his hands, Daewon wonders if that counts as a dangerous weapon. Running toward our hero, Mingyu says he's going to knock all the teeth out of his mouth. Before the criminal can even get close, the protagonist lands a hit on his chin. Using a weapon to attack, he strikes several times in a row, but Sun blocks the blows. Finally, our protagonist delivers one last hit that sends the wicked man flying. Sun Mingyu manages to land on his feet after being thrown back. Injured, he wonders where Daewon had got his club from and is stunned when he sees something. He spots a bag on the ground from the Royal Castle store, a toy store, and Daewon calls him to fight. At that moment, the system announces that the Weapon Master skill has been successfully activated. The system's description says the skill only activates when fighting an armed opponent. The protagonist holds a toy hammer, energy emanating from it, and threatens Sun. This makes the delinquent question if his eyes are really seeing what's happening. He wonders if that toy hammer is what actually hit him with such force. Sun Mingyu asks what kind of trick Daewon is using in this fight. Daewon starts tapping the hammer on his head, saying it's just a plastic mallet. Insulted and angry, his enemy charges at him, furious for being fooled. Before he can strike the gamer slave, Daewon hits him again with the plastic mallet. This strike hits Sun Mingyu's hand just before he can land a punch with the brass knuckles. Daewon readies another punch and says Sun can keep thinking he's being tricked. When he activates his Weapon Master skill again, the enemy dodges the attack. After successfully dodging, Sun Mingyu lunges and grabs Daewon around the torso. The delinquent says that if he sticks close to the nerd, he won't be able to hit him. But surprising his enemy, the protagonist strikes him in the back with the toy hammer's handle. That makes him let go of our hero's back, giving him the space to strike again. Immediately after being freed, Daewon raises his arms and says he's going to punish Sun Mingyu. Cursing the man for the horrible things he said about Arin, he delivers an angry blow. However, the strike fails because the top part of the hammer flies off the handle. Our hero wonders if the weapon broke that quickly because it's such low quality. Trying to stay calm, he wonders if it's still usable as a weapon somehow. Just as he thinks that, the system says that damaged weapons don't trigger the skill effect. This leaves the gamer slave in shock. He sees no way to win without a weapon. He wonders if there's anything nearby he could use to replace the hammer, even a trash can. Sun Mingyu moves in to land another punch on Daewon and notices that he's in trouble. He lands the blow, and his armed fist hits Daewon in the face, sending ketchup flying. After the attack, he asks if Daewon can do anything without that mallet. Falling to the ground and in great pain, our protagonist wonders what kind of power that was. Because of the golden brass knuckles, the pain feels completely different from a regular punch. After that, Daewon takes a flurry of punches that hit him hard. When he finally receives a full force punch to the stomach, Sun gets an idea. He says he's going to beat him until he's nearly eliminated, then take him to Oranju. In the end, he says he's going to do obscene things to the girl right in front of our protagonist. Sun Mingyu says he'll avenge his Protagonist and fulfill his desires all at once, while the protagonist asks if he got those villain lines from a movie or some video. Daewonha asks why Sun Mingyu wants so badly to be a villain and do evil things. Sun Mingyu questions why the nerd is even asking, saying the answer is simple. He says living this way is much better as he prepares a downward punch. But before he can land the blow on Daewonha, something hits the delinquent. Confused, Sun Mingyu tries to understand what hit and hurt him. Upon realizing it was a belt, the delinquent is shocked and widens his eyes. Our hero activates the weapon master skill in an unusual way, by using a belt. Sun prepares another punch and charges at Daewon, angry at the use of weird weapons. Daewonha strikes him repeatedly with the belt, hitting the thug with a series of lashes. As he lashes him, he asks what goes through his head to say something like that. The villain drops his brass knuckles to grab Daewonha's belt, immobilizing his target. While holding the belt tightly, he says living a life without thrill is a waste. He says pretending life isn't like this is being fake, and gets ready to land a punch. Daewon grits his teeth, then throws the belt around the arm, preparing the punch, and immobilizes it. After restraining his arm, he uses his body weight to throw Sun over his shoulder. He uses a judo technique and flips Sun over his shoulder, slamming him to the ground. At the moment the thug hits the floor, he spits jelly and abruptly passes out. Right after, the system notifies that his mission is complete after defeating Mingyu. Tired and injured, our protagonist breathes a sigh of relief after winning the fight against Sun. Arin's father apologizes for making her work instead of study, and she asks for food in return. Her father asks what she wants to eat, and Arin says she wants chicken with chocolate and it. Daewonha is happy to see that nothing happened to her and that she's okay with her dad. Arriving home, our protagonist feels relieved and happy that he made it back safely. Lying on the couch and hurt, he says he thought he was going to die today. When he remembers the question the thug asked, he can't answer it. He wonders how his father, who dealt with people like that all his life, would answer that question. Daewon decides to forget about the question and open the reward given by the sudden mission. He sees that the mission reward is a set of 5 bronze keys. After what happened, he realizes he'll never know when a fight is about to break out. He decides to invest in other attributes, since his attack stat increased a lot last time. He spends his bronze keys to boost his agility and defense stats by 3 and 2 points. With all his attributes increased, he ignores the spirit stat because he doesn't know what it is. Seeing the bag on the table, he decides to check the reward from the Hammer Game mission. Daewonha doesn't understand what dungeon map he just received as a reward. Ignoring the system window, he wonders if this is a real-life dungeon map. He imagines if the dungeons will be like those in games, with giant gates appearing. When he looks inside the bag at the reward, he can't believe what he sees. Sweating cold and with wide eyes, Daewon realizes it really is a dungeon map. The system says it's a dungeon map, but all he sees is a real estate pamphlet. He wonders how this royal castle map, which is actually an apartment, could be a dungeon. Seeing that there's a construction date on the apartment, he assumes it's the mission deadline. This makes our hero question whether the construction site is the actual dungeon. A notification appears saying the mission opens in 5 days and is recommended for a group. He realizes he needs a group of 2 or more people to explore the place, just like in games. Imagining the dungeon to be difficult and scary, he decides not to do it. But at that very moment, the system notifies that if he doesn't complete the dungeon, he will be punished. Daewonha gets frustrated with the game system that wants everything and still demands more. He decides to accept the information and already thinks of a friend to go with him on the mission, and he replies that he has other commitments. Unsung says he's not a pawn Daewon can move whenever he wants, and his plan fails. Sighing in frustration, our hero wonders who he should bring for the mission. Jihan, his antisocial classmate, asks Daewonha what's been bothering him. At that moment, the protagonist gets the idea to invite Jihan on the dungeon mission with him, but he changes his mind, considering Jihan's history with bullies and knowing it'll be dangerous. So he starts thinking of someone else to invite on the mission. At that same moment, Cyan appears and asks where our protagonist is going. He's shocked to see the beautiful girl suddenly show up at school and ask him that. When asked why she came, she says it's because she doesn't have his phone number. That makes our hero curious about the real reason for her visit, but Cyan says it's nothing. She says that ever since he became a representative, she hasn't introduced him to certain people. When Daewon asks who they are, Cyan says they're the men of Boromandon. Daewon asks if she really needs to take him, saying he doesn't do much as a representative. He then imagines himself as a rep acting all bossy with his subordinates, ordering his underlings to eat, and then everyone obeys and eats like animals. Thinking of that scenario, Daewon feels like he wouldn't be able to handle it. Meanwhile, they arrive. As soon as he walks into the place, someone calls him by his gang name and says it's an honor to meet him. Feeling smug but too shy to say it, the protagonist asks if there's some kind of gang. Before he finishes asking the man to call him representative, he gets surprised. He sees 2 eccentric men waiting for him at the table, calling him by his gang name Kyungmin. Suddenly, he sees Kang Soo-hoon, the man he punched earlier, who's shocked to see Daewon. He remembers that Kang Soo-hoon is a member of Boromandon and is stunned to see him here. Cyan asks what Kang's problem is with Daewon, and Kang claims the nerd is a fraud. Daewon asks Soo-hoon if he's not ashamed of getting beaten up, and Kang accuses him of cheating. Striking a cocky pose, our hero asks if Kang wants to get beat up again and threatens him. Cyan tells them both to cut it out because they're embarrassing themselves. Staring at them with a threatening look, the beautiful girl tells them to shut up and sit down. The eccentric man at the table says Cyan knew Nim's attitude was terrifying. The old guy says he really wanted to meet Daewon Hyung Nim, and Cyan finally brought them together. As soon as our hero asks if the rest of the members will arrive, the old man asks what he means. He says that this 4-person table is all Borma Dong has at the moment. Dawn asks if this is a meeting and says it should involve a discussion with tons of members. The old man talks about the incident after the last Borma rep left, and Kang prefers to avoid the topic. Sion says they're just here for introductions today and wants to keep the talk simple. She introduces the man, saying his name is Shin Sihi and he's a first-year student. Shin explains that Kang is Barama's deputy and angrily says he would be the leader if it weren't for Dawan. He adds that the gamer slave just needs to hold on to his rep title. Sion asks if he hasn't caused any trouble, and Dawn asks what she means by that. She explains that talking to Han In-sung and messing with the neighborhood bullies. Because of all that, everything our protagonist has done nearly caused bigger problems. Even after doing all of that, nothing happened, and he realizes she asked, knowing the answer. As soon as Sion Nu Nim asks about the scars on his face, he tries to change the subject. Kang Si-hoon notices that Dawn Ha looks worried and thinks he's trembling all over. Sion asks everyone to take it easy, saying Borome is weak right now and no one wants to attack them. Kang says he's against her request. He thinks he's strong enough to handle other gangs. Our hero holds back from laughing at Si-hoon's face, which makes Kang furious when he notices. While Sion grows tired of their bickering, Shin Sihi asks if he can order shrimp. 4 days pass, and we see a gang conversation about money inside a building. Two men are talking, and one says time and effort could have been spared for his underlings. An old man says the building construction is delayed due to issues with hiring workers. And he also tells that gangster not to take advantage of the people in the building and to leave the place. The man in the green suit with tattoos says it was all for his client's pocket. Knowing the old man is rich, he says they should demand an allowance for working day and night there. The old man says the brats have no respect for him, which makes the gangster angry. Il-seok, his underling, is called to beat up the old man until he hands over the money. Rolling up his sleeves, Il-seok says he understood his master's command. Some time passes and we see the underling wiping his hand, which is covered in jelly. Saying the old man will pay no matter what, the gang member laughs. He asks his underling if everyone is ready, and he replies that they're gathered on the first floor. He says he has a reason to attack Boromai since his men were beaten by Dawan. With a cold and evil gaze, he says they should start with the weakest among Boromai's men. Several men summoned by the gangster gather to head to Boromai and attack. Two people arrive at the construction site, and one of them asks the other for the position of leader. The man threatens the other in case he changes his mind about giving him the leadership role for helping. The men from the other gang wonder who they are and how they got to the location. Looking at the dungeon map, the protagonist wonders why the place is in Bangshin-dong, as Doan-ha says that after having their school invaded, this time it will be different. After all, they're the ones invading their base now, and the system announces they've entered the royal castle. We see in the past when Kang is on the phone asking why Dawn accepted his help. On the call with our protagonist, he asks if he's being serious. He gets dressed and asks for the address, saying he'll head there immediately. Back in the present, Kang insists that Dawn should hand over the leader position to him. After our hero tells him to shut up and help, Sehun tells him not to get in his way. Suddenly, a rival gang member attacks Kang from behind with a baseball bat. But as soon as the wooden weapon hits his back, it breaks in half. Kang asks if the delinquent thought that would be enough against him. With extreme speed, he locks his hands around the enemy's neck, choking him. Lifting him in the air, he asks if the guy really thinks he can beat the grenade of Boroma with so little. Another Bangshin underling runs towards Sehun, telling him to let his friend go. Before the man can get close, Kang throws the delinquent at him, and they crash into each other. Kang Si-hoon yells at the members of Bangshin Dong and tells them all to come at him. Dawn didn't expect much from him since he had beaten him before, but now he notices his extreme strength. He realizes Kang easily stopped the Falcon's drop, and if it weren't for a critical hit, he would have lost. He thanks him for bringing him to the dungeon and realizes even trash like him has a purpose. However, the system notifies him of a special event mission to defeat 5 normal people. The other Bangshin gang members decide to act irrationally and charge in. But at that moment, the protagonist appears behind them with a saber in hand, even if he doesn't want to fight. He also doesn't want to waste a golden key reward, so he attacks the guy. Using his weapon master skill, he defeats one of the men and completes part of the mission. Another man, a friend of the one Dawn defeated, gets angry and charges at him with a weapon. Avoiding the hit, our protagonist traps the metal pipe with his foot. He says characters with iron pipes are weak extras, then attacks the man with his saber. After being struck square in the face by Boromei's representative, strawberry jelly comes out of his nose. Finally, the protagonist strikes his saber hard into the thug's stomach, slamming him into the ground. At that moment, the system announces that the second normal monster was defeated. 3 to go. Our hero feels great using the weapon master skill that enhances his saber. Kang Si-hoon is surprised by Doan's techniques and realizes he really knows how to fight. While noticing his comrade's feet, 2 other men arrive to attack and surround Kang. He dodges the first one easily by just ducking his torso without moving. Then he delivers an upward punch straight to the enemy's chin. But another thug takes advantage of the moment to attack him from behind with a pipe. After calmly resisting the blow due to his toughened experience, Kang punches him in the face. In moments, the bully falls to the ground, badly injured and with a lot of ketchup coming out of his face. Noticing another enemy ahead, he decides to ask him something. He asks if he's there too and refers to the Bangshin assemblyman Ji Bak-chan. Sipping whiskey, the assemblyman of Bangshin Dong asks if the vassals have already left. His subordinate Il-seok tries to call them, but no one answers the phone. Ji doesn't want to go after his already experienced vassals, so Il-seok decides to go check if they're okay. Meanwhile, our protagonist defeats 2 more enemies for his event mission. Tired and sweating, he celebrates that he's finally close to completing the task. Around the two members of Boromandong, several enemies from the rival gang lie defeated. He notices that the man being held by Kang is the last one and tells him to let him go. He orders Sehun to bring the enemy over, but his partner doesn't understand what he's saying. While bragging that he took down one more than Dawan, the man pulls out a knife. Realizing what's happening, Kang Sehun opens his eyes in shock. Dawan Ha yells that he needs to defeat that man and throws his saber toward the target. His saber perfectly hits the enemy, who flies out of Kang's grip and drops the knife. As soon as the saber hits the rival gang member, it knocks him out. That's when the system notifies our protagonist that the mission is complete and the reward is incoming. Dawan then obtains the golden key after defeating 5 regular enemies. Kang Sehun stares at the blade on the ground and says he didn't ask for Dawan's help. With his pride hurt, Sehun turns his back and starts going up the stairs. Seeing that Dawan stayed behind, he asks if he's afraid to go up, and Dawan denies it. Climbing several flights of stairs, our protagonist says this is really exhausting. Suddenly, a voice from above says this is an unexpected sight. Ilseok says he never expected the Sunbes to come to their base in the royal castle. Dawan remembers this is one of the guys who invaded the school along with others they fought. Kang assumes that if Seok is here, then Ji Baek-chan must be here too. Sehun walks right past the delinquent, heading straight for the Bangshandong assemblyman. Annoyed, the subordinate Il-seok asks how he dares to ignore his presence. Before he could hit his friend, Dawan-ha strikes Seok's blind spot from behind. Noticing that the final boss is on the top floor, Dawan decides to take on his subordinate. He tells the vassal to grab a paint roller as a weapon so they can fight fair. Kang Sehun reaches Ji Baek and says it's been a while since they last met. The Bangshandong assemblyman gets excited to see the man there. He starts mocking Kang Sehun for losing the class rep position to some random nerd. He calls Ji a coward for doing everything from the shadows without his leader knowing. Bothered by the Boromandong assemblyman, Baek says he hates people who only bluff. As soon as Kang tells him to see if he's just bluffing, they start fighting. At the same time all this is happening, our protagonist drops the red saber. Being pinned down by Seok, he thought Seok was just a regular enemy and realizes he's screwed. Jo Il-seok reveals himself to be an elite monster and says he'll defeat Dawan with only his hand. While the protagonist tries to understand what an elite monster is, Seok says he's unlike the others. Before he could eliminate our protagonist, the latter lands a kick to his privates. After hitting him, the nerd honestly didn't expect him to block such a surprise move. The nerd jumps back to escape from Seok and says he's different from the other bullies too. Meanwhile, a system message says the dungeon will reward him once it's cleared. Since he's already in combat with Seok, he decides to finish it and says this place will be his grave. Il-seok, the bully, says this place will be the grave for both of them then. Charging at our protagonist, he says the Sunbai won't make it. Dawan learned that instead of using a blind spot to attack, it's more effective to use it to break the pattern. He knows that hitting one blind spot creates a bigger one due to the impact of the attack. Using this blind spot technique, he manages to land a punch on Seok's face. Landing the punch on Il-seok's face, he gets hyped seeing his strategy actually work. He uses his blind spot technique again with another punch to the delinquent's face. He creates a bigger opening and delivers a long sequence of punches, which he calls a beating. Dawan-ha plans to keep doing this, but an unexpected quick punch from Seok comes out of nowhere. That punch from the Bangshandong delinquent seems to hit the gamer slave squarely. He says he got really scared because of the elite monster title coming from Il-seok. He blocks the punch and realizes it's not that hard and that his body is stronger after the status boost. Happy to have blocked it with his arms, he says that today Seok is the one who will be pummeled. His delinquent opponent wonders how he managed to block his punch so quickly. He says he's been observing his opponent and that there's an interesting piece of information about him. His delinquent enemy says something about him hiding from sunlight. He says that anyone who walks among delinquents knows they are a non-profit institution. They only emerge with the ideal of guiding troublemakers to the right path and supporting them. It's an organization created by He Jin-oh, Dawan-ha's father. Il-seok corrects himself and says that since he's no longer alive, he should call him a cold corpse. Extremely angry, our protagonist rolls up his sleeves and tells him not to talk about his father that way. We cut back to Ji Baek and Kang Sehun locked in a strength clash, both trying to overpower each other. Ji says he planned to take down Boroma today and asks how Kang ended up there. In response, Sehun asks what he's talking about. He just followed their leader Dawan. Ji Baek-chan concludes that the Borama representative is also there. He says he's really lucky today and throws himself to the ground, preparing a kick to Sehun's stomach. As soon as his back hits the floor, he lands a kick right into Kang's solar plexus. Excited, Ji Baek-chan says the mountain came to Muhammad in the desert. But at that moment, the Boromandong thug grabs Ji's leg, leaving his body wide open. About to counterattack Baek, the thug says he's the mountain. After grabbing his opponent's leg, he throws him far, and he crashes into the furniture. Kang says he already took care of all the first floor underlings, and that Dawan is dealing with Seok. Suddenly and abruptly, Ji Baek emerges from the smoke and punches Kang in the face, who strikes back. After both land blows at the same time, the thug tries to knee Sehun. As soon as he lands the knee to the face, he tries to climb on top of him to knock him down. But before hitting the floor, the Boromandong thug firmly plants himself to avoid falling. Managing to dodge the direct hit to his nose, he gets irritated at Baek for using cheap tricks. Ji says Kang is wrong for leaving his representative behind, and that's why he already lost. He says that unlike what Kang thinks, Dawan isn't weak, and if he knew Seok, he wouldn't say that. Meanwhile, our protagonist lands another punch to his opponent's stomach using the blind spot again. Then he lands a punch to the face and realizes that no matter how many times he hits the thug, he kicks him and even uses the falcon drop. None of his strongest moves have any effect. It also doesn't matter how long he fights Il Seok, he always gets back up like a zombie. Ji-Baek says that to this day, he's never seen his bodyguard lose even once. Daewon-ha wonders what's wrong with him and how he ended up like this. He asks himself how Seok hasn't passed out or been defeated yet. He realizes he can only use multi-hit attacks with the mana points he has left. He decides to end this fight with a single powerful ability. But before he can use his strongest move, it gets cancelled by a punch to the face. His enemy prepares another strike and says it seems like Daewon has already grown tired of fighting. But at that exact moment, Daewon lands an unexpected blind spot blow. As he dodges, the thug says Daewon-ha is way too slow. He lands a punch to the protagonist's stomach and says Daewon must have gotten excited because he mentioned his dad. He asks if our protagonist understands why he brought his father into the conversation. Before explaining the reason, he lands another powerful punch to Daewon-ha's stomach and says it was because he felt bad for Jin-oh, our hero's father. Jin must have died with the feeling of a mission accomplished, believing he helped change the lives of bullies. But instead of honoring that, his son decided to side with the bully council, going against it all. However, Seok says that he acts differently from the other delinquents and shouldn't be called that. He also says that Jin-ha must be sad in heaven watching his son go down this path. Il Seok says that if the protagonist looks closely, he's throwing his life away and prepares another punch. He easily manages to land a direct hit on the gamer slave's face, or so he thinks, but Daewon takes the punch to the face and barely moves, leaving Seok in shock. With the enemy's hand still on his face, unmoving, he remembers to grab the golden key. Through the mission reward, he unlocked a unique skill class. Our hero grabs his enemy's clothes tightly and says he'll say this one last time. Filled with rage, Daewon-ha tells Il Seok to never speak of his father like that again. Suddenly, he recalls his childhood and how he used to play video games with his father. There was a move called Stunning Blow that he used in one of those games. He remembers a day when he was a kid, having a great time playing with his dad. In the game's story, the knight rescued the princess who had been captured by the Demon King's army. He would knock out every enemy and use his stunning blow to reach the top of the castle and save her. However, no matter how much he hit the demon with that move, it would never fall. The knight in the game had no choice but to get up and try over and over after being defeated. Little Daewon would cry and ask his dad if it was impossible to win that game, but he never gave up and always pressed continue after getting annihilated. After using his golden key, he unlocked the stunning blow, which costs 90 points and knocks the target down. Gripping Il Seok's clothes tightly, our protagonist repeats something he had said before. He tells him not to speak of his father again and throws him over his shoulder using the exclusive skill. With the stunning blow activated, he slams the man fiercely to the ground. As the man hits the floor, a lot of smoke rises, and Daewon tells him to respect boundaries. But when he looks at the spot where the delinquent should be lying, there's nothing there. With no time to react, our hero is grabbed by him and falls to the floor too. We see the thug pulling our protagonist's leg hard and slamming him down with force. He hits his head on the ground, and the protagonist is in shock that Seok is still moving. He wonders what this guy's body is made of, and with a cold tone, Seok asks if he's done talking. Meanwhile, Kang faces Ji-Baek Chang, who asks what he plans to do. Rushing at the Boromei assemblyman, he says the rep is screwed. Kang Si-hoon agrees and says there's nothing he can do about it. He takes down Ji using his high-speed charge, and says this isn't the time to think about Daewon. He adds that he doesn't care whether the rep lies or gets taken out in the duel. Ji-Baek laughs and uses the fall to place his hands on the ground and land a kick. He says he hates disloyal people like Si-hoon and launches a two-footed kick from below. He says Kang should at least pretend to care since Daewon is the leader, and Kang asks if she cares about his own. After sweeping Si-hoon off his feet, the Bongshin delinquent asks why he should care. He says the Bongshin Dong rep is not like the leader of Boromei Dawn. While receiving a series of strong punches from the enemy, Kang feels intense pain. He says not even the Silum Dawn rep can fight the one from Bongshin Dawn. In the fight between Daewon-ha and Il Seok, the enemy keeps dodging and tells him to conserve energy. Kicking the gamer nerd away, he says the kid seems out of shape. Our protagonist asks Il Seok if he really thinks he's the only one who can keep getting back up. Daewon doesn't care what happens. He can keep standing up and trying again. He starts running to try to hit the resilient delinquent who never goes down, but he lands an extremely weak punch to his stomach that has no effect at all. Looking down on Daewon with contempt, he says he resembles his father a lot. Just like Jin-ha, our hero's effort is pointless, and Seok lands another powerful punch. With a cold expression, he lands a strong punch to his face, knocking off his nose bandage. He starts coughing and stumbling from the sheer pain of the series of punches. Even with his face completely covered in strawberry jelly and badly injured, Daewon-ha doesn't give up. He remembers playing with his father during childhood and never giving up on trying to beat the final boss. Thinking it's so hard to reach the end, he wonders if everything he did until then was for nothing. His father disagreed, saying there had to be a way to defeat the Demon King at the end of the game. He asks young Daewon-ha if he's really going to give up at that point, and the boy hesitates. Convinced by his father's words, he decides to keep trying until he defeats the boss. Il Seok says Daewon's efforts are useless, but he still refuses to give up. As he goes to say Daewon's punches are weak, He gets hit by a critical blow and is sent flying. At that moment, the game system notifies that Daewon-ha landed a critical hit with that strike. Impressed by our protagonist's overwhelming strength, the delinquent widens his eyes. He grabs the ground with both hands to stop himself from being thrown even farther. Our hero concludes that Seok is just a normal human, even if he claims he never falls. Shocked by the nerd's strength, Il-seok asks if he saved everything for that last punch. Getting back up again, the delinquent says it was useless. It still wasn't enough to defeat him. He says it's impossible for Daewon-ha to beat him and lands another punch in his stomach. Blue magic lightning bursts from the protagonist as he disagrees with the thug who never falls. He says he learned this in a game, leaving the delinquent confused. Then he grabs Il-seok's face, throws him backward, and says no enemy is invincible. Screaming with all his strength, the boy remembers that this skill has a secret. Flashing back to another childhood memory, a loud sound came from the TV. While little Daewon-ha was exhausted and catching his breath, he felt pure joy when he defeated the final boss and rescued the princess. His father had just come back from the bathroom, and his son had beaten the game after much effort. After defeating the demon, 10-year-old Daewon-ha said it was easier than he expected. Just as he recalls how he brought down the demon, he takes down the thug in the present. He defeated the final boss of the game with a stunning charge that slammed it headfirst into the ground. In the present, he activates his exclusive stunning charge ability and slams Seok's head into the floor. It's an upgraded version of the stun attack that activates when the enemy is already on the ground. As Dawn's plan works, the ability is triggered with the thug's fall. The move is incredibly effective, as we see the genuine look of pain on Il-seok's face. In the memory from the past, Oh-jin praised his son, saying he was truly impressive. His father asked young Daewon-ha to always remember this day for the rest of his life. After countless tries and thinking it was impossible, he managed to defeat the demon in the game. No matter what happens in the future, his father told him that his efforts would always pay off. The last thing he said was that no effort in this world is ever in vain. Laughing with relief, our protagonist exhales and wonders if it's really over this time. A system notification tells him that Jo Il-seok, the elite monster, has been defeated. Exhausted after his toughest fight so far, Daewon-ha can no longer move. Meanwhile, outside the royal castle, we see a masked worker standing outside. Jung Seok-young, the representative of Bongcheon, asks if Daewon-ha invaded the base alone. As Jung appears at the scene, his subordinate says how much stronger he is than Daewon. He then climbs on top of Kang Soo-hoon and delivers a barrage of powerful punches non-stop. He says not even Han Eun-sung can compete with Jung Seok-young from Bongcheon. Suddenly and unexpectedly, Soon grabs Ji by the neck and says he talks too much. He strangles his enemy with intense force, and Kang says all the representatives can come at him. Even while severely wounded, he gives a sinister smile and says he'll wipe them all out. Out of breath, close to passing out and struggling to break free, Ji curses at his opponent. Without enough strength to escape the chokehold, Ji faints, saying sometimes you have to fight dirty. As soon as he passes out, Kang Soo-hoon says he should dress properly before saying that. We then see our protagonist climbing the many steps of the staircase to reach the top. There were no henchmen along the way, and now he just has to get to the rooftop. Seeing that silence has taken over the place, he assumes Soo-hoon defeated Baek. However, as soon as he arrives at the scene, he notices his companion lying unconscious against a pillar. Ji Baek's hands are covered in tomato sauce from beating Kang Soo-hoon so much. In an altered state, he yells that he loves it when idiots let their guard down. He asks if the enemy really thought he'd pass out for a chokehold. About to stomp on Kang's face, he says Kang should have finished him off after choking him. Before he can knock out or eliminate Soo-hoon, our hero appears and pushes Ji Baek. He yells and calls his companion tough, telling him to gather his strength and get up. Since it was Daewon who got him into this situation, he tells him to run while he buys time. Ji Baek Chang says their sense of camaraderie is way too embarrassing. Laughing at Daewon-ha, he asks if he really defeated Il-seok and reveals himself as the final boss. In shock, the protagonist realizes he's the dungeon's final boss and notices he's in good condition. For this fight, Daewon has low health and no energy points compared to Ji. He tells him to come at him, and also realizes that with Kang unconscious, just winning won't be enough. It's also impossible to run from this duel, and at that moment, Baek charges at him with a punch. He says he's going to crush Borome, but his boss shows up and asks what he thinks he's doing. Jung Seok-young, age 18, says he knows nothing about Ji Baek's plan. Clearly frightened, Baek asks what his leader is doing there. Daewon-ha wonders who this man is that's making Ji Baek so scared. He can't say much about the man, but he does notice that he's very short. Ji Baek tries to explain, saying the people from Borome-dong invaded their base. With a hateful glare at his subordinate, the boss refutes him and says he heard they attacked first. Terrified in his boss's presence, he agrees and is then asked if they took money too. Sweating cold from fear of the representative, he responds affirmatively. Suddenly, the short man vanishes from in front of his underling and says he made a mistake. In the air, the short man then delivers a powerful kick to Ji Baek Chang's face. As the vassal takes the kick from his boss, his teeth fly out along with some ketchup. The thug goes flying far away and slams his back against a distant wall. Daewon-ha wonders if the short guy really defeated the final boss with just one hit. He gets a stare from the leader of the other gang and realizes he's in a dangerous spot now. Just as the short man is about to threaten our protagonist, Han appears coming up the stairs and asks him to stop. Daewon is surprised to see Han Eun-sung, and Han says the short guy's lines aren't even funny. Our hero asks why Han Eun-sung is there, and Jung asks if he really doesn't know. Jung says he was the one who asked him to visit and even gave him the location. Daewon remembers the day he invited Han Eun-sung to the dungeon back at school. Our protagonist tried to convince the leader of Silum-dong to help, and Han rejected him right away. This shocks Daewon-ha. Han actually remembered the address and came all the way there. Sung asks what Daewon wants, and the short man asks if they're going to forget the school invasion. Threatening Han, the short guy says if not for that, he would handle everything on his own. He tells them not to mess with his people again, and Daewon finds him really intimidating. The representative of Silum-dong walks right past the short delinquent without saying a word. He tells Sung to take care, and the buff delinquent leader thanks the short guy for his kindness. Meanwhile, our protagonist is shocked seeing the state Ji-baek was left in. Daewon-ha wonders if this whole situation really came to an end this time. Carrying Kang on his back, he says the buff guy is super heavy, and Kang, proud as ever, asks to walk by himself. Kang Soo-hoon asks our hero what happened with Han and Sung. Our protagonist replies that Han seems more like an ally than a friend, but Kang says Han wouldn't get close to Daewon for no reason, and that there's something off about it. He thinks Han is taking advantage of being a representative, and Daewon says he should be concerned about that. He concludes by saying that, as promised, Soo-hoon is now the representative of Boramaidon. This shocks the delinquent, and he opens his eyes wide at the news. In that moment, he remembers everything that happened during the mission. Kang says Daewon shouldn't give up his position so easily like that, because they are part of the bully council and are there facing the guys from Bongchindong. Convinced, Soo-hoon says that next time he will take the position of representative. Then he says goodbye, telling Daewon had to stay alive, and Daewon becomes suspicious of his tone. Finally, the system notifies our protagonist that the royal castle dungeon has been cleared. It begins calculating his contribution to the dungeon mission in order to reward him. With a smile on his face, our protag waits for the great reward he was promised. Because he didn't contribute to the defeat of the final boss, his reward will be reduced. Daewon knows that beating the boss is one of the most important parts, and it makes sense to have lost the bonus. His reward for completing the dungeon was 12 bronze keys, which he considers quite a lot. He walks out happy and excited, wondering which attributes he should improve with those keys. The next morning, our protagonist in a suit comments that the weather is nice. He feels happy and satisfied that the spring season has finally arrived. Standing in front of a mausoleum, he comments that if it weren't for today, it would be even better. Upon entering the mausoleum, he sees photos with his father and flowers. At that moment, Daewon begins to speak to him while looking sadly at his photo in the picture frame. Then he remembers the day his father passed away, when the brakes failed and caused the accident. His father avoided hitting a pedestrian and, unable to brake, crashed into a streetlight pole. The unfortunate doctor tells Daewon-ha's mother that there's nothing more that can be done, and suggests they prepare for the worst news as young Daewon sheds tears. Now in the present, visiting his father's grave, he doesn't shed a single tear. Seeing the flowers placed right above the framed photo, he wonders if someone had come there before. Someone inside the mausoleum says that Daewon-ha's father was a good man. He says that he chose to lose his own life to save someone else's. Our protagonist seems to recognize the person who has something to say to him. The mysterious person suggests it might have been a planned crime and not an accident. Han assumes the culprit could be someone close to him and asks what he would do. In shock, Daewon-ha asks Sung what he's talking about. Before hearing the answer, he wants to know why he's there and if he knew his father. Sung stays silent and begins to remember his childhood at that moment. Jin-ha found him in a park and called out to him. He scolded him, saying that drinking too much soda wouldn't help him grow up healthy. In exchange, he gave a juice box of strawberry juice to young Sung. Han found it suspicious, and Jin-ha explained he was there to make sure no one smoked. Young Sung asked why the man did that, and he began to explain. Jin-ha told the young boy he was a bully hunter. Little Han called him unemployed, and Daewon's father firmly denied that. In the present, the representative of Silum-dong says that this doesn't matter right now. Without letting the man finish his sentence, Daewon-ha confesses that he's really confused. He repeats Han's words about his father supposedly being the victim of a planned crime. He tries to tell himself that Sung wouldn't have come there just to mess with him. While trying to argue that the police said it was an accident, Han says he has proof. He tells our protagonist that he has evidence that never came to light at the time. The night before, Sung asked someone if he should really tell Daewon in person. Speaking with the dwarf Jung Seok, he confirms that Daewon is the son of Jin-oh, the shelter from the sun, and he states that Sung is close to the nerdy gamer boy. Jung wondered why he was hanging around with Daewon and didn't know if there was a reason. Suddenly, he slams his drink down on the table and intends to add something. Jung Seok says he found something interesting and grabs his phone to show Han. Sung is shocked by the information about Daewon's father. In the present, he tells Daewon that Jung showed him a video on the day they invaded the building from the crime scene of Jin-ha 3 years ago, and Daewon-ha is shocked by the news. The representative of Silum-dong says that whether he believes it or not, he must decide for himself. Our protagonist remains alone in silence in the room, looking at the photo in the picture frame. He gazes at his father's smile in the photo with quiet sadness in the present moment. After that, he returns home and takes a shower. Looking out the window and noticing the heavy rain, something outside catches his attention. The falling spring rain makes him reflect on Han Sung's proposal. Han told him that Jung Seok has a video with proof of the crime scene from 3 years ago. Our protagonist can't believe this information and thinks it's impossible. Clutching his towel tightly, he can't accept that it might be true. Meanwhile, Han Sung watches the rain from the window of his high-rise apartment. As he pulls his phone from his pocket, he sees some messages from Daewon-ha. Clicking on the message, he reads our hero talking about the representative of Bongchin. In the messages, he asks about the whereabouts of Jung Seok-young. On the rainy day, a vassal holds an umbrella for Jung, who asks if it's letting up. After his subordinate confirms, he notices something strange on the street that draws his attention. He's shocked to see Daewon-ha standing in the middle of the rain with a serious expression. Knowing it's not a coincidence, he asks why he's there, and Daewon asks about the evidence. Quickly, the gang leader pulls a flash drive from his pocket and asks if he means this. But Jung Seok-young frowns and says he's not going to hand over the evidence to the protagonist. He tells Daewon-ha that if he can take the item from his hands, then it'll be his. Abruptly, our hero uses his skills to snatch the flash drive from Jung's possession. Before he can land a solid hit on Jung, his subordinate throws Daewon far away. Daewon manages to plant his hands on the ground to stop himself and slow down. With heavy steps, Jung Seok's vassal stands in front of our hero like a wall. The bodyguard says if the delinquent acts like this in someone else's territory, it will be a problem, and right after saying that, he prepares a powerful punch at Daewon-ha. Before being hit, he remembers his 12 bronze keys earned from the mission. Deciding to spend them all on attributes, he wondered which would cost more. He then unlocked his magic stats, increasing them by 100, and did it 12 times. That boosted his mana points from 400 to 1600. With ease, he uses the blind spot technique before taking the punch and lands one on the enemy's face. Right after landing that punch, he charges another one, surrounded by intense energy on his fist. Then he uses the multiple strike destruction, delivering a flurry of punches to the enemy. Getting beaten by the gamer nerd, Jung's vassal grows furious. Abruptly and unexpectedly, our protagonist grabs his face and slams him into the ground. At the moment he takes him down, he activates the stunning fall technique. Relieved to have taken down the big guy, he stares seriously at Jung Seok-young. The Bongshin leader says he made it clear last time that no one should mess with his men. Stating that Daewon-ha made a mistake, he jumps and attempts to deliver a flying kick at him. He announces it and says he's going to kick our protagonist, doing it with extreme speed. But suddenly, he realizes his target vanished, and he hits nothing but air. When he looks up, he sees Daewon-ha about to bring down a kick from above. He uses the falcon drop and lands a powerful kick on Jung Seok-young with full force. A quick motion is visible from the movement of the puddle on the ground. He manages to block the falcon drop with his arm, and smoke starts to rise from the impact. Facing our hero directly, he says that one strike won't be enough to bring him down. Daewon knows this fight is different from the others. He decides to use the keys to release mana, and then unleash all his abilities to win. He knows that if he can use them as many times as he wants, he can win, and immediately tries another kick at Jung. This time, he does a high jump followed by another falcon drop kick. Jung Seok-young questions whether Daewon really thinks his kick will work a second time. After dodging the kick with ease, he says Daewon has simple patterns and prepares a punch. But he's caught off guard by a double-footed flying kick and doesn't have time to strike. However, Jung of Bongshin Dong easily blocks again using his forearm. Daewon knows the problem is that this guy is different from the other enemies and won't go down easily. Seeing his opponent go for another strike, the protagonist knows that until he figures out his techniques, he must give it everything he has and counters by throwing the enemy over his shoulder toward the ground. As soon as Jung hits the ground, he uses his stunning strike technique to try and finish the fight. But Daewon is shocked to see that Jung Seok didn't fall. He remains standing without touching the ground. With his head turned toward the protag, the delinquent says it's a pleasant surprise. Daewon is startled by how he stayed on his feet and steps back in fear. While fighting the nerd, the delinquent Jung says the movements are a bit surreal. Without letting the gamer servant finish his sentence, he says he already made up his mind. Running toward the player, he says that from now on, he will land only 2 strikes. Asking Daewon-ha to show more of his moves before the fight ends. Seeing the speed of the Bongshin leader, our hero can't react to this first strike. His HP drops from 1500 to 200 in a single hit. When he takes that incredibly powerful punch, our hero nearly passes out and is left in shock. Looking down on Daewon, the delinquent says his defense is weak compared to his offense. The protag doesn't think he can win. Jung is far too strong to be taken down by his abilities. Jung says he expected more from him, and Daewon-ha begins to get angry, clenching his fist. With no options left, our hero uses his blind spot technique on his opponent's foot. Jung Seok-young asks what Daewon is doing while he holds his foot. He asks if that's supposed to be an attack, or if he's trying to trip him in such a lowly way. Our protag says he is, in fact, trying to trip him. After all, the floor is wet. Using his strength, he manages to bring down the Bongshin representative by using the puddle of water. Taking advantage of the fact that he landed headfirst, he winds up a punch and says Jung's going to eat his teeth. With his enemy on the ground, he activates the destructive multi-punch ability. As soon as he finishes the move, he quickly uses it again, creating a combo. Sweat flies from our hero's body from the sheer effort being demanded. After that, he delivers a third combo, creating an even larger sequence of destructive blows. Exhausted, Daewon-ha exhales heavily from how drained his body feels, but his opponent doesn't look even slightly hurt and asks if he's done attacking. Jung Seok-young says he seems lost and has a piece of advice for our protag. He informs the gamer nerd that his hand is completely ruined and covered in jelly-like blood. Jung says he doesn't know what he expected from a boy like him. He adds that the boy doesn't seem to have anything new left to show him. Extending his hand, The delinquent tells him to take the flash drive he's holding. Daewon, curious, reaches his trembling hand toward the item offered by Jung Seok, but the thug tricks him and sends him flying with an extremely strong punch. Launched far by the impact, our protagonist crashes into some crates. Holding the flash drive with evidence about his father's death, Jung never intended to hand it over. Leaving Daewon severely injured from the blow, Jung Seok says that was the second strike. He says that if our hero wants that item, he can visit the representative again, but adds that next time, Daewon will be beaten until he's eliminated by Jung. The prodigue starts closing his eyes, on the verge of passing out, and Jung had hoped for more fun, saying it was more boring than he thought. The Bongshan representative walks away. Rain begins to fall from the sky, hitting the face of our knocked-out hero. He suddenly opens his eyes in shock and rises, badly wounded, in the middle of the heavy rain. In disbelief, Daewon wonders if he really lost this duel to the thug. He remembers En Sung and the talk about the flash drive containing evidence of his father's murder. Then he recalls Jung Seok Young tricking him and telling him to take the flash drive. Sad as he remembers his father, our protagonist squeezes his arms to try to comfort himself. Curling into a fetal position and crying, he says he's sorry to his dad. He feels terrified and thinks that if he faces the delinquent again, he won't be able to win. He asks himself what he should do now, as the rain mixes with his tears. Our hero remembers it was on a rainy spring night just like this that his father passed away. At that exact moment, a new mission is activated in the game system. Daewon says that everything happened before he even understood his weaknesses that day. The system shows him the rewards he'll receive for this mission, and now he realizes he's gotten stronger. After that, a message appears asking if he wants to accept this mission with a great reward. With the goal of getting stronger, he accepts the mission and already feels stronger than before. Daewon talks about the Sun Shelter, an institute that aimed to guide young people onto the right path. His father, Oh Jin-ha, was the representative of this charitable group. All the members of the institution admired and praised him for his social work. However, his own son didn't feel the same attachment to him as everyone else did. One day, years ago, our protagonist, feeling sleepy, asked his father if he was heading out. Oh Jin-ha, seeing his son awake late at night, said there was still a lot of work to do. Daewon talks about a boy named Park Jung-soo from the shelter who used to smoke during school breaks. Our hero's father said he had already spoken with the boy, but quitting smoking is difficult. Daewon had reported that he was stealing from others and bought a motorcycle with the shelter's money. His father blamed himself and felt he was being incompetent because of that. The nerd asked if he really believed the boys would change, and questioned whether he planned to make money from donations. Jin left that day, and now Daewon realizes he blamed his father for trying to help delinquents. Oh Jin-ha had invited him to go camping that weekend, and Daewon refused immediately. It never crossed the young boy's mind that it would be the last day his father would be alive. Recalling that day with deep sadness and resentment, Daewon screams loudly. He wakes up sweaty and sad in his bed after the nightmare about his father Jin. He remembers what Jung said and gets angry that he told Daewon to visit anytime. He's certain that Seok Young is very strong and that he fell sick because of the rain. He considers the possibility that the car accident that took his father's life 3 years ago was a planned crime. He wonders why Jung from Bongqian has a flash drive with that kind of information. He suspects Jung Seok is involved since he refused to hand over the item containing the evidence. However, he rethinks it. After all, Han said Jung is someone close, and Daewon had never seen him before that. Daewon realizes that if Jin were involved, he wouldn't have offered the evidence if Daewon won the fight. Thinking too much about all these exceptions, his mind starts getting confused and irritated. He knows he needs to see the evidence with his own eyes as soon as he defeats Jung Seok. To do that, he has to complete a mission that asks him to improve his body in 5 steps. And by completing the mission, he'll gain many attribute points and become stronger than he is now. Internally, he tells himself that he will get the evidence from Jung Seok Young soon enough. He says it doesn't matter what the mission is, he'll handle it. The first mission is to make his way to school imitating the monster from the movie The Exorcist. 2 girls start mocking Daewon as he walks to school with his body upside down. Even dying of embarrassment, he'll do whatever it takes for his improvement instead of going to the gym. He doesn't care and is willing to do anything for physical enhancement. He decides to complete all the tasks and runs with his body inverted, scaring the girls at school. The second task required him to sit in an invisible chair for a long time, and he did it. In the third mission, he had to catch a pigeon with his hands, and despite great difficulty, he succeeded. In his fourth mission, Daewon had to cling to the underside of a playground slide. Upon reaching the final task, he had to do a ring exercise on hard mode. Even with great difficulty, he doesn't give up, not even on the final and hardest mission. An entire week passes, and exhausted, our protagonist apologizes to his father. With only 2% progress, he feels like he won't be able to complete the task. At an amusement park in the late afternoon, he says he started thinking about something. He comes to the conclusion that Jung Seok's evidence might be fake since it appeared out of nowhere. The idea that Ian Sung is deceiving him seems more plausible, and he decides to finish the mission quickly. He considers giving up on the ring mission until someone shows up and asks what he's whispering. He sees Kang Si-hoon and asks what he's doing there, and the delinquent says he's in his neighborhood. He asks why Daewon is hugging the slide, and Daewon explains it's part of a training routine. So our protagonist asks why he's training at the park instead of the gym. Kang Si-hoon says it's because he was obese in elementary school during his childhood. Ashamed of his body, he didn't go to the gym and used to train at night in the park. Without resting or stopping for 2 consecutive years, he completely changed his body. In the first year, as he was getting stronger, all he could think about was giving up, and Daewon understands him. Now he returns to this place to train and remember the past. He compares himself to Kang Si-hoon since he was younger, after getting beaten up at school. He decided to learn sports, and asked his mother to enroll him in Taekwondo. But those decisions never lasted long because he would quit the sport to play video games. Whenever he got beaten up at school again, he would ask his mom to put him in another sport. However, young Do-won-ha would give up too easily and go back to gaming because martial arts felt too hard. Back in the present, the delinquent asks if he's not going to keep going. Kang Si-hoon asks our protag if he wasn't in the middle of training just now. Reflective, our hero looks at his goals and finds inspiration in people like Kang who never give up. He apologizes silently to his father for making it sound so weak. Gripping the playground slide again, he's motivated to try one more time. Clenching his teeth and putting in all his strength, he decides not to give up and to go all the way this time. Hanging from the slide, Do-won-ha shouts as he strains, and Kang tells him to be quiet. Time passes quickly, and 2 months go by. In his office, Jung Seok-young hears someone arriving at the location. He tells the person that he thought they had given up, but here they are now in his office. Jung Seok looks directly at Do-won-ha as he enters through the front door. Holding the flash drive, he says he understands why Do-won wants it. He remembers that last time he said Do-won would get beaten until he was annihilated, and he wasn't joking. Closing the office door, our hero tells Jung Seok-young he can try to do that. The protag says this time things will be different. His stats are way higher, he even reached level 100. Before the battle can begin, we see what happened 2 months earlier with Do-won. Dripping in sweat, he says he finally managed to do something. He caught a pigeon with his bare hands, completing part of the mission, though it was exhausting. Even though pigeons weren't afraid of people, it was still hard to grab one by hand. Determined not to give up this time, he set out to complete his next objective. So he hung from the bottom of a playground slide, and his progress improved greatly. At that point, the body enhancement mission was only 9% complete. Then he had to sit in an invisible chair throughout all his classes. At that pace, he soon reached 21% progress in the task. Next, by completing the ring mission on the hardest difficulty, his progress increased further. He realized he could finish the mission as quickly as possible and soon reached the halfway mark. Very tired, he finally managed to complete it by doing the slide task. He celebrates for finally finishing the body enhancement training and meeting all the requirements. The mission completion reward is a general increase in his attributes. Right before his eyes, Do-won-ha watches all his stats increase one by one, but he doesn't feel any different in his body and wonders if anything really changed. To understand how much those stats actually changed, he decides to test what happened. Focused on finding out what happened the day his father died, he decides to test his status. Jung Seok-young says he has no idea what Do-won-ha did over the last 2 months, and he asks the gamer if he really thinks he has a chance to win after all this time. Do-won says nothing, and Jung thinks it makes sense. It's about his father, so he got reckless. Jumping over the desk, the Bongshin delinquent says that if Do-won wants to die so badly, he'll send him to where Oh-jin-ha is and lands a kick on Do-won-ha. The thug is shocked, and our hero, before even starting, wants to ask him a question. Easily blocking the enemy's strike, Do-won-ha asks where he got the evidence. Shocked that the nerdy kid blocked the attack, Jung Seok steps back. Seeing that he almost took a counter, he finds the situation interesting. Running toward his target, the delinquent asks why he should tell that to Do-won. Then, after winding up, he lands a fast and powerful punch to his target's face. But our hero blocks the punch with his hand and says he doesn't need to answer just yet. With a threatening tone, he says he'll make Jung Seok hand over both the evidence and the answer. Shocked by this, Jung remembers a conversation he had with Han Eun-sung. Showing the video to Eun-sung, he asks if the culprit is a specific person. After Han confirms, the delinquent says he's going to make good use of the video. However, Han Eun-sung suggests they should give the video to Do-won-ha. But the representative of Bongshin isn't interested in that since he had no connection with Jin. He replies that if Eun-sung cares so much, he can tell Do-won himself that he found the culprit. Still, Han says that if he doesn't see the video, he won't be convinced it's true. Even after hearing the truth, he would become obsessed with finding the video that proves it. Jung has no intention of sharing the video and waits for Do-won to come to him. In the end, he had said that Do-won would never manage to take the flash drive from him. Now in the present, seeing the nerdy kid block his punch, he can't understand how. He doesn't know if this is still the same weakling as before and finds it impossible that he changed so much in just 2 months. He wonders if it's really possible while Do-won blocks another punch with ease. Do-won defends a combo of strikes, and Jung assumes he only got physically stronger. Jung, the representative of Bongshin Do-won, asks how long Do-won is going to last. He realizes how much more resilient Do-won is now, and we see his defense has increased by 200 points. After that, Seok-young tries to land a kick on our protagonist, who dodges by ducking his torso. Irritated, he shouts to distract his target and tries to stomp him. But when he throws the powerful kick, he hits the wall as Do-won dodges it. Jung Seok notices that at that exact moment, the gamer nerd didn't attack on purpose. We also see that the protagonist's agility has increased by 200 points. He laughs nervously and remembers something Han once said about thinking he'd never lose to Do-won. While drinking with Han, he said he'd heard that Do-won had been walking around recently. He said that even so, the gamer was only facing opponents considered weak. Then he asked if Eun-sung really believed Do-won was a match for him. Han Eun-sung agreed with Jung that there was no real competition between them. However, he added that this was only true for now, and the Bongshin delinquent didn't understand. Han said he couldn't explain it, but that somehow Do-won was a special person. Back in the present, Jung Seok-young wonders if this is what Eun-sung was talking about. He says his impression wasn't wrong when he claimed Do-won's movements were unreal. With a crazed expression on his face, Jung asks what is happening with Do-won. Seok says it makes no sense and asks if this is some kind of inherited power. Our hero notices that, just like before, Jung's behavior suddenly changed. His enemy starts running and preparing a punch. saying that Do-won should go join his father. Enraged at the comment about his father, the protagonist lands a quick punch to Jung Seok-young's chin. As soon as he's hit, he feels intense pain and strawberry jelly flies from his mouth. Do-won says that Jung seems to be having fun, and already furious, prepares another strike. Taking advantage of his enemy's weakened state, he quickly punches him and slams him into the ground. Looking down at Jung with a cold gaze, he says there will be no more reason to laugh now. After taking a beating and being threatened, Jung laughs and says his expectations were exceeded. He maniacally claims that finally, after so long, he can take a fight seriously. From the top of an abandoned building, we see Ji Baek-chan watching. A timid subordinate shows up and calls for his boss. He tells the Bongshin assemblyman that the alarms are still sending alert signals. Baek asks if it's Seok in his office now, and the vassal says the alarm won't stop. Ji Baek asks what the alarm from Jung's office is saying, and his subordinate goes to check. He replies that the alarm system is detecting and reporting loud impacts. At that exact moment, Jung Seok-young kicks a wall, and the alarm detects the collision. He tries to kick Do-won, who dodges and ducks. Jung thinks it's impossible he changed so much in 2 months. He attacks non-stop at high speed, while the protagonist blocks everything, and Jung finds it unbelievable. Jung tries to mention something he did during that time, but before he can, Do-won's back hits the couch. As Do-won falls, Jung prepares a strike and says he didn't gain real experience in that time. Taking advantage of the fall, our protagonist lands a powerful kick to Jung's face, canceling his move. He then jumps onto the other couch to recover his balance and gain the upper hand. Relieved that everything went well, Do-won knows that move was dangerous. Jung runs toward the protag, charging a punch, and says his attack wasn't bad at all. This time, his insane strike hits our hero directly, sending him flying into the wall. But he quickly steadies himself on the ground and asks if Jung has always had such a big mouth. Jung Seok-young says that knowing he can fight seriously got him this excited. Do-won says it's the first time he's heard something like that from a man who's about to punch him. Right after saying that, he lands a clean punch, and while falling, Jung follows up with a kick. However, this time our protagonist doesn't dodge and takes the kick right to the face. Feeling the pain, he loses focus, and caught off guard, he takes a punch to the ribs. Do-won notices that Jung is faster and starts landing a flurry of attacks in succession. He wonders if Jung wasn't fighting seriously all this time, and Jung says he won't get the flash drive. But Do-won wasn't fighting seriously either, and he blocks Jung Seok-young's knee strike. Landing a powerful punch to Jung's face, he says he'll take the flash drive by force. Now Do-won is able to stay calm and think clearly, even in the middle of a fight. He imagines this might be the effect of his spirit stat, which went from 1 to 201. Running toward the representative, he demands he hand over the item. With his full analysis complete, he knows he'll end the fight now and lands several blows. From the way Jung saw it, he realized that Do-won had been hiding his strength until now. Our protag says anything more than this is a waste of time and hits him with a flurry of attacks. However, the leader of Bongshin Dong dodges and asks if it's really a waste of time. He lands a heady, destructive punch to his target's face and says they're just getting started. Putting in all his strength and resisting the punch to the face, Do-won denies what Jung just said. He repeats that this ends now, and we see his arm grow massive as he powers up his strike. He lands a massive punch to his enemy's stomach, and Jung Seok screams loudly at that moment. Blue lightning bursts from our hero's fist, and we see he landed a critical hit. At that moment, he throws his enemy far away, and lightning shoots out from the punch. The villain flies several meters and crashes into the ground, breaking the office furniture. Even our protagonist is impressed by the fact that it was a critical hit. He wanted to ask where the evidence came from, but realizes he just wiped the floor with Jung Seok. Knowing that isn't important right now, he grabs the flash drive from Jung and takes it with him. Meanwhile, the Bongshin deputy gets worried because Jung won't answer the phone. Concerned and anxious, he gathers gang members and heads to Jung's office. He orders his subordinate to check what's going on, and the man obeys. In the alleyway, he finds the familiar white-haired face of Han Eun-sung. Sitting on the stairs, waiting for the Bongshin gang, the underling yells for his boss to come. Ji Baek-chang finds it strange and asks what Han Eun-sung is doing in that place. In response to the question, Han says he's stopping anyone who tries to go up the stairs. Baek assumes something's going on in Jung's office. That's why the alarm was turned off. Jae guesses that his boss Jung is out of the office, and that's why Han is just sitting there. He says that either way, everyone from Boramaidong is screwed after this. Threatening Eun-sung, he says that if anything happens, he brought all of Bongshin Dong with him. Staring with hatred, Han asks again why he's there now. The white-haired thug repeats that he's stopping anyone who tries to climb the stairs. Ji Baek snaps his fingers and says he'll find out who the intruder is after taking Han down. An stands up and says if he wants to get past him, that's fine, but asks if he's really sure. Standing face to face with Ji, he says in a threatening tone that from now on, he'll have to stop him. In the past, we see Do-won saying he didn't expect Han to know his father. The prodigue says he's going to recover the flash drive, and after losing, he'll defeat Jung next time. He assumes it won't take long after all. He wants to see the evidence with his own eyes. Before heading to the place, Do-won tells Han Eun-sung over the phone that he's on his way. He asks his friend Han for the address of the Bongshin Dong headquarters. Back in the present, Han Eun-sung, invading their territory, gives them a choice to make, giving two choices: either retreat now or charge at him. Correcting himself, Han says the entire Bongshin Dong gang can come at him if they want. He says he hates dragging things out, and Ji Baek-chang starts sweating nervously, afraid of him. He knows very well that Eun-sung isn't a normal person, but still finds his words absurd. After all, there are over 40 members in the gang, and he thinks it's impossible they would lose to him. Even so, he wonders why he's feeling so hesitant and afraid in this situation. Looking into Han's eyes and posture, he senses a very strong malicious intent. At that moment, our protagonist comes down the stairs and finds the scene in front of him strange. Before he can ask Unsung why he's there, he notices the dungeon boss's presence. As soon as he looks outside, he's shocked by the number of people there. Ji-Baek Chang angrily asks what Daewon-ha is doing at Bongshan's headquarters. Threatening the assemblyman, Han Eun-sung once again whispers in his ear that he hates stalling. Upon hearing this, Ji-Baek loses control and his fist begins to tremble. He orders all his men to step back and make way for Daewon and Eun-sung to pass. Furious, Baek storms into his boss's office with the urge to crush Borome. He says once they resolve this situation, the gang members will pay for it. The moment he enters the office, he's shocked to see that his boss was there the entire time. He asks what happened for him to be injured and for the office to be destroyed, and Jung says it was Daewon. He says Jai is too noisy and it wasn't a big deal, but he knows Daewon is hiding something. He tells the gang to clean the place and promises himself that next time, he'll discover the nerd's secret. Wiping the strawberry jelly from his mouth with an insane expression, he vows to uncover everything. Han Eun-sung and Daewon sit in a park, and he asks why his classmate came there. In response, he tells the gamer servant to watch the video first, and then they'll talk more. Plugging the flash drive into his phone, he feels satisfied to finally discover what happened. He clicks the video to finally understand the truth behind his father's accident. Watching the video, he immediately recognizes that the black car is his father's. He notices the video is short and sees an unknown masked man behind Oh Jin-he's car. He sees that this man in a hat and mask was sabotaging his father's car in the video. He knows that the man is doing something he shouldn't, and that the cause of the accident was brake failure. He can't tell who this person is, but realizes that he deliberately sabotaged the brakes. However, he remembers Han Eun-sung saying it's someone close to him. He asks Han if he knows who the person is, since it's someone familiar, and Han tells him to look at the man's clothes. At first glance, Daewon-ha doesn't notice anything strange about the person's outfit. But looking closely, just as Eun-sung said, he spots a jacket from the shelter. This detail shocks our protagonist, and he widens his eyes in disbelief. He remembers his father showing him the sun shelter uniform and asking for his opinion. At the time, our protagonist thought the uniform was ugly, and his father was disappointed by that. He said delinquents wouldn't wear a uniform like that and asked why give them something for no reason. Oh Jin-ha replied that they would feel welcome. After all, there were homeless kids at the shelter. His father said that things like that uniform could make them feel accepted, and as a result, they could begin to trust each other, which might influence everyone to change in a positive way. Even though it had an ugly design, he asked if his son thought the jacket was cool anyway. That makes Daewon-ha realize the one responsible for the accident was a former member of the Sun Shelter. Han says that just based on the jacket, they can't be sure he was a former ally of the shelter. However, even so, he believes it's plausible and makes a lot of sense. Angry, Daewon clenches his fist tightly and remembers telling his father that delinquents would never change. In the end, the result of his father's efforts with delinquents led to his death. Thinking about all this, our protagonist lowers his head and feels sad. Eun-sung says that even if he finds out who the culprit is, there's no point reporting it to the police. The investigation will happen, but they won't be able to identify the culprit, and the source of the evidence is unclear. Jung Seok-young said he received the video anonymously via message. Han asks if our hero has any guesses about who the culprit is, and he replies that he doesn't. He says that after his father's death, the shelter collapsed, and getting information from that time would be difficult. But something seems to come to Daewon's mind. He remembers that the building is still standing and might have evidence. He thanks his companion Eun-sung for that, since it gave him time to think and come up with the idea. His friend asks what he plans to do once he finds the person responsible for the accident. Internally, Daewon tells his father that it might take some time, but he will take down the one responsible. Out loud, he tells Han that he's going to take them all down and make them pay for their crimes. The next day in class, his classmate says they're entering test week, and Daewon is shocked. Their teacher says he put difficult questions on the exam, and they need to study. Our protag starts to panic. He hasn't studied at all while doing missions. Jihan, his classmate, asks if something is wrong with Daewon-ha. Being honest with his friend, he says he hasn't studied at all, and Jihan says he understands. Jihan offers help if the gamer servant needs it. Kindly, he asks if our hero wants to go to his house after school to study. When classes end, Daewon realizes something he hadn't noticed until now. Since meeting Jihan, they've been in the same class the whole time and eat lunch together. He hadn't realized it because he was too busy with other things, but thinking about it now, he realizes Jihan is his friend, and he feels confused by that thought. Excited by the invitation, Daewon-ha asks where his friend Jihan Yu's house is. At that moment, the system notifies that a mission is active, and his friend asks what he said. The school mission requires our hero to protect Jihan Yu during test week. He wonders what kind of weird and sudden mission this is to protect his friend out of nowhere. Our protag understands from that Jihan is probably in danger. Two delinquents in an alley start talking about women's appearances in a disgusting way. One of them hugs a girl and says he only has her, but she looks clearly uncomfortable. Another girl asks what Guman is looking at, and he says he recognized someone on the street. Looking at Jihan Yu, he says it's strange to see him in a place like this. After all, he used to be his best friend in the past, and we see a group of 4 people in that alley. After the system activates the mission, which is worth a secret item, There are still 4 days left before the tests. Standing in front of a mansion, our protag is in shock and asks if this is really Jihan's house. The boy confirms it is and tells his friend he can come in. When a woman notices Jihan's arrival, she asks if the other boy is his friend. Dawn introduces himself and calls the woman Jihan's mom, but she says she's his maid. The woman says she'll bring some fruit, and Dawn is surprised that he has a maid. Climbing a spiral staircase, they head toward the bedroom, and the prodigue says he's only seen houses like this in movies. They arrive at Jihan Yu's room, and the gamer servant is even more surprised. Even just visiting his house, he already feels much closer to his friend. He wonders when was the last time he was invited to a friend's house. The maid says it's been a long time since Jihan brought a friend home. She tells them not to worry about her and to call if they need anything. Dawn realizes the only time he saw Jihan with other people was that day at karaoke. His friend asks if they can start studying, and the gamer instantly says yes. In the late afternoon, the nerd thanks him and says they should keep studying like this during the week. He says goodbye to Jihan, tells him he'll see him at school tomorrow, and realizes the day went by fast. Our protagonist figures that with Jihan at home, nothing dangerous will happen. Dawn-ha keeps reading the school mission that requires him to protect his friend. Reading more carefully, he notices something he hadn't seen before. He wonders what this secret item is. Until now, the rewards were just keys. He imagines that since it's a secret item, it must be something really good, and he gets excited. 1 day passes, and now there are 3 days left until the tests begin. Jihan Yu is surprised that Dawn has solved all the practice questions. Suddenly, he sees his nerdy friend collapse on the floor with his eyes rolled back and gets scared. Dawn says his brain is overloaded with information and will crash if anything else goes in. Smiling kindly, his friend says they should take a break for a while. Entering a strange and unfamiliar room, Dawn asks Jihan what room this is. He says this is just a normal game room, but it's fancy and full of stuff. Dawn gets jealous. After all, it was his dream to have a setup like this and own all those items. Jihan says he doesn't even like to play games and that it was a gift from his parents. After all, the second floor of the house belongs to him. Our protagonist feels bad for not having that many things and realizes Jihan is on another level. He looks to the side. A white door catches the gamer slave's attention, and he asks what's in there. Jihan smiles and says it's just a storage room, and his friend pretends to find that normal. He gets distracted and notices that Jihan has a virtual reality headset, and the door seems to be hiding something. Another day passes, and now there are only 2 days left before the exams begin. Dawn asks if he's taking up his friend's time, but Jihan says no. He still needs to review. Noticing that nothing has happened with the mission, the protagonist thinks he worried for nothing and enjoys spending time with Jihan. Dawn asks if Jihan used to attend classes or had a tutor, and he replies that he had one in the past. When he says he had 20 tutors, our protagonist is shocked by the number. He says it wasn't just for studying. It covered all sorts of subjects, which helped him learn a bit of everything. A man interrupts the conversation and tells Jihan it's been a long time since they last saw each other. He says it's the first time they've met since elementary school, and Jihan seems to recognize him. He knows that man is Lee Guman, a tattooed guy sitting on his motorcycle. Before Jihan can ask how he found them, he says he saw Jihan walking on the street. With nothing better to do, he decided to stop by and says it's nice seeing his old classmate again. Dawn notices Jihan trembling when Guman mentions he found out Jihan had moved to Gwangju. Seeing his friend shaking with fear, Lee Guman asks if Dawn-ha is his friend. Bravely, our hero asks who this man is, and Jihan pleads with him not to confront him. Dryly, the boy tells the delinquent he didn't miss him and doesn't want him visiting. Turning his back, saddened, he asks the gamer servant to follow him and leave the place. Guman says nothing, and afterward, Dawn asks who that guy was. They didn't seem like friends. Jihan apologizes, saying they can't study together today, and the nerd replies that he'll study alone. His friend says he'll go ahead, and our protagonist says goodbye and tells him to be careful. He wonders what that was all about and tries to figure out who that man really was. Dawn questions whether it has something to do with the mission and opens the system screen. While walking home, Jihan remembers Guman asking if he licked the yogurt lid. Naively, the boy said yes, and the bully asked if he really did that. Taking the lid off a spoiled yogurt, he would make Jihan Yu eat the rotten stuff. With a wicked expression, he kept asking if Jihan wasn't going to lick the yogurt lid. While the poor kid licked the moldy yogurt, the whole class laughed at him, including Lee. Walking on his way home, he remembers it all sadly. At that point, our protagonist lets Jihan Yu go home alone. He decides not to follow him because of the mission. After all, Jihan asked Dawn not to. At least he saw his friend get home safely, so he figures everything should be fine. As soon as Jihan gets home tired, his maid asks about his friend Dawn. She says it wasn't Dawn. It was another friend who had been there and left a while ago. Then she says the rest of them are upstairs waiting for him. Jihan runs up the stairs since she mentioned the elementary school friends who used to come to his house. He then slams the game room door shut. Inside, he finds his old classmates. A girl says Jihan made a nice room and comments that he must be living really well. Other lazy boys lounging around his room ask him to give them his video game. Shocked, Jihan asks why they're there, and they ask why he took so long. Another girl says he wasn't home, so they sent Lee Guman to go get him. Jihan starts sweating cold with the situation, and Guman asks how he could leave them waiting that long. Threatening the innocent boy, Lee says their friends came to visit after a long time. He says they're going to have a lot of fun today, just like in the old elementary school days. As the day begins to fade, our protagonist heads to Jihan's house. He doesn't care about Jihan's request. After all, he can't let the situation stay like this. Ringing the doorbell at Jihan's house, he says he has a bad feeling. Jihan's maid answers the intercom and asks who it is. Dawn replies surprised that it's him. She wasn't expecting a visit from Daewon, and before he can explain, she has something to say. She says Jihan-yu is not home right now, which shocks the protagonist. The maid explains that he just went out with his old elementary school classmates. She doesn't know where they went and asks if she should call Jihan. Daewon wonders why he left so early. He thinks maybe Jihan had plans with his old school friends and accepts it, leaving. However, just then, the game system notifies him that he lost the target he was supposed to escort. A red alert appears, saying the mission difficulty has increased, something that has never happened before. The mission changes, and now he must rescue and save his friend Jihan-yu. He's shocked that the mission changed from protecting to saving his friend. That means Jihan didn't go out for fun with his friends. He was forced to go along. We see a group of delinquents playing pool. A girl misses a shot, and a friend mocks her. Meanwhile, Lee Gyumin, Jihan-yu's former elementary classmate, watches. He says it's been a long time since they've been to that hideout. He remembers they used to come here a lot for fun back in elementary school. Another bully asks how Jihan hasn't changed at all. Losers are always like that. A fat guy and another thug ask who the kid is and say he seems pretty naive. Gyumin knows Jihan is seeing new faces and says it's been 2 years since they came to this place. The new delinquents notice Jihan is shaking and tell him to relax. These thugs say Jihan-yu isn't drinking, and that bothers them. They question why Gyumin brought him since he hasn't even touched his drink. Lee also finds it annoying, and now that they brought it up, he tells Jihan to take a test. The boy doesn't understand, and Lee says they'll do a friendship test. He announces to all the delinquents there that he's going to slap Jihan-yu in the face. He says if any of them takes the slap in Jihan's place, he passes the test. Grabbing the boy by the collar, he says he doesn't need to worry. Preparing a strong slap, he says without a doubt, someone will help him. A loud slap echoes through the place, and a girl asks if no one is going to help. One of the bullies says it's just a slap, and Lee Gyumin agrees. As soon as Jihan falls to the ground, hurt, Lee says he should have treated his friends better. The girl asks what will happen if Jihan reports it to the police. After all, they hit him hard. Arrogant and cruel, the thug says nothing will happen because Jihan won't report them. He says that not only do the police know how Jihan is usually treated, but his mother will know too. Lee Gyumin asks if Jihan realizes how surprised he was after a certain day. He says if he'd known Jihan was nearby, he would have visited more often. Sad and outraged, Jihan-yu asks why the delinquent is doing all this to him. A dumb bully interrupts and tells Gyumin their drinks are running out. He hands him a credit card and tells him to buy more booze and cigarettes. Lee says his so-called friends offered him drinks and asks why he didn't drink. Standing face to face with the defenseless boy, he says he's starting to get angry again. Meanwhile, out on the city streets, our protagonist runs to try to find his friend. Entering specific places, he searches for Jihan-yu. He checks out the internet cafe and continues looking for his friend but doesn't find him. He wonders where he could be and searches desperately through alleys and back streets. Calling him, he realizes Jihan isn't answering until suddenly someone picks up. He asks where he is, and the person on the other end recognizes his voice as Jihan's friend. He remembers seeing a man that afternoon waiting for Jihan outside the school. He asks over the phone if this is the same man who was at the school gate earlier. Furious, he asks where they are, and the man mockingly asks if he's coming to save Jihan. Lee Gyumin says if he doesn't come, his friend will be in serious danger. He says he'll send the address and suggests he show up as soon as possible. After all, the friendship test has begun, and Lee Gyumin starts to smile wickedly. He then turns off his phone before Daewon-hae can say anything. Lee speaks to Jihan, questioning whether they're really friends. Weak and powerless, the boy grabs Gyumin's arm and tells him not to touch Daewon. The delinquents start mocking their friendship and making fun of what he said. Right after that, the bully slams Jihan's face into the floor with brutal force. He explains the reason for doing it is because Jihan's behavior is hypocritical and annoying. He tells him to stay quiet and watch as his friend Daewon-hae gets beaten because of him. The bullies enjoy having a rich friend like Gyumin since they can buy lots of stuff. They wonder who the nerd there is. They think he was Lee's friend in the past, but not anymore. They try to understand why they used to be so close and now aren't. They mention that the defenseless nerd is also pretty rich and talk about beating him up as Daewon watches. All the delinquents get irritated by how long the twin brothers are taking to bring the drinks. As soon as the door opens, they start bad-mouthing the two for taking too long. They ask what they were doing, and the injured body of one of them is thrown into the room. The bullies are in shock and look toward the door to understand what happened. They look at the entrance and see someone coming in, holding the body of the other delinquent. Lee Gyumin says this entrance by Daewon-hae carrying bodies is not what he expected. As soon as he arrives, he apologizes to Jihan-yu for taking so long. He says he doesn't know what's going on, but asks if all he needs to do is beat everyone up, and gets ready. A memory flashes in a hospital VIP room, where someone compliments Jihan's school uniform. His mother asks if he made any friends at school, and he says it was the first day after vacation. She asks if he got a girlfriend, and he reacts with embarrassment at her question. Jihan's mom smiles and says she just wants to see her son with good friends. She says he needs a strong friend to protect him, just like he takes care of her, since she's fragile. When he left his mom's room, a boy recognized their school uniform. The boy asked if he was a first-year student, and that was the day he met Lee. The next day, Gyumin asked if he would go to the hospital, and Jihan said they should go together. Jihan begins to recall why they became close back then and finds it strange. After all, they were in the same class, and both had mothers in the hospital. They were similar at the time. During that period, they were good friends and played together, having lots of fun. Gyumin said it would be nice if both their mothers were discharged soon, and they really connected. Jihan agreed, and because of that, he thought it would be a friendship that would last forever. That day, the doctor said Gyumin's mother had been hospitalized, and their similarity faded. When the doctor said she wouldn't last even another month, their relationship started to deteriorate. Back in the present, Daeonha asks if he can beat up all the delinquents in the place. Planning to take Daeon down, the bullies think his attitude is way too arrogant. Lee Gyumin, surprised, points out that his friend came all the way there to save him. He says it's very touching, and then Jihan-yu starts yelling for Daeonha to run away. The delinquents say it's too late to run and charge at the protagonist. In response, our hero lands a fast punch on the angry blonde guy. He hits a massive blind spot strike right on his face. Immediately, the bully falls to the floor, and Daewon realizes he has more enemies than usual. The others are shocked to see their buddy knocked out with just one punch. Daewon can't afford to be reckless. He must conserve energy and use the fewest strikes possible. Wasting no time, he runs toward another thug, startling the rest of them. Trying to punch Daewon, the chubby guy is too slow, and our hero reaches him first. He lands another blind spot punch, this time on the chin, and drops another enemy. As that one falls, he realizes hitting the chin is the key and starts searching for the next target. Behind him, a very angry delinquent tries to smash a glass bottle on his head. Charging with full speed, he screams that he'll break it on Daeonha's skull, but Daewon counters with a perfectly timed blind spot strike, also to the chin. Within seconds, he shatters the bottle and drops the thug with a single blow. As soon as the man falls to the ground, he says that was dangerous because of the glass bottle. The girl asks why he knocked him down with a single blow, and the chubby guy notices the hits on the chin. He jumps off the couch towards Daeonha, questioning where he plans to hit someone as big as him. Our protagonist replies that it will be on the face and lands a blind spot punch on the fat guy's face. However, the quick hand strike doesn't work on the chubby guy because he's more resistant. He grabs Daewon by the collar and says that's the reason he never loses weight. But as he's thrown, our hero manages to hold himself and stop the momentum to avoid falling. The chubby guy says he's getting dizzy from moving around so much and asks Lee for food. Lee asks what he wants. The guy says he'll think about what to order while beating up the boy. At that moment, the protagonist grabs the big guy by the shirt and he asks if he's trying to imitate him. Clenching his fist tightly, Daewon asks if he really thinks he can throw him around like that. He lands 3 blind spot punches, forming a combo and unleashing an explosion of massive strikes. His opponent loses teeth and gets badly injured, collapsing to the ground, knocked out. While everyone watches in shock, Daewon says he'll order a big bowl of rice for him. Human stays quiet, and his underlings say that's why you can't leave anything to others. They get up and say they should have gone at him from the beginning since the others are weak. The bowl cut guy tells Daewon the real fight starts now. Daewon faces his 2 enemies head on, and shortly after, they faint and fall to the ground. Afraid, the girls tell the boy not to come near them. But Daewon ignores all the delinquents, which confuses and frustrates Lee Gyumin. That's when our protagonist goes to Jihan-yu, helps him up, and checks if he's okay. Facing Gyumin directly, he asks if he's the one who did this to Jihan. Lee says the boy is lucky to have a good friend like Daeonha by his side. Smiling, he says he also has a friend like that by his side. He says it's a really good friend, and a strange hairy man stands up behind Daewon. Turning quickly and suddenly, Daewon wonders if there's still another enemy to fight. The man stands up and throws a cloak into the air, complaining about all the noise. He uses the cloak as a distraction and starts punching Daewon, saying he just wants to sleep peacefully. But our protagonist also takes advantage of the distraction to use a blind spot strike. However, his powerful punch is blocked by the enemy, who finds his counterattack interesting. He's shocked to see the punch blocked and also to feel the impact of the enemy's punch. He concludes that Kim Gain-jae is on a whole other level, ranking number 1 in fighting. Daewon talks about annihilating the man and decides it's fine to use something specific against him. Kim says that actually, Daewon will be the one annihilated, and Daewon plans to use his strongest skills. Meanwhile, at Jihan-yu's house, his maid comments on the vaporizer. She says she'll put it in the storage room for now and heads toward the white door. Seeing the room is dark, she assumes Jihan went out to eat. She's happy to see him going out with friends during exam week and knows his mom will be pleased too. This makes her wonder what they're doing at that exact moment. Kim asks why everyone is sleeping when he just woke up and punches Daewon many times. Daewon blocks the blows but notices the damage is stacking up, and each punch is incredibly strong. He assumes the strength comes from Kim's muscles and realizes he's at a disadvantage in a punch exchange. After all, Kim can block, so he must use his strongest skills without hesitation. Kim doesn't understand how Daewon beat everyone with weak attacks and asks if he has some secret. He grabs Daewon's hand and stops his attack, saying he'll take him out before he can do anything. However, even immobilized, Daewon spins his torso around his own axis to land a kick. He uses the Falcon's Fall and hits the big man's head, breaking free. Then he uses his energized body to strike the enemy again. These blows tear Kim Gain-jae's clothes and leave him badly injured. However, our protagonist is disappointed because he aimed at the head intending to finish him off. The girls are scared that he might really take down Kim too and tell each other to stay quiet. Saying he hasn't fully woken up yet, he starts to get irritated and charges at Daewon. Daewon quickly moves to Kim's side and says he's going to wake him up with a crushing blow. He sees his enemy on the ground and wonders if it's not the other way around, since he's about to knock him out. Jihan-yu, completely injured, finds his friend Daewon's blows impressive. Very annoyed, Lee Gyumin asks what the hell his idiot friend is doing in this fight. He looks to the side, and upon seeing the throwing darts, seems to get some wild idea. After taking a crushing, dizzying slap, Kim Gang-jae feels confused and hurt. Our hero says that being too strong is actually a problem, but his enemy doesn't get it. Using his destructive multiple strikes, he says it'd be better if Kim just stayed on the ground. Before he can finish the fight with his final blow, someone tells him to stop what he's doing. Lee Gyumin takes Jihan hostage with a sharp dart and tells Daewon not to attack anymore. Otherwise, he'll eliminate his friend with that lethal weapon. Daewon shouts for his friend, and Gyumin gets disappointed about having wasted money on Kim. Threatening his subordinate, he tells him to do his job properly and not get beat up. Our protagonist gets really angry at the threat, while Kim Gang readies a punch, landing it squarely on the gamer slave's face with ease. His enemy asks if he doesn't see that he's doing all this to completely crush him. At that moment, Daewon starts blocking several of his punches in a row. Kim tells him to keep going if he doesn't care what'll happen to his friend afterward. Jihan yells when he sees his friend getting hit, taking a punch straight to the stomach. He gets mad at Gyumin, who holds the dart and warns Jihan not to try anything funny. Gyumin says he has all the video footage of the crime they committed against Jihan. He asks how his mother would react. After all, she's already sick and would collapse seeing that. On top of that, Lee said Jihan should also start worrying about himself. Meanwhile, he orders Kim Gang-jae to stop playing around and finish the fight. At that moment, he uses both of his big hands to choke our protagonist. He tells Lee he was going to do it anyway, and Daewon is stunned by the chokehold. He knows very well, from experience, that he'll lose consciousness soon. He also knows that if he attacks, Jihan will be in danger, so he needs to handle Lee first. After all, he's holding a weapon, and that's dangerous. Daewon wishes he could use Weapon Master. At that moment, Kim Gang-jae chokes him even harder, and he starts to lose consciousness. Jihan lets out a desperate and pained cry with all his willpower. One day at school, Jihan was telling Lee to pack up and asked if he was going to the hospital. Sad and discouraged, Gyumin said he was, but something was bothering him. He said it must be nice to still have your mom alive, and after losing his, he changed a lot. That day, Lee Gyumin walked away and began to distance himself from Jihan. Gyumin started going down a dark and crooked path with delinquents. Jihan tried to stop him and talk to Lee, saying he was better than that. But it only made things worse, and the bully told him he just felt sorry for him and threatened him. After that, he ran off, and the bully started targeting him with harassment. Holding the boy hostage, Gyumin says that after Daewon, Jihan will be the next target. Laughing evilly, he asks if Jihan thinks he can run away again like he did last time. Jihan says he did run. Even though he saw Gyumin going down the wrong path, he was afraid. He admits that Gyumin wouldn't be like this if he hadn't given up on him back then. At that moment, Jihan begins to squeeze Lee Gyumin's arm and says he's not running this time. Meanwhile, back at his house, the maid starts coughing in the storage room. Seeing how dusty the room is, she knows she'll have to clean it later. As she's leaving, she accidentally knocks something over, but catches it before it hits the ground. She notices the first trophy Jihan received from his martial arts masters. She comments that he used to attend every class, even when his mother was sick. Seeing all his trophies, the maid wonders how he'd be today if he had kept going. Meanwhile, in Lee's hideout, the girls and Kim Gang-jae are in shock at what they see. They watch as Jihan Yu uses a martial arts technique to take down Lee Gyumin. He manages to slam the taller and stronger bully to the ground, using only technique. Daewon sees this and is surprised by his friend Jihan's skill. He flips the situation and starts pointing the sharp dart at Lee's throat. Then he apologizes to the delinquent, and Gyumin gets irritated. Jihan tells our protagonist that he's okay after breaking free, and Kim gets angry at his boss. Right after that, a very bright light appears and shocks Kim Gang-jae. Jihan tells Daewon he can attack the enemy now, and Daewon prepares his multi-punch technique. In the past, Jihan, worried, wanted to know if Lee would return to school and if the funeral went well. A classmate interrupts his thoughts to ask if he used to box, and Jihan confirms. The boys think it's amazing that he does both jiu-jitsu and boxing, and Lee watches from outside the classroom. Jihan says it's just a hobby, and the boys seem inspired by him, while Gyumin feels sad. Lee was suffering and deeply jealous of the things Jihan had that he didn't. He was envious because Jihan Yu was smiling with friends while he cried. Jihan would ask why Lee didn't organize his school supplies, and Lee would ask if he was going to the hospital. Often that's the reason why someone stops liking another person. Lee used to say it must be nice having a living mother, and feeling jealous, walked down a path of hatred. In total shock, Lee Gyumin asks his underlings what they're doing lying on the ground. He watches the scene with intense hatred, his eyes filled with blood and wide open. He screams at the delinquents, including Kim Gang-jae, to get up while cursing them out. He feels deep hatred and says he spent a lot of money on them just for them to lose like this. He calls them useless for not being able to beat a single man. Furious, he asks what the girls are doing and runs toward them. Pulling their hair, he orders them to fight while insulting them. The girls scream for him to let go, which only enrages him more. Our protagonist asks if he's not going to fight and says it looks like he doesn't know how. Lee Gyumin throws the girls to the ground and asks how much Jihan paid him to do all this. He offers to pay triple the money for Daewon to join his side, and Daewon looks disappointed. He asks why he would ever want or accept money from a bully like Lee. Frustrated by how Jihan Yu is treating him, he threatens to send videos to his mother. He asks the boy if he's really okay with reliving what happened that day. At that moment, Jihan remembers what happened on the day they parted ways. In their conversation, Jihan said that Lee Gyumin wasn't a delinquent before. Gyumin asked if he was pitying him, and that day became the biggest regret of Jihan's life. Trying to calm his friend down, Jihan said he wasn't pitying him. He tried to warn him that the people he was hanging out with just wanted his money and weren't real friends. He said he understood what had happened to Lee Gyumin's mother, but the bully replied that he didn't understand after all. He hadn't lived through it, and told him to leave. He didn't want empty words of comfort. and then had the idea to make Jihan understand his anger. Lee Gumin said horrible things about Jihan's mother, words Jihan doesn't even like to remember. As soon as he heard those words, Jihan lost control and beat him nearly to death. In the principal's office, Lee's father asked how he dared to hit his son and just apologize. The principal tried to explain to the angry father that Jihan's parents were busy and couldn't come, that his mother was sick, and Jihan knew how important it was for a sick person to be mentally stable. The fact that his mother received news that her son had hurt someone that day was a massive shock, and she went to the principal's office despite being ill and apologized for the delay. The principal tried to speak about her physical condition, but she insisted she needed to be there. She told Lee Gumin's father that her son Jihan had made a terrible mistake with his. Right as she was about to say she was sorry, she lost strength and collapsed. Everyone was shocked and wondered what had happened to the lady. Jihan found out sometime later that, on that day, his mother was in terrible condition, and to his dismay, it became a big opportunity for Lee Gumin. Days later, Gumin forced Jihan to eat spoiled yogurt in front of the whole class. They recorded the incident, and Gumin used the people around him to begin isolating Jihan. Standing in front of a kneeling Jihan, he asked if he had quit the extracurricular classes he used to take. He asked if, after seeing his mother faint, he got scared, and said they'd always get along. A delinquent tried to shake Jihan by saying his mother would never be able to bear knowing how he was treated. Afraid something bad might happen to his mom, he decided not to resist the bullying. Soon he was left alone, and Gumin asked if there were any fake friends around just after his money. Showing the video to Jihan, he asks why he's so quiet. Is he scared he'll send it to his mother? Before he can start blackmailing him, Dawan snatches the phone from his hand and finds the video mild. He can't delete them one by one, so he decides to wipe the phone and even erase it from the cloud. Lee Gumin says that even deleting it from the phone won't matter. The video might be somewhere else. Dawan-ha adds that even if he doesn't know how it was before, now he's on Jihan's side. He threatens Gumin, saying that if he or anyone else bothers Jihan again, he'll take them all down. Grabbing his shirt with intense anger, he says he even wants to do it right now. Dropping the man on the floor, he asks his friend what they should do with him. After all, he hurt him so many times, and Jihan Yu looks Lee Gumin up and down. Now looking at Lee, he realizes he had been alone during all the time they were apart. But thinking about it now, he notices that Lee is also alone, and Lee offers to delete the videos. Jihan blames himself for abandoning a friend, and Gumin says he'll never show up in his life again. He apologizes this time, but secretly grabs a broken glass bottle. He yells at them both, cursing them for getting in his way, and points the broken bottle at Dawan. Yu Jihan assumes all of this was his fault and kicks Lee right in the face himself. Dawan-ha was getting ready to fight, but Gumin hits the floor before he can even do anything. His friend asks if he got hurt, and our protagonist says no. The protagonist asks how Jihan is so good at fighting, and with Lee on the ground, the situation is resolved. On the way home, he heard the whole story about how Lee changed after his mother passed away. Dawan then understands why he remained quiet during the bullying at the karaoke. Even if he wanted to escape that situation, he was too traumatized to stand up to anyone. Realizing he couldn't do anything, Jihan asks Dawan if he isn't just pathetic. After all, his friend almost got into serious trouble today because of him, but Dawan says he's reliable, especially when Lee came at him with a bottle. If it weren't for Jihan, he'd be screwed. At that moment, he remembers his mother saying she just wanted to see him have a good friend, someone to look after him, just like he looked after her, and Jihan used to say he wasn't strong. Then his mother said he could become someone else's reliable friend. Opening the window to look at the sun, she said that friends can support each other, and that's a good thing. No matter how hard the situation gets, he could have the courage not to run away. Jihan found that a little strange coming from his mom, but she said it was an old lady's way of thinking. The protagonist asks what would happen if Lee sends the videos to his mother out of revenge. He doesn't know how long it'll take, but he says he's going to tell his mom the truth, little by little. Jihan admits he can't keep running from the past forever. He says he has courage now that Dawan is by his side, and he said that in front of Lee. Our hero feels happy and smiles, though he then says it was kind of a cringe moment. Finally, the system notifies that our protagonist has completed his mission to rescue Jihan. He decides to claim the secret reward at that moment and wonders what it could be. His eyes widen when he receives the item. After all, a black smoke begins to rise from it. He holds in his hands the secret item, which radiates energy, and wonders what kind of ominous item it is. Confused as the smoke dissipates, he asks himself if this is some kind of black lock. He first received keys, and now a lock, and decides to check the item's info. The black lock is a secret item, and the protagonist tries to understand its effect and function. He wonders if this is going to be a problem in real life, and if it is, it might be way too powerful. That makes Dawan-ha question whether this might be a bit too dangerous. Exhausted, Dawan lies on the table, celebrating that the exams are finally over. He thanks Jihan. After all, everything he taught him was on the test. Modestly, the boy says it was Dawan who put in the effort, and Dawan feels motivated to study earlier next time. Dawan asks if he's going to the hospital, and Jihan says yes. After all, he has a lot of appointments coming up. He says he'll be staying in the hospital this weekend and asks what Dawan-ha is going to do. Our protagonist says he also has somewhere to go this week. He remembers the conversation he had with Unsung, saying he didn't suspect anyone. Then he mentions that the evidence from the Sunshine Shelter was left there, and the place is now in ruins. Knowing the shelter building is still standing, he decides to search for useful clues. He considers it difficult to research online since it's been a long time since he looked into it. With the city map open, he starts navigating and turning onto the right streets. Our protagonist says the Sunshine Shelter was shut down 3 years ago. The building used by the shelter remains intact, and he hopes to find useful clues there. He decides to use the weekend to scout the area, until something catches his attention. He finds it strange to see a construction site when he arrives, knowing that should be the building. In shock, he realizes the building is about to be demolished. An old man on the street asks why he's talking about demolition. After all, that brings bad luck. Annoyed, the man says it's just a renovation. The old man says no one wanted that building for 3 years and the owner suffered a lot. Dawn asks the man if this was the Sunshine Shelter's headquarters, and the old man has no idea. Dawn replies that he's the son of the shelter's owner, Jin Ha, and the old man processes the information. When asked why he's visiting, Dawn says he wants to find items from the shelter before it's gone. The man says that after the shelter closed, everything was cleared out, and Dawn can't believe there are no clues left. After asking if there's absolutely nothing left, the old man goes to check and tells him to wait there. After a while, the old man returns with an item wrapped in cloth and hands it to the protagonist. He says nothing from the shelter remained and no other residents came back until now. But while checking the inside of the building before renovation started, he found this item on the floor. He says it was exactly where his father's office used to be during the time of the shelter. At first, he thought of throwing it away, but it seemed out of place, so he kept it. Dawn begins to unwrap it as the old man mentions how randomly it appeared there. After all, no one usually keeps broken glasses in boxes unless there's a reason. Seeing the item, Dawn believes someone left it on purpose, that it was planned, and besides, his father didn't wear glasses. He decides to keep it, though he's unsure if it has anything to do with the shelter. As Dawn is leaving, the old man asks why he's looking for clues, but Dawn doesn't intend to explain. Before anything is revealed, he prefers to keep it a secret and just says he missed his father. The old man finds it too sentimental, and Dawn-ha leaves the building at that moment. Crying, the old man says the boy just made him feel really sad now. Che Jin-ho, assistant to the delinquent counsel in Gwanek, asks what brings the client there. Angry, Lee Guman slams his hand on the table and demands they crush Yuji-han and Dawn-ha. Che says that just 2 days ago, Lee came to them asking for help getting his subordinates under control. Throwing a large sum of money at Che Jin-ho, he says there will be a very nice bonus for him. He threatens the assistant and simply demands that he do what he's asking in exchange for the money. Che Jin-ho seems to consider the offer made by Lee Guman. Looking around the bar, he asks Lee if he really thinks money solves everything. Accepting the money, he says yes, it does, and agrees to take care of the matter for him. He asks Lee to repeat the name of the school and the targets, and Lee says it's Jihan and Dawn from Shinnan. As soon as the assistant Che Jin-ho hears the name Dawn-ha, he seems to recognize it instantly. He says there's no problem, but the system has a specific warning about Dawn. However, in the additional notes, it says he defeated the former representative of Boromandan. Lee Guman decides to clarify right away that both of them are strong, and not just anyone can beat them. Cha thanks the bully for the heads up and says he doesn't need to worry so much. After all, they have the perfect professionals for this kind of job. He says their strength needs no explanation. They just got out of juvenile detention. They're full of energy, and we see this as they take down a crowd of people. Oh Hyosep, the maniac brother associated with Su and Dong, asks his brother how things are going with the leader. Otasiup says he already dealt with a small fry and tells his younger brother to show some respect. Hyosep asks who even respects each other when it comes to twins. His maniac brother threatens to eliminate him once he comes down to where he is. Che tells Lee Guman that he doesn't need to worry anymore. They'll handle the situation. Dawn says time flies as the second-year school trip has already arrived. Seeing all his classmates excited, he can never really feel happy about school trips. Our protagonist prefers to stay home gaming until Orenju appears and greets him. When he sees the pretty girl he likes, he gets excited and greets her back. As soon as she says she's excited for the trip, he says it's going to be the best trip of their lives. When Jahan shows up, he gets excited too. Now he'll have both of them to keep him company. At that moment, our hero starts seeing the trip in a more positive light. Through the earpiece, Che asks the brothers if they received the client's information for the mission. She tells them not to feel pressured just because they're far from home. She orders them to do what they always do, leave the target unable to use his leg. The two maniac brothers are already infiltrated inside the bus and greet each other. Our protagonist says he's excited for the school trip, while the brothers are already waiting for him. The bus driver shouts that they've arrived and tells them to get off the vehicle. Aaron stands up while her friend is still sleepy, unaware of where she is, and tells her to get up. She says it'll be their last trip as students, and they arrive in Jeonju with the sleepy friend. Dawn wonders if it's really okay to have a pottery class on the first day of their final trip. Jihan gets excited at the idea of taking the sculpture home, but Dawn finds it too childish. Dawn then starts to like the idea. After all, he'll remember the trip when he sees the sculpture at home, until suddenly, someone appears and smashes his sculpture, destroying it instantly. Choi Taekshin, a pottery master, says that the garbage he made doesn't belong on sacred soil. Someone tells Choi he can't interfere during class time, but he insists on finding his disciple. However, when Master Taekshin sees Jihan's work, he asks if he made it himself. He recognizes the piece as a perfect replica of National Treasure No. 91, the horse-shaped vase. He says Jihan recreated it perfectly and asks who the boy is. Jihan replies he took a few classes as a child. As soon as the master asks him to become his successor, our protagonist is left in shock. Finally, it's lunchtime on the first day of the trip. The starving students already expect the food to be terrible. The teacher asks where they're going, and hungry, they say it's lunchtime. Their guide says they'll be eating at the pottery workshop, and the students don't understand why. He says the basil pizza is baked in the hottest kiln in Kiln by Master Choi, praising Master Choi's pizza. The teacher says he's as good at it as he is at pottery. Dawn gets mad at the pizza, saying it looks like his sculpture melted into the dough. Meanwhile, Jahan-yu praises it, saying it's delicious. Choi says that if Jahan becomes his successor, he'll teach him the pizza recipes he learned in Italy. Still on the first day, the students go to visit the museum. Jihan and Doan agree that visiting the museum after lunch made them sleepy and bored. Ignoring his friend who's talking about the schedule, he overhears girls saying Urin is beautiful. As soon as he looks at her, he sees she's wearing a very beautiful crown, finding it too flashy. Urin asks her friend how it looks, but the friend finds it embarrassing and avoids her. Even though it's just an accessory, the friend wonders who would buy a crown like that, but Urin thought it was pretty. She starts chasing her friend, trying to force her to put the crown on. Dawn thinks she looks gorgeous wearing the Chiamachon crown and is mesmerized. The teacher asks if they like the museum, and everyone answers yes, enthusiastically. He says they have free time to explore on their own until dinner. He adds that if they get caught doing anything suspicious, they'll be sent back to school. Dawn-ha invites his friend to take a walk until dinner, and Jihan agrees. During their free time before dinner, the two walk around the street. Following them, the Maniac brothers wonder if they can already eliminate Dawn and Jihan. Oh Hyosea, the younger one, eats ice cream while staring intensely at Dawn, eager to fight him. His older brother tells him to wait a bit. Now's not the right time. Otasiop says that among his brother's many flaws, impatience is one of the worst. Just as he's about to say his brother ruins everything, the attendant spills ice cream on his clothes. Apologizing, the attendant says he'll clean it up right away. His younger brother warns the ice cream guy that that shirt is Taseop's favorite. The older brother brushes off his clothes, and the younger one asks if he's lacking patience, while the attendant is knocked out. Meanwhile, Dawn tries a sweet and is amazed by its flavor. Jihan says he still has room in his stomach after the pizza, and Dawn is enjoying the trip. In the past, trips were awful since he had to sit next to the teacher on the bus. He would just mess with his phone the entire ride. He was forced to switch rooms because of bullies at the lodging. He suffered bullying, they drew obscene things on his face and rubbed toothpaste on him. It was a trip full of suffering that he had to endure, but now he's saying goodbye to the past. Jahan asks Dawan if he wants to go to a place everyone tries to visit at least once in Jeonju. They go to the ATVs, and Dawan asks if they can drive without a license. Jihan says they can. Dawan's attention is stolen by a girl driving wildly, irritating the guide. The old guide wonders if she's never driven before, and it says she's doing something dangerous. Arin is driving recklessly, and even her friend is scared of how fast she's going. As soon as her ATV stops, the protagonist asks the girl if she's okay. Wondering if they know each other, the old man asks if Doan wants to try driving too. Annoyed, the guide says having two groups of two would be a waste of money to turn away. But Arin's friend gives up, and the old man says a boy and girl can ride together. The old man asks if Jahan knows how to drive, and Dawan is shocked by the information. Embarrassed, our protagonist realizes what that means and starts looking at Arin. He sees her body leaning on the vehicle and hears her asking if he's okay with sharing. Arin Ju then asks our protagonist if he wants to ride the ATV with her. Dawan starts driving with Arin on the back, and he feels her so close, warming him up. He notices his heart is almost exploding with emotion having her behind him. Arin notices and says Dawan is burning hot, and he can't even reply. Because she's too close, he doesn't know what to say, while Arin is loving the wind in her face. A bully on the street sees Arin and says she's extremely attractive with a great body. Thugs from the city school say they want that girl for themselves, though she's from another school. They envy Dawan, thinking he's her boyfriend, and want to take her anyway. Arin Ju says that just like at the internet cafe last time, they met again by coincidence. Dawan remembers hitting her on the head with a hammer that time and failing to make a good impression. But even so, now they're riding an ATV together, and he sees a candy truck on the street. He decides to impress her with a romantic line and approaches the candy truck. Our hero makes a really bad pickup line to Arin, thinking he said something super romantic. But seeing her reaction, he thinks he failed. After all, she looks terrified. Dawn apologizes, but Arin says she just hates loudspeaker trucks, and he drives away quickly. Stopping at another place, the protagonist asks if she's feeling better, and she says she is. He asks if she's okay during school breaks with those loudspeakers around, and she says she's leaving. She says she's going for a walk near the observatory and mentions it's a shame they're leaving the next day. She says they can go with her friend, and before she can object, Jahan shows up, finding out where they are. Jahan is carrying Aaron's friend in his arms, and when asked what happened, he says it was an accident. The girl seems smitten with Jahan Yu, looking at him in awe. Earlier on the ATV, the girl said that besides being handsome, he was great at driving. He said he learned that in his leisure and sports class. While walking on the water, drops splashed on the girl, and Jihan pulled him out of there because it might be dangerous. However, the ATV wheel began to sink in the water because it was a bit deep. At that moment, when he accelerated, the girl fell off the ATV onto the ground. She fell on the rocky ground and got injured, so Jihan rushed to her, asking if she was okay. He apologized for not paying attention and realized it wasn't too serious. He held her in his arms and asked if it hurt, and she looked at him with love in her eyes. While the ATV was tilted in the water, she said she wasn't that badly hurt. After telling the story to their friends, they returned to the lodge as night falls. He adds that after that, he helped her walk because her legs weren't doing well. Dawn Ha says he was brave to carry her like a princess, and Jihan says it was his first time doing that. Our protagonist says he learned and calls him master, but Jihan gets embarrassed. Dawn says they didn't even go to Jeju Island and still managed to find a great guest house. Both agree that the room is very spacious and tidy. Dawn throws himself onto the bed and sleeps a lot after everything that happened, and Jihan says it was fun. Our protagonist agrees and wonders if the next day will be just as enjoyable. The second day of the trip begins, and the students go to visit the city's historical sites. Their guide explains that tombs of the Silla kings are scattered throughout the city. Then the students visit the Bulbiksa temple, and the class takes photos there. Dawan and Jihan have fun. Next, they visit the Hanok village, and Arin wears traditional village clothes. While taking pictures with her friend, something seems to bother her, and she says she feels watched. Her friend asks if she knows how many guys are checking her out, and Arin understands what she means. Still on the second day, the class visits the Silla History Museum. Dawn-ha and Jihan-yu feel bored and tired while visiting that museum. Tae-seop tells his younger brother that it's going to happen soon and asks him to be patient. The younger brother says he's been holding back for a long time and asks how much longer they'll wait. The older maniac brother says they'll act during the night of that day. Inside the auditorium, a host yells and asks the audience to shout with him. He says he'll hand out boxes of chocolates to those who scream the loudest. It's the midday break. A dance club performance is about to begin in the auditorium show. Pointing to the seats on stage, the host asks who the lucky ones will be to watch up close. Several nerds and sleazy guys raise their hands, wanting to sit on the stage. But as soon as the host says the seats are for couples, everyone gets frustrated. He calls up the couples, and Dowan finds the single, angry guys pathetic. When he asks Shihan Yu if he agrees, his friend is no longer in his seat. This makes him wonder where his friend went, and we see Jihan with a girl. She apologizes for asking him for this favor. We see Arin's friend, Choi Min-hai, asking him to go up on stage with her since she doesn't have a boyfriend. A little embarrassed, Jihan-yu asks if he just has to sit in the chair. Dawn-ha feels jealous seeing his friend enjoying the trip alone, betraying him. Our protagonist then decides to make his own special memory of the trip by himself. But when he stops to think, he remembers Arin said she doesn't like loudspeakers, and she mentioned walking around the observatory when the speakers get too noisy. Dawn then figures she must be heading alone to Chimcheondae in Jeonju. Walking there at night, Dawn finds the path creepy because of the tombs. He wonders if Arin is safe walking alone at this hour. Suddenly, our protagonist steps on a blue wire, and the system says he has entered the king's tomb. Frightened, our protagonist thinks this is a dungeon mission. The mission asks him to defeat enemies, but he wonders where they are, since it's such an empty place. Just as he looks to the side, the older brother attacks him with a punch that Dawn blocks. Tae-seop says it was good of him to come there alone, without them needing to lure him. Dawn-ha asks who he is, and the younger brother appears behind him to attack by surprise. He lands a massive punch on his ribs, saying he noticed Dawn had studied the area well. Laughing, Hyosep says he picked a good place to die. After all, they're tombs. Our hero wonders who these guys attacking him out of nowhere are. Tae-seop tells his brother they'll rip off Dawan's arm and other limbs in just a moment. Dawan ignores them and starts looking around, which confuses them. The protagonist says he's relieved. They don't understand why, but he thought zombies would come out of the tombs. He says he's glad it's just the two of them, until the younger one appears behind him to land a punch. However, our protagonist hits him first before he can land a surprise blow. He lands a perfect blind spot punch right to his face and wonders if the mission will give bonus points. He then decides to quickly finish these guys off to get his event reward. Dawan-ha asks if there's only one enemy left now, and plans to go find Arenju. The Maniac brothers receive missions from an agency and complete them with violence. With serious expressions, they were named by those who witnessed their brutal and bloody side. No matter who the target is, they feel no guilt, not even for women or mothers. No matter how big the enemy is, for example, a father who lost his family, this huge man tried to annihilate them. But when the brothers are together, they never lose. With the younger brother down, Dawan notices that the dungeon has a fancy name. His brother Tae-seop is shocked to see his sibling fall with a single blow. Dawan-ha, confident, knows that was nothing yet. Noticing it now, he sees they look alike and asks if they're twins. He starts running toward Tae-seop, who doesn't understand why brothers would do this. He says he's busy looking for someone and lands a strong punch on the older brother's face. He says the big guy should go lie down next to his little brother. However, Tae-seop easily blocks his punch and says it was a good hit. But our protagonist says he's got an even better one and prepares a destructive multi-hit attack. At that moment, Hae-seop gets up and kicks Dawan-ha's hand, canceling his move. Hae-seop is outraged that Dawan thought they looked alike. He claims he's clearly the better looking one. Our protagonist is shocked by how fast he got up and is already attacking him. So once again, Dawan uses his blind spot technique, landing a kick on Hae-seop's chest. Tae-seop tells his brother to be less arrogant or he'll take another hit. He says it was a strategic strike, but it hurt and felt like it was going to break his teeth. He adds that it's fine because Dawan-ha is going to suffer a lot more than that. The two brothers prepare to charge at him again, and our protagonist raises his guard to protect himself. Hae-seop runs at him and says he's going to be direct this time, but he takes a lightning-fast blind spot punch to the face mid-charge. In response, Dawan gets punched in the head by the older brother, who follows up with a combo. Feeling an annoying pain, Dawan-ha realizes he was hit from behind again. Hae-seop says Dawan has great punches and asks for more, Dawon thinks they're different. It's unlike fighting a group where he faced crazy people with no coordination. Now the two of them are attacking with perfect synchronization. They're used to fighting together. When he's about to hit one in front, he's struck by the other from behind. Even though it's a simple tactic, their movements are incredibly fast. Dawon can't land a clean attack because he's always being interrupted. Oh Hai-seop says he saved his brother, and Oh Tae-seop says it was nothing. The older brother says he's disappointed in Dawon. He expected more from him. Dawon feels the same way about them. Compared to a monster like Jung Seok-young, their techniques aren't all that great. What will matter in this fight is who lands the strongest blows. When Dawon asks if they're feeling ashamed, they take it as the excuse of a loser. Our protagonist says the annoying little brother, Oh Hai-seop, will be the first. He knows that as soon as he attacks the one in front, the other will come from behind, so he anticipates it with a blind spot move. Instead of hitting the younger one, he turns his torso to strike Tae-seop, who's behind him. But as he tries to hit the older brother, Tae-seop dodges and sweeps his leg. Knocking our protagonist down, he says he wasn't the first to notice their strategy. After taking him down, the older brother tells Hai-seop to finish him. Dawon jumps and prepares the Falcon's fall, knowing the fight ends if he lands a strong hit. However, the younger brother jumps and pulls his jacket, canceling his move. Landing a punch squarely on his face, Dawon crashes to the ground on his feet. Oh Tae-seop says they need to finish this fight quickly so they can move on to their next target. They pull the protagonist's arm back, saying they're going to break all his limbs. Oh Hai-seop asks our hero if he remembers saying he'd suffer worse pain. With a maniacal expression, he counts down from 3, saying that pain starts now. Straining with all his strength, Dawon says they can use their dirty tricks. But he grabs both their collars and says whoever lands the strongest hit wins. He starts shouting as lightning surrounds his body and says their tricks won't work on him. Then he smashes one brother into the other using his stunning blow technique. The two maniac brothers go flying backward after the extremely powerful impact. Dawon asks how they dared to grab someone's arm like that, and they hit the ground. Feeling like they nearly broke his arm, he angrily calls the brothers maniac. Looking Oh Tae-seop up and down, he realizes he's the older brother. Before he can finish his sentence, a motorcycle begins to approach. Our protagonist looks up toward the top of the king's tomb and sees a motorcycle parked there. This makes him wonder who the hell that maniac is and whether that bike was already there. In a lot of pain, the younger brother says that if the hit had landed properly, his skull would be fractured. Seeing they're trying to stand up again, Dawon threatens to really beat them up this time. However, something behind the gamer servant catches his attention. Injured? Tae-seop says that person should have arrived earlier. Oh Hai-seop says they waited a long time for him, and when the brothers are together, they never lose. The younger one was eager to fight already, but the older told him to wait for something. He said his brother needed to be patient, and Hai replied he couldn't stand the long wait anymore. Until the older brother received a message from someone saying he'd arrive at night. That person says he was almost mugged on the way to the location. When he appears, the maniac brothers are now gathered, and he says he beat up the muggers. Oh Kwang-seop grabs our hero's arm and says they're going to fight as a trio of maniac brothers. Meanwhile, in the auditorium, everyone claps and cheers for the dance club. Choi Min-hai dances really well, performing several impressive moves. All the men in the audience are amazed and head over heels for the girl. Jahan-yu wonders if all that excitement is really just because of the dancing. Jahan feels really hot, and Choi Min-hai is dancing very close to him. He feels like his heart is about to explode when she hugs him from behind. The older maniac brother says he taught a lesson to the delinquents who tried to rob him. He grabs the protagonist's arm, who starts wondering if there's something weird with his eyes. Meanwhile, the creepy Oh Kwang-seop says they'll fight like a trio of maniac brothers. The youngest says Kwang was wandering around, and Kwang says he's tired and asks for a break. Tae-seop tells him to act like the older brother and not show up late. Dawon wonders why these idiots look so much alike, and they start arguing among themselves. Our hero then questions why they suddenly showed up here, of all places, during the trip. Saying that doesn't matter, he wastes no time and punches Kwang-seop in the face. Finally, the protagonist was about to fight 2 at once, and now it'll be all 3. Kwang says if he hadn't blocked it, he would have lost a tooth, and sees Dawon as impatient. Charging at the gamer servant, he says he won't be living for much longer. The 3 start attacking together in sync, with the younger ones flanking from behind. Dawon runs from the 3 maniac brothers, sprinting straight ahead to get away. The brothers notice he's fleeing, and the youngest says he's got good instincts. Oh Hai-seop goes left, and Oh Tae-seop goes right to surround Dawon. Tae-seop says that if it were just one, he could escape, but escaping from all 3 is impossible. Our protagonist appears in front of Tae-seop and asks why he's talking to himself. He lands a powerful punch and asks if he's feeling lonely being separated from the others. The blue-haired brother realizes Dawon didn't run. He forced them to split up. Seeing that Oh Hai-seop is behind him about to strike, he says their efforts were pointless. Our hero surprises him with a blind spot attack and lands a kick right to his face. Caught off guard, the youngest maniac brother is injured and spits out blackberry jelly. The protagonist says he fairly used the attacks that came from behind. Then the older brother asks what he'll do about an attack coming from above, landing a massive kick on Dawon. Even though he blocks it, he's sent flying far away. Our hero manages to stop his body midair and wonders if Kwang jumped from the top of the tomb. Hai-seop bites his tongue and wonders if he might start bleeding from it. Kwang thinks his ambush was amazing, even while fighting all 3 at once. Tae-seop tells Kwang to be careful not to get grabbed, and Kwang says he saw the whole thing. Thanks to his earlier observation, he knows how to handle Dawon. and tells them to use their usual formation. Defending Kwang Seop's blows, the protagonist notices he's similar to the others. The youngest brother throws a kick, and Dawon knows they were both injured earlier. Blocking the kick with his hand, he wonders why they seem faster now. Then, when he takes a punch from behind by Tae Seop, he questions why they're even stronger. Taking multiple hits, our protagonist wonders what kind of trick this is. Kwang guesses what he's thinking and says they aren't getting stronger. In reality, the nerdy boy is the one getting weaker during the fight. Using an analogy, Dawon wonders if 3 hunting wolves are enough to take down a tiger. After all, an old saying said that wolves would surround a tiger and take turns attacking it. They repeat their attacks several times, circling him to strike with ease. They keep biting and attacking, and little by little, the tiger starts losing its strength. Eventually, and naturally, the tiger ends up kneeling before the hunting wolves. Kwang states that while Dawon fights them alone, he's burning through energy. Individually, they're not as strong as him, but together, the maniacs can defeat a tiger. In the end, he says Dawon will lose because he's alone, but Dawon says that shouldn't come out of a villain's mouth. The youngest brother doesn't like being called a villain, and Ta Seop says they need to move on to the next target. Kwang Seop says he'll finish off Dawon Han now so they can leave. But at that moment, our protagonist declares that he's not alone, leaving Kwang confused. He asks who else is there, and someone uses a judo sweep to take him down. One hand on his head, the other on his foot, twisting his body and slamming his face into the ground. The 2 remaining brothers are shocked and wonder who this person is. At that moment, we see Ji Han-yu saying he hit the guy really hard and hopes he's actually a bad person. Hai Seop and Ta Seop realize their next target is Ji Han-yu. They remember the moment the 3 maniac brothers got into formation and Dawon ran. At that time, they thought he was fleeing from the fight. But in reality, he had taken out his phone and had a feeling he wouldn't be able to handle it alone. So he sent his location to Jihan, saying he was about to get eliminated, and told him to come fast. He thanks his friend for coming, and Jihan asks why he was fighting them in the first place. His friend simply asks if he needs to take them on, and Dawon Ha confirms. They begin charging at the 3 brothers, and our protagonist says they're total jerks. Ta Seop tells Hai Seop to take Jihan, and the younger brother is angry he kicked Kwang Seop. He tries to punch Jihan, who ducks and grabs the younger brother's waist. He apologizes as he touches his chest with his fingers and delivers the 1-inch punch. Hai Seop is hit by the Bruce Lee punch and goes flying, knocked out. Jihan-yu wonders what just happened and assumes he must have already been hurt. Meanwhile, our protagonist rushes toward Tae Seop, and they clash with brute force. He asks if the blue-haired brother will be okay fighting alone. He admits he's not in top form, but says Dawon shouldn't worry about him. In truth, Dawon Ha was talking about his older brother, who's preparing his signature technique. After all, he'll be left alone once his brothers are knocked out, and Dawon unleashes a flurry of destructive blows. Taking several massive, powerful punches from Dawon Ha, he screams in pain, until finally, he takes one last big punch to the chin that sends him flying off the ground. Our hero thinks it might have been a bit too strong, seeing the damage done to his face. He finally feels re-energized after defeating one of the maniac brothers. As Kwang begins to wake up, our protagonist says they now need to answer some questions. After all, they were talking about targets, and Dawon Ha asks who sent them. Far away, someone spots the motorbike turned on and realizes someone's dealing with their rookies. A delinquent notices it's the bike of the guide who caused a mess in the city. They think someone's trying to trick them, and that they might be walking into an ambush. The delinquents say it doesn't matter. They're itching to beat someone up. They have guests in their group who came from afar for a fight. They decide to welcome them properly, and we see a horde of monsters from Silajile High approaching. Meanwhile, the 2 brothers are lying on the ground, and Kwang Seop didn't see it happen. He feels sad. Dawon Ha says all they need to do now is answer his questions. After all, he heard them say they came there to take out a target. He realizes the first target was him, and the second was Jihan-yu. Our protagonist says there's no reason for them to do this. They don't even know each other. In a threatening tone, he asks the older brother who sent them to do this. We see the conversation between Lee Guman and Chio, with Chio saying he can count on them. Lee asks what would happen if the people he sent were defeated. Chio assures him they're specialists in group fighting and doesn't think something like that will happen. However, if it does happen, he says they won't open their mouths, and Lee doubts that. Chio, however, says they were warned not to do that.
Our video ends here. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe to the channel. Until next time, bye bye.